So hey guys, welcome back to my channel. This is part 1 of What If Naruto Was Too Into Sonia, Chisa, Pico and Junko in Danganronpa. Naruto's connections with these unique characters take unexpected turns, blending his shinobi world with Danganronpa's high-stakes drama. Don't forget to like and subscribe to help the YouTube algorithm spread this video to more viewers. On 200 likes the next part will be uploaded, and let me warn you guys, this fanfic contains strong lemon after a few chapters, so make sure to put on your headset and enjoy the video without any interruptions. Chapter 1, Welcome to Hope's Peak Academy. On one rooftop was a young teen resting under the peaceful bright day. The rooftop of the building belonged to the prestige school known as Hope's Peak Academy. Hope's Peak Academy is an exclusive, government-sanctioned school that only accepts students with exceptional abilities. The campus is in the center of a large city, where it appears quite prominent. The young male that was using the rooftop as a resting place was dressed in the Hope Peak Academy uniform for males. The personal customization he had done to his uniform was that instead of the brown tie, he chose to replace it with an orange tie. The only other difference besides the different color of tie was that his right arm was covered in bandage wrappings. While he wasn't a fan of the uniform, he knew that he didn't have much choice when it came to the school rules. Placing his wrapped covered hand over his eyes, he peeked under his hand to look at the beautiful sky. The clouds were hovering just above him, giving him a nice shady place to keep on resting. Just as he was about to let himself drift off to slumberland, someone decided to ruin his peaceful mood. Bang! Someone had decided to knock the door leading to the roof down. Turning his head to the side to see who had ruined his peaceful mood, his blues slowly trailed up to see who his mysterious guest was. Ruruka Ando was the one who had kicked the door down. Ruruka Ando is a student in Hope's Peak Academy's class 76th, with her title being Ultimate Confectioner. Ruruka is a woman about 18. She has lilac eyes, short strawberry blonde hair, and a petite, cheerful appearance. Ruruka wore the standard academy uniform with her trimming. She also wore a pink hat and a green ribbon with strawberries on the ends. And at this very moment, she seemed irritated at the young man. And for the young man trying to relax, he knew that meant he wasn't going to get any relaxation.
Naruto! What do you think you're doing up here?
Ruruka yelled at the resting teen. Naruto lazily turned his head at her, wondering why she was yelling at him. Behind her, he noticed that two figures were quickly following right behind her. He knew who the two were and wasn't surprised that they were nearby. One was a male known as Sanosuke. Within Hope's Peak Academy, he was in class 76, with Sanosuke's title being the Ultimate Blacksmith. He has a tall, lean build, with pale blonde hair, sharp brown eyes, pale skin, and a serious expression. He wears a red trench coat over the standard uniform, with him finishing off his outfit with dark red fingerless gloves, baggy black pants, and dark brown boots. And the second person was a female known as Seiko Kimura. Within Hope's Peak Academy, she was in class 76, with her title being the Ultimate Pharmacist. She is a short woman with purple eyes and a sickly complexion. She has pale gray hair and a respirator mask covering her mouth that also hid the fact that she had braces. She also wears the standard female uniform of Hope's Peak Academy with a purple vest and a brown belt. All three have known each other since they were little kids. At least that's what they told him when he was first getting to know them about a year ago. Naruto could see that the three didn't have the best type of friendship, but he wasn't going to say that to the three friends because they were his only friends.
I was trying to rest here in Ruruka.
Naruto let out a tired sigh as he slowly stood up. He knew that she wasn't going to allow him any rest. His answer seemed to only make the baker angrier. Stomping towards the spiky blonde, she pointed a finger in his face.
Rest? Rest? Today is your entrance ceremony, and you're choosing to skip it, just so that you'll get a little nap.
Ruruka's voice was rising with every word.
Yes?
Ruruka didn't like his answer one bit. Being the type of lady that was controlled by her emotions, she did the one thing that she felt was right for the current situation. She stomps on his foot. Hard.
Ow!
Now the blonde was hopping around on one foot, glaring at the strawberry blonde. She gave a huff before walking away from the blonde. Sanosuke, knowing that his girlfriend would have plenty to say about what Naruto just did, followed after her, hoping that he could calm her down. Maybe not, but it was worth a try.
Naruto.
A quiet voice made the blonde stop hopping on one foot. Seiko looked like she had a sad expression.
Ruruka only does what she does cause she cares for you. I know.
Naruto was grateful for his three friends, even with their odd ways of showing affection.
But she didn't have to try to break my foot. She's just worried for you.
Seiko twiddled her thumbs, worried that she was overstepping her boundaries.
She was angry that you couldn't enter the same year as us, and because of that she just wants to make sure that you have gained some friends in your class.
She quickly explains the reason behind Ruruka's mood.
I'm happy that she cares for me, but But she doesn't have to worry about me.
For the blind, he didn't like making people sad, nor did he enjoy hearing that someone was worrying about him. At one point, he would have been jumping out of his clothes at hearing that someone was worrying about him. But he wasn't that person anymore, not since coming to this world.
Please, Naruto.
Seiko's voice sounded as if she was begging.
For my sake and Ruruka, can you at least attempt to try and become friends with your class?
Naruto didn't like that fact that he made a friend of his beg him to become friendly with his classmates. In fact, he felt like a low life for making her do that. His past self would have punched his lights out for making a friend cry.
Okay, I'll try.
After the entrance ceremony.
Alright class, it's time for the formal introduction. I am Kizakura, Koichi Kizakura. And I am an alumni from this school. My title was the Ultimate Talent Scout. All I can say is that it's a great sight to see all 16 students attending class,
he stated. Koichi is a relaxed-looking man, with blue eyes and ragged blonde hair. He has a pencil-thin mustache and goatee. Dressed in a white tuxedo, with a green undershirt and black vest top, with a blue, almost gray tie. He also wore a white hat with a black decoration going around the circumference, near the flappy bit.
Oh my!
An energetic voice commented on. Happy to be in a Japanese school. Koichi turned his attention to the person who spoke.
Well, I guess you'll be the first to introduce yourself. My name is Sonia Nevermind. I am the ultimate princess. I am a princess of Novosellic, which is a small European monarchy.
Sonia is a tall, young woman with long blonde hair, pale skin, and green eyes. She wore the standard-issued school uniform, with a brown vest over her white dress shirt. She also wore a brown hairband with a four-leaf clover on the right side of her hair, black thigh-highs, and brown loafers.
Not to be rude, but you introduce yourself wrong for our customs. Normally, we introduce ourselves with our last name first.
A voice commented on Sonia's introduction. Seeing that everyone's attention turned to the person who talked, that person knew that they might as well introduce themselves to the rest.
Uzumaki Mahiru. I am known as the ultimate photographer. Even though my photos are nothing special.
She muttered the last part to herself. Mahiru Koizumi has dark red hair in a bob cut, green eyes, and a pale face with light freckles across her cheeks. She wore the standard uniform with black knee-length socks and the same color shoes.
There was nothing wrong with Princess Sonia's introduction.
A loud voice shouted in defense of the princess. Now everyone's attention was on that person.
Soda, Kazuchi. If anything breaks on you, come to me. I am after all the ultimate mechanic.
He boasted about himself. He wore a blue jumper and a cap. Kazuchi's hair is dyed hot pink and is somewhat badly layered. However, he covers said bad layering up with the gray beanie he wears. In addition to his punk rock appearance, he has thin eyes with hot pink prescription color contacts on them at all times. Above his eyes, his thin, pronounced eyebrows nearly touch his hairline. His teeth are sharp, giving him an intimidating grin. He also has earrings, the right one having a plus sign and the left one having a minus sign.
Speaking of breaking, if you're not feeling well, you can come to me. I am Ultimate Nurse. And my name is Tsumaki Mikon.
She meekly introduced herself, not comfortable with all the attention on her. She has long, choppy, dark purple hair that is cut unevenly. She has light, grayish-purple eyes. There is a beauty mark under her left eye's corner. She wore Hope's Peak Academy uniform. She had a band-aid on her right cheek and bandages wrapped around her right leg and left knee.
Shut up, Piggy! No one was talking to you.
An angry child-like voice yelled at Mikon. The yelling caused Mikon to weakly mutter an apology as she tried to cover herself.
I'm sorry, Sionji. Since the pig said my name, I guess I will introduce myself now. I am Sionji Hyoko. I am an ultimate traditional dancer.
She is a very petite girl with long, blonde hair that is generally seen tied into curved twin tails. At first sight, her voice and her appearance don't give off the air of a high schooler at all. She has gold eyes and keeps her hair up with two hair ties, both of which consist of a green ribbon with a cat face in the middle. Hyoko is dressed in an orange, traditional Furisode kimono with a white floral print pattern, and a green obi sash which is tied around her waist and secured with a bow at the back.
My turn! My turn! Myota, Ibuki is the name. Being the ultimate musician is my jam.
She is a pale girl with pink eyes, with her hair being long multicolored hair consisting of black, pink, blue and white, some of which is tied into two oni horns on the top of her head. Both of her ears have 6 needle earrings and an earlobe gauge. She also has 3 piercings under the left side of lip and black nail polish. Ibuki also has a long scar tattoo with stitches on her left thigh. She wore a white button-up dress shirt with a pink tie that has light pink-colored X's, a black pleated skirt with a thin belt, a blue scrunchie on her right wrist, a yellow spike bracelet on her left, 2 black rings on her left hand and black thigh highs with white skeletal markings on them. She also wore the same necklace and shoes. Her shoes are white, with blue shoelaces on the right one and pink shoelaces on the left one.
Yes, keep on jumping. Let me see those bouncy beauties go up and down,
a perverted voice said, watching how Ibuki was bouncing in her seat. Everyone looked at him in disgust, not understanding how he could be perverted in the open.
Well, since everyone is looking at me like I am so dirty meat, might well introduce myself. Hanamura Teruteru. There is no dish out there that I can't cook, for I am ultimate cook.
He finished his introduction. He has a plump body and wears a classic chef outfit. It is composed of a white apron with a red undershirt, a red handkerchief/scarf around his neck. A small chef's hat sits on his head. He has dark brown hair all over that is styled in a pompadour that noticeably leans to the left and constantly carries around a comb to fix his hair.
Meat! Meat!
A female voice commented as everyone turned to the source and saw that the lady was drooling from her mouth at the thought of meat. They were not sure if she was hungry or not.
Oh, I am Owari Akane. And to this school I am the ultimate gymnast.
She is a tall young woman with an athletic, curvaceous physique. She has tan skin, brown eyes, and unkempt, long chestnut hair. Akane wears a short-sleeved white shirt with the top few buttons undone, exposing a large amount of cleavage. The bottom button also appears undone, exposing her navel when she moves quickly. She also wears a red miniskirt and cream-colored loafers with no socks.
If you're the ultimate gymnast, then you have to keep yourself in tip-top shape. Don't get lazy just because you found a chief that could cook anything,
a male shouted at Akane.
I Nekomaru swear on my honor as the ultimate team manager.
He is a very tall, muscular man with black hair. He wears a white tank top under a black kakurin, as well as blue tracksuit pants and sandals. He has chains around his neck with a whistle hanging in the middle part, and emits a blue electric aura from his eyes. Nekomaru has 2 scars running from the top of his both eyes downwards in their own directions. He also has a towel tucked into the back of his pants.
Fool! That is no one to introduce yourself. This is how you introduce yourself. I am Tanaka, Gunham. No mere mortal can speak my name, for I am Tanaka, the Forbidden One. I am the ultimate breeder for those who wish to understand who I am.
For everyone, they found it odd that, after his introduction, a dozen hamsters appeared from his clothes. Gundam's skin tone is noticeably pale and grayish compared to the other characters, which could suggest that he doesn't get out much. His head appears to be shaved from the neck up to his temple, where the rest of his hair seems to be slicked back with the exception of a poof of hair in the middle that sticks up and is fairly curly. His hair color is black with pale gray streaks through it. This may either be due to bleaching his hair or a melanin deficiency known as poliosis, giving him several melanin streaks. Interestingly, Gunham has no eyebrows. He has gray eyes, but his right eye has a red contact lens. He also has a grayish scar tattoo that runs down the left side of his face and through his left eye. His entire left arm, at least up to the elbow, is completely covered in bandages, presumably due to injuries that he received while taking care of or calming down his hamsters. His hellhound earring hangs from his right ear, and he wears 2 silver rings on his right hand, pointer and middle. He wore Hope's Peak Academy's uniform, but still had the same scarf, shirt, belt and boots. Instead of 1 hellhound earring, he had 1 on each ear.
This is not an anime. There is no reason you should be shouting. Mitarai Ryota is my name, and my talent is that I am the ultimate animator.
He gave them a short introduction about himself, not seeing a point on going any further about himself. He had fair skin tone and short, light brown hair, hazel eyes, and rosy cheeks. He wore the Hope's Peak Academy uniform with a green tie. And no one wanted to comment on it, but he was on the heavy side, as it seemed like his uniform was ready to burst.
The name Kuzuryu Fuyuhiko. And I am the ultimate Yakuza.
Fuyuhiko didn't want to say any more about himself due to his talent. He is a slim man known for having a refined face, sometimes coming off as baby face. Because of his rather fairly shorter build, Fuyuhiko generally presents an overly aggressive demeanor to assert that he is, in fact, a tough gangster. He has a dusty blonde crew-cut hair, with a distinct pair of curved lines shaved on each side of his head. He also has freckles along the bridge of his nose, and a birthmark near his mouth on the right side. His eyes are gold, and he has permanent blush marks on both cheeks. Befitting his title, Fuyuhiko dresses in traditional Yakuza fashion, well-tailored suits. In the game, he wears a 2-piece suit consisting of a dark pinstripe jacket and pants over a white dress shirt. His tie is brown-black with an animal skull emblem on it, and he wears black dress shoes with a platform heel. On his left lapel is a pin that is in the shape of the emblem of the Kazuria family, and he wears 2 silver rings on his right hand.
I am Pikoyama, Piko the ultimate swordsman.
And like the person before her, She kept her introduction short and to the point. She has long silver hair that she ties up into 2 braids on either side of her head, with white ribbons securing each braid at the top, and 2 red ties to hold each braid together at the bottom. Her eyes are also bright red. Piko also wears thin-framed rectangular glasses. She is constantly seen carrying her shurnai, bamboo sword, around with her in a dark turquoise sheath/wrap with a silver/white design on the back. She wore Hope's Peak Academy standard uniform without the blazer. She also wore black ribbons in her hair, along with the black tights and black shoes.
I guess it's my turn. Nanami Chiaki. People know me as the ultimate gamer.
She has short, light pink hair which is slightly curled. She wears a white clip, in the shape of the spaceship from Galaga, on the left side of her bangs and has pale pink eyes. Chiaki wears the uniform of Hope's Peak, on top of a cream-colored hoodie, and a white shirt with a red ribbon tied to its collar. Her legwear consists of a pair of black thigh-high socks and white loafers.
So much hope and talent in one room. It brings tears of joy to my eyes.
Everyone stared at the person talking as if he was a weirdo.
I am truly blessed to be around all these talents. I guess my talent as the ultimate lucky student has finally changed. Oh yes, my name is Kamita Nejido.
While he might have been known as the ultimate lucky student, his luck can be a curse, flipping between wildly extreme good luck and bad luck. He wore the standard Hope's Peak Academy uniform with red and green striped sweater vest. He is a tall and skinny young man. He has messy shoulder-length hair, light gray-green eyes, and sickly pale skin. His hair is described as resembling that of a corpse's, appearing whiter as it gets closer to the scalp. He has mostly white hair, with some reddish/brown hair at the tips.
I guess since I am the last one, it's time for me to introduce myself. I am Uzumaki Naruto, and this school gave me the title of the ultimate prankster.
Naruto didn't feel like being a chatty person even if he was the last person to be introduced. He had no reason to say anything else other than his name and title.
Alright, since everyone introduced themselves now, I guess it's time for me to say some of the rules about attending class. You do not have to attend class as long as you are finding ways to improve your talents.
Naruto zones out as Koichi tells them all about the school rules and exceptions. 3 days later, it only has been 3 days since the start of the school year, and as of right now nothing had happened. In fact, class 77B hadn't done much in terms of their studies. The reason behind that was their homeroom teacher Koichi had come into class nursing a hangover every day after their first day. While they were told their studies were not important, it did bore everyone watching their teacher trying to recover from a hangover, and them not truly doing anything until class was over.
Okay, class,
Koichi groaned out, and once again everyone saw the signs that he was nursing a hangover.
Free period. Do whatever you want, just make sure you're not that loud about it,
he weakly told them, as he tired to nurse the banging that was happening inside his head. Any normal student would be happy at a free period, but for one, he was not happy. For the blind, he felt that he just had enough. Grabbing his school bag, he stood up and started to walk towards the door. His action didn't go unnoticed.
Where are you going?
Mahira questioned.
Anywhere but here.
That seems to confuse the redhead along with the rest of his classmates.
He told us that we don't have to be here unless we want to. And you can see that he has no interest in teaching us anything.
I am not going to stay here wasting my time watching an old drunk every day if I feel that my time would be better off somewhere else. Everyone stared at the blonde, feeling that there was some truth to his words. Since day one, they had yet to learn one single thing, and while it was only the first week of school, they had felt that seeing their teacher drunk was going to be a normal occurrence. No one said anything to Naruto, not sure if there was a way to keep him from leaving. Not even their teacher seems to want to get in the middle of this. Maybe because he didn't want anything to stop his recovery. Seeing that no one had anything left to say, Naruto left the classroom. Unknown to the blonde, he was the one to start a chain of events that would affect the entire classroom. The next day Naruto and Akane didn't show for class. And slowly one by one the students of class 77B didn't show up for their classes. 2 weeks later, it had been 2 weeks since the majority of class 77B decided that they were better off spending their time perfecting their talents than going to their class. Unknown to everyone that was skipping their classes, they were given a new assistant. That person's name is Chisa Yukizome, a former student of the school. Chisa Yukizome, titled during her time at Hope's Peak Academy, was the ultimate housekeeper. She is a young, fairly tall and smiling woman, who comes across very cheerful and friendly. She has large green eyes, and brown hair almost always tied into a ponytail. A small part of the hair on the right side of her head is curled. And like her title, she was wearing a light blue skirt suit with a white dress shirt underneath, with an apron over her dress, apparently a habit from her days as a housekeeper. Interestingly, she also carries around a pair of wakizashi as part of this attire. And at this very moment Chisa was on a mission. What was the mission? Simple to bring back the 12 students that were no longer attending her class back to her class. Out of 16 students, only 5 were still attending. That alone saddened the ultimate housemaid, as she felt that high school was the last time that a person can enjoy being a young adult. So far her mission was successful, as she found 11 out of 12, but she was still having a hard time finding the ultimate prankster. She was forced to head back to her classroom to ask her students a simple question.
Do any of you know where Uzumaki lives?
That one question caught everyone by surprise, as no one ever got to know the spiky blonde. He was the first to stop coming to class, along with being the least known out of everyone. The entire class shook their heads.
None of you know where Mr. Uzumaki lives?
Again, everyone answered with a simple no.
That is so sad. As classmates, you should get to know everyone while you can. The bonds that you create in school are some of the most important. It's not that we didn't want to know him. It's because
Sonia didn't know how to answer the teacher. She at the same time didn't want Chisa to know that Naruto was the first one to walk away from the class.
Naruto was the first one to stop coming to class.
The Yuhiko answered for the princess, feeling that she didn't have it in her heart to get someone in trouble. He for one didn't care one way or another if the prankster got into trouble. But he felt that Chisa deserved to know the truth.
That is unacceptable,
Chisa nearly shouted, making everyone in the class stop cleaning and stare at the blonde.
I will find him.
Chisa didn't say anything else as she left the classroom to find the prankster.
So does that mean we can go home now?
Hyoko asked out loud, surprised at the energy their teacher still had at the end of the day. Chisa ran towards the one person who she felt that might know where the missing blonde was at. On a side note, she is forgetting that as a teacher she could just look up his records to find out his address. Finding the bench that some students were found talking to a certain individual would normally be seated. And just as she believed, the second person she was looking for was at the bench. Kazuo Tengen. He was the former headmaster of Hope's Peak Academy, as well as the school's advisor after his retirement. Kazuo is an elderly man with silver, upset hair and orange-brown eyes. He has a mustache and beard, and a very sullen face. He also wears glasses, a jacket, with a white dress shirt along with a red tie and a black vest. He wears black pants and brown slippers.
Mr. Tengen! The very person I was looking for,
Chisa stated as she strolled towards the elderly man. Tengen smiled at seeing a former student greeting him. Being the kind man he was, he truly enjoyed whenever he saw a former student coming to him for advice.
Ms. Yukizome, what do I owe this pleasure? Mr. Tengen, by any chance have you seen one of my students come by here?
Chisa knew it was a long shot to ask her former headmaster if he saw her missing student. It seems odd to think that he might have seen the prankster, but for as long as she could remember, students always ended up at this bench asking for advice for their daily lives. She was no expectation.
You're going to have to give me more details on who this missing student is.
Kazuo let out a light chuckle, knowing that she was all focused on the task and forgot some minor details.
He's a spiky blonde about 6 feet 1 inch. Has whiskers on his cheeks. I go to Hope's Peak Academy.
Chisa didn't know how to describe a person she had never met. She remembered some of the details from his files, but not everything.
Aw, you mean Mr. Uzumaki.
Chisa gained a large smile, happy that she might get some help from the elder.
I am familiar with the young man you are speaking about, and I can say that you won't be able to find him at all for the rest of the day,
he calmly told her, slightly frowning at her saddened face.
Can you at least tell me where I can find him for tomorrow?
Chisa was saddened to hear that she couldn't find the blonde after a day of searching for everyone. She was still determined to have the rest of the class back by tomorrow. She wanted them to bond with one another.
I can tell you that he will be in class tomorrow. How do you know that?
While happy that she was getting the blonde in the classroom tomorrow, she wanted to know how the elderly man was going to make that happen. No one in class had any way to contact him, and yet he did.
Please take a seat.
Chisa walked over to him and took the seat next to him, wondering what he was going to tell her now.
The young man you are looking for, you do know he is the ultimate prankster? I might have forgotten that little detail,
Chisa sleeplessly said, scratching her cheek, embarrassed that she could forget her student talent. In her defense, she did have to remember all 16 students' talents along with their names and any other important detail about their lives.
Well, as the ultimate prankster, he will be the hardest one to find unless he wants to be found. For a prankster, being found in the middle of a prank is the worst possible outcome for them. And for young Naruto, he is no exception to this rule. Wait, are you telling me he is in the middle of a prank? No. That young lad just didn't want to be found until he felt that he was needed. And with you actually wanting to teach all this young talents, I am sure that he will show up tomorrow. But how do you know that he will show? Simple. He lives with me. I am the one who enrolled him into the school.
The next day, it was the start of the day. Chisa Yukizome was happy that all the students that she rounded up were all in class today. But she was slightly saddened that Naruto was not in the classroom, like Tengen had said he was going to be. Maybe being the first to leave meant that he wasn't going to come back at all.
Well, seeing how almost everyone is here.
Chisa didn't get to finish her sentence as the door to her classroom opened up. Everyone was surprised to see that the blonde prankster was the one walking through the door. For the Ultimates, they believed that Chisa was successful in bringing the blonde back. For their teacher, she was happy that the blonde did show for class. But she felt that the blonde was in need of punishment.
Sorry, I am Dash.
Chisa didn't allow him to finish what he was saying as she drew out her wakizashi to scare the spiky blonde. But as she was getting the blade close to his throat, she was disarmed before she realized what had happened. Everyone was staring at the scene in front of them with wide eyes. In front of them, they saw that their teacher was knocked down to her knees and had her wakizashi in the blonde hands, with one blade pushed to her throat and the other ready to pierce the back of her skull.
Dude! Calm down.
Kazuchi attempted to calm the blonde down. Everyone else didn't know what to say, out of fear that if they said one thing wrong he might use the blade to end her life. Unknown to everyone, Chisa forced her reflexes from the blonde when she charged at him with the blade in hand.
Gotcha.
Naruto let out a light laugh trying to defuse the situation, knowing full well that what he just did looked very dangerous for everyone. Did he mean to pull the blade out on Chisa? No. But as a former ninja his reflexes kicked in. Looking around he saw that everyone was letting out a nervous chuckle.
Sir!
Piko sitting behind Fuyuhiko whispered to her childhood friend. He didn't say anything but did lean back to hear what Piko needed to say.
The way he moved was the way of a killer.
Fuyuhiko stared at the blonde, and the teacher wondering if what Piko had said had truth behind it. He knew that Piko was looking out for his safety, but there was nothing to worry about. For now.
Sorry about that.
Naruto helped the young teacher back to her feet and handed her back her weapon.
I don't know what overcame me.
He hoped that he could salvage the situation before everyone thought he was a crazy man. He didn't know if there was any good reason to explain his reflexes.
It's fine, young man. Just don't do that again.
Chisa didn't want to show it, but when she felt the blade being pressed against her throat, she feared that her life was going to come to an end. She didn't want to show her fear in front of her students. But when someone had a blade pressed against her throat, it was going to end up showing.
Understand. I am Uzumaki, Naruto, the ultimate prankster.
Naruto extended his arm out to shake hands with the teacher.
Nice to meet you. I am your teacher Yukizome Chisa.
And with that she extended her hand and shook hands with the prankster. This would mark the first step on the journey to finding hope. A full day had passed since Class 77B had fully come back to class. Their acting homeroom teacher Chisa couldn't be happier. Now she just needed to find a way for her students to bond with one another. At this very moment, Chisa was happily humming to herself. She felt that found a good way to break the ice for her students to start to get to know one another. But she had one problem. How to split the students into equal groups. With 16 students, that was a hard enough task. But at the same time, she also had one another issue. And that was splitting the group with people that didn't cause too much conflict. While she believed that her students were not violent, she also knew that a clash of personalities could be dangerous at such an early stage with her students. After thinking about her problem for several more minutes, it finally dawned on her. She finally found a perfect way to split everyone equally, and not cause some or none at all conflict. A large grin formed on her face, as she believed she found the perfect combos. Now all she had to do was wait for tomorrow to spring her plan into action. Taking a second to look at the calendar, she saw that she would have to wait more than just a few hours. It was Friday night, and Hope Peak Academy only had classes from Monday through Friday. Oh well. Monday morning.
Morning, everyone.
Chisa happily greeted everyone in her homeroom. In return, they all greeted her back in their own way. Her plan was about to begin, and she couldn't be anything but excitable. With a large grin on her face that seemed close to splitting her face into two, she quickly started writing on the whiteboard behind her. Everyone watched as she wrote on the board. Bonding week. No school for the entire of the week. Everyone looked at the board with confused expression. For someone who wanted them to always come to class, now here she was giving them an entire week off? And what is the deal with bonding week?
I know what you're all thinking. And yes, I am giving you the entire week to bond with one another.
Everyone still kept their confused expressions. Didn't she see that people could do whatever they wanted instead of hanging out with one another? Before anyone could voice their opinion, Chisa beat them all to the punch.
I know that some of you are thinking, couldn't we just blow off a weekend of getting to know one another and just do whatever I wanted? And you would be wrong? For the entire week, I have split up each person with another person to hang out with per each day.
Again, the class felt that there was a fault in her plan.
Before any of you say anything, I have found a way to ensure that all of you hang out with one another. You have to write a report about the 5 people you hang out with along with attaching a photo of you 2 together hanging. That means I expected 5 photos for each of your report.
Chisa was not a fool. She wanted them to become friends, and she felt that this was the best way to do so.
After getting your list of whom you're hanging out with for the week, you are free to take off for the rest of the week.
No one argued with her. They didn't know how to argue with her. At the same time, they also knew that she wanted them to truly enjoy their high school years before entering adult life. And just like that, their entire week was set for them. After everyone received their papers telling them who they would be hanging out with, everyone looked down to see who they were going to spend their week with. For the blind, Naruto, he was dreading who he was going to be with. On his paper it read, Day 1, Fuyuhiko Kazuryu. Day 2, Mahira Koizumi. Day 3, Gunham Tanaka. Day 4, Ibuki Mayota. Day 5, Sonia Nevermind. While Naruto didn't have anything against the 5 he was asked to bond with this week, he did feel a small headache. Letting out a sigh, he started to walk towards the person he was going to be spending the rest of the day with. Might as well get this week over with. Something just hit him. When did he start hating being around people? Didn't he always wanted to be friends with everyone and get along with everyone? Why now did it feel like he no longer wanted to do so? When did his personality change? These were the thoughts going through the blonde head as he was walking towards the young Yakuza. Fuyuhiko was not feeling any different about being forced to hang out with random people, even if they were his classmates.
Who are you going to be spending the day with, Kazuryu-sama?
Piko whispered to her childhood friend.
Uzumaki,
he angrily told her. He had nothing against the prankster, but he didn't have any reason to want to be around the prankster. He had nothing against his teacher for believing that this would cause friendship between others. This was just something he wouldn't do willingly.
Who do you have, Piko? Owari-san.
The young Yakuza grumbled to himself. As the future leader of the Kazuryu clan, he didn't have much free time. Most of his free time was used on how to lead his clan, not how to be a kid his age, which meant that he wasn't used to having people outside of his clan being around him. Piko closed her eyes, surprised that their chosen partners for the day were random. What could the prankster and Yakuza get out of it if they hung out with one another? And what could the swordsman and gymnast get out of it too?
Hello, Kazuryu-san.
Fuyuhiko looked up and saw that the spiky blonde was now standing in front of him. Akane was following behind him. He returned the greeting knowing that there was no way out of this.
Owari! Uzumaki! Piko! We're going to my home to watch films.
Fuyuhiko told him, not giving them much of a choice. Piko didn't say anything knowing there was no point to doing so, while the other two had blank expression surprised that they were going to his house. While the plan might have been to watch films, the universe didn't seem to agree with that plan. How did the universe screw up on such an easy day? Well,
hey! You blind bastard! You were the one who took all our money!
3 members of the Kazuryu clan yelled at the blonde prankster. Naruto raised an eyebrow, surprised that these 2 were part of the Yakuza. And the 3 students that were also with Naruto had confused expression.
Hey! Put the guns away!
Fuyuhiko shouted at his underlings. He didn't want to spend the day cleaning up a dead body.
Boss! You don't know what he did to us.
Underling 1 shouted at the short Yakuza leader. The other 2 nodded their heads, not at all happy that the robber was right in front of them.
They're my guest!
Fuyuhiko was not in the mood to deal with this problem. Looking at the corner of his eye, he saw that Naruto was letting out a large yawn. Now seeing the blonde acting as if nothing was wrong only pissed him off. Didn't he see that he was in danger?
Uzumaki, what did you do to my man?
If he didn't seem to act interest, he might as well find out what had happened. Maybe let his man rough up the prankster a bit, just to remind him not to mess with the Kazuryu clan.
These are your man?
His answer was a low growl.
Oh, if I had known, maybe I wouldn't have taken their clothes with their money. Hey, don't give me that angry look. Well, a few weeks back I was minding my own business.
Flashback.
Alright man, today we challenge that bitch who cheats in all of her gambling matches.
Underling 1 told the 2, as they were getting ready to leave a local ramen stand. The other 2 nodded their heads, ready to take out the gothic Lolita, who always seemed to take all their money. Getting ready to finish their meal, they all stood up and slammed their cash onto the stand. That was their fast mistake. As soon as they slammed the money wad onto the stand, it caused the pile of ramen bowls to lose their balance. As they shocked, they slowly fell down onto the person sitting by the pile to be hit by the bowls. As the bowls came crashing down, one fell down and slammed into the bowl that the person was eating from, causing the bowl to go flying up and hit the ground. Being hit by the bowls didn't bother the person. What did was the fact that his ramen was lost to him. And by how anyone could figure out that it was Naruto who lost a bowl of ramen. And anyone that knew him knew that making him lose his ramen was one of the worst things you could do to him.
Hey, you owe me a bowl of ramen.
Naruto got into the face of the underlings, a clear pissed expression on his face.
Who cares, kid? Go cry to someone who cares.
They tried to shoo him away. Second mistake on their part.
You owe me ramen, and you're going to give me ramen.
Naruto growled at the three. The three stood their ground as they eyed the blonde. But one of them believed they had found a perfect solution.
Hey kid, if you can beat me in a game of dice, I will give you another bowl of ramen and pay for everything you already ate. But if I win, you give me all the cash in your pocket.
He grinned at the blonde, believing that he found a way to cheat him from his money. Naruto, being the type to never back down, agreed to the bet. This was their third mistake. 15 minutes later. That's all it took for Naruto to clear out the three from everything they had on them. 3 wallets were in the hand of the blonde, along with their clothes. Why did he have their clothes? Well, after losing their money, they bet their clothes hoping to win back their money. That didn't end well for them, as they didn't know that Naruto had the devil luck on his side.
Later, boys.
And with that, Naruto walked away with his winnings. End of flashback.
That's all I did.
Naruto finished his story, as everyone looked at him with disbelief at his story.
And you'll pay.
The three went charging at the blonde. As they took a step forward, the 3 underlings fell straight to the ground, as their pants fell to the ground along with themselves. Silence filled the room. Everyone wasn't sure how they lost their belts in the first place. Looking up, they saw that Naruto had their belts in his hand. As soon as they realized that Naruto had stolen their belts, everyone started to laugh. Loud laughter soon filled the entire room.
Why you?
They reached for their pants only to fall over.
You 3. Leave now.
But Yuhiko had enough. He didn't know what was worst. That a prankster beat 3 Yakuza members, or knowing that these were his men. Either way, he hoped no one would ever find out what happened today. His 3 underlings wanted to say something, but they saw that Pico had her eyes narrowed at them. They knew that it meant that there was no room to argue with. As soon as the 3 were gone from my sight, a loud rumble went through the room. Everyone looked around wondering where that noise came from.
Sorry.
Everyone turned their attention to Akane.
That story about ramen got me hungry.
But Yuhiko and Pico found out the hard way about something their classmates. Never invite them over for dinner. No matter what. Why, you may ask? Simple. Akane and Naruto were both had endless pit for their stomach. Combined together, they already had 52 plates of ramen stacked. And by the looks of it, they were not going to stop unless they stopped serving the 2. But Yuhiko had to give the order to the chief to stop cooking just to stop these 2.
That hit the spot.
Akane exclaimed loudly as she finished her last bowl and wiped her chin. With Naruto doing the same as her. All that ramen truly hit the spot for the 2. Akane stood up and gave a small stretch as she felt that she now needed to work of the meal. Looking around, she saw that the backyard was large enough for her to move around and practice her moves.
Hey Pico!
The silver-haired swordsman looked up.
Do you feel like sparring?
Akane didn't wait for Pico to answer her. Being the type that enjoyed fighting, she charged at Pico and started to throw punches left and right at the silver-haired lady. Pico dodged all the attacks from Akane and brought out her shunai to start her offense off towards the gymnast. But Yuhiko could only stare at the scene in shock. He couldn't believe that someone would start a fight in the home Yakuza home. He knew that he needed someone to help him stop their fighting before it got out of hand. Turning aside to see if the blonde would help him, he quickly found out that the blonde was no longer in the same room as the 3. No, he simply vanished from sight. That left him to wonder where did the blue-eyed classmate had gone to. With Naruto. The reason he had left the 3 was a very simple one. He had to use the toilet. Before Akane started her little sparring match against Pico, Naruto had walked away from them. That was a bad idea for the blonde. He didn't know the layout for the house, and that meant that he was blindly looking for the restroom. Nothing yet.
Who are you? Are you a friend of my brother?
A female voice said behind the blonde. Turning around, he saw a young lady standing behind him. Natsumi Kazuri was the young lady behind the prankster. She has long blonde hair, grayish olive eyes, and similarly to her brother, and just like her brother seemed to have a permanent blush marks on both cheeks. She wore the Hope's Peak Academy uniform, and also seems to be fairly taller than her brother. With Yuhiko, the young Yakuza leader was in a slight panic. His partner for the day had suddenly vanished from sight after lunch. And to make matters worse, he was lost in a Yakuza home. Why was that a bad thing? Simply put, he might get shot. It has nothing to do with Naruto. It was the fact that he was a stranger in the Yakuza home. If Pico or him were not escorting Akane or Naruto, then issues will come to be. He would have asked Pico and Akane to help him in his search, but they were currently busy. More like Akane was to focus on her sparring match against Pico, that she wasn't allowing his bodyguard to help find the spiky blonde.
Now where could that baka have gone to?
For Yuhiko thought to himself, looking around the empty hallways of his home.
Oh, then There was the one time where Piko was going through her first womanly changes.
The Yakuza leader heard the voice of his little sister. And by the sounds of it, she was having fun. Wait a minute. When Piko was going through her first alarms ringing throughout his head, he quickly rushed to her room, hoping to stop her from finishing the story. He didn't need people to know what happened that day.
She started to chase Oni-chan around the entire house, while screaming at the top of her lungs. No!
Slamming the door open, he quickly covered her mouth. He normally didn't have to worry about his personal life, and his sister wasn't the type to just willingly give up a story. That left him to wonder how this person was able to convince his sister to spill the beans. Looking around to see who he had stopped from hearing the story. It was Naruto.
You don't need to hear that!
Shouting at the fellow blonde, not wanting his embarrassing moment to be revealed.
I don't. You don't.
Naruto saw that Fuyuhiko was doing everything possible to keep his hands covering his sister's mouth. Giving a shrug, Naruto stood up and walked out of the room. Letting out a sigh as he watched the blonde leave, he turned his full attention to his sister. Just as he was about to let his sister have it, he didn't see the surprise attack coming. Without warning, he was flipped on his back and his mouth was quickly covered. Sitting on the Yakuza back was the blonde prankster. Glaring at his attacker, he wanted to give him a piece of his mind. Natsumi would normally defend her brother, but at the moment, she wanted to finish her story.
While screaming at the top of her lungs, she said, "You promised I could have the last animal cracker. It was one of the funniest things I ever saw."
Natsumi laughed uncontrollably, remembering how her father needed to have an awkward talk with Piko about monthly problems. Their father understood that when the time of the month showed up, sometimes emotions can go overboard. No reason to punish Piko. Struggling ever harder, Fuyuhiko tried his best to get Naruto off his back, but with no luck. Grinning, Naruto told Natsumi to bring out a camera. Bringing Natsumi in, both gave a peace sign to the camera as Fuyuhiko struggled under them. That would be the photo Naruto would use to turn in with his report on his day with Fuyuhiko. How he got the gossip on Fuyuhiko from his little sister. Next day, with Mahiro Koizumi, knock, knock, looking up from his breakfast, Naruto wondered who could possibly be at his home so early in the morning. Not only that, who knew where he lived? Well, Ruruka, Sanosuke, and Seiko knew where he lived. But they were not only in class, but were the types to call ahead of time before coming over. Another knock onto his door telling him the person hadn't left yet. The only good thing was that he was already dressed in his uniform. Letting out a sigh, he went to answer the door. Click! A bright flash hit Naruto as soon as he opened the door. Opening his eyes after their flash attack, he came to the side of Mahiro, with a camera hanging off her neck, standing at door. A small grin on her face, as she felt some satisfaction at catching the blonde off guard. Giving her a light glare, Naruto was left to wonder why she was here.
Hey!
Mahiro happily greeted him, not caring that she was getting the stink-eye from him.
Are you ready for our day together?
That explained why the redhead was here. But that only brought out another question.
How did you know where I lived?
Valid question. Even after a month of class has passed by, Naruto had yet to actually befriend anyone in the class. He was the enigma in the class. And in a class filled with people odd talents from being a Yakuza to being a princess, it just seemed odd that the one who should be outgoing had yet to make friends with anyone. The unspoken question in class for now, why was Naruto refusing to befriend anyone?
Yukizumi-sama sent me your address. I must say you have quite a large home.
He didn't hear her speak. Naruto was surprised that their teacher contacted a student about another student's personal information. He felt that it was an evasion of his privacy, but he knew she only did that because the blonde had forgotten to grab everyone he meant to bond with contact information. A slight oversight on his part. Sadly, he also knew that Chisa Yukizumi was the type to make sure that people could find him to bond with him. He should have talked to the people onto her to meet with him, instead of allowing Chisa to do it for him. Lost in thought, the blonde didn't notice Mahiro standing on her toes looking over his shoulder.
How could you let your house get this messy?
Naruto was snapped out of his thoughts, as he was pushed out of the way. Slightly confused, he watched as Mahiro glared at the pile of trash that was all around his house.
Just because as a boy you can live in your pile of trash doesn't mean you should allow it to cover your entire living room.
And don't think you could push all this work to someone else. For some odd reason, Naruto felt that he was being yelled out by his mother. That brought out an odd emotion for the blonde. A sense of comfort? Happiness? But no anger. He wasn't sure how to describe the emotion he was feeling. It felt foreign for the blonde, as he felt that her actions were the ones a mother would take. It also didn't help that Mahiro was a redhead like his own mother, and apparently with the same temper. Nice and soothing one moment, next fiery explosion of passion. Lost in thought, he failed to notice Mahiro marching towards him. Without saying a word, she shoved a white apron into his arms. Bringing the apron to his face, as it unfolded, he was left confused on to what should he do with the apron.
Don't get the wrong idea. I can't stand the sorry state that your home is currently in. We're going to clean your house before we do anything.
Mahira tapped her foot, waiting for the blonde to put the apron on. He was lost on what he was meant to do. Glaring at the blonde for a moment, she snatched the apron from his hands and started to put the apron on Naruto. Looking down, he realized that he was being forced to wear the apron. And not liking that someone was dressing him, he finished the rest of the process of putting on the apron. Click. As he finished securing the apron into place, he saw flashes of light going on behind him. Turning around, he was greeted with another flash of light. Standing in front of him was Mahiro, a camera in hand, as she took photos of the blonde dressed in an apron. Before he could say anything, the redhead stopped taking photos and put on an apron for herself. She walked away from the blonde before he could stop her, leaving Naruto to wonder why Mahiro wanted him to clean his home. 2 hours quickly went by as the two cleaned the prankster home. And besides Naruto having to force Mahiro to stay away from his room, they cleaned every part of his home. Again, this was something that Naruto would have done on a day off, not on a school day. With them finished with the simple chores, the blonde now had time to finally speak with the redhead. Both had already placed their aprons in the wash.
Why did you want me to clean my home?
Both of them were sitting outside looking at the blonde backyard. Seemed like the perfect time for him to ask the question. Naruto, being a person who lived on his own for his entire life, never had someone to force him do his chores. In fact, he learned how to do housework on his own. That also meant he made his own schedule on when to do those said chores. Was he ever yelled at for his messy home? Yes. But not once did they ever do anything about it. They would yell, and then he would clean when he had the time.
If I hadn't, you would have simply pushed the housework onto someone else.
Mahiro brought out her camera as she took a quick photo of the garden in his backyard.
I live alone.
Mahiro looked at the blonde in shock. She thought that Naruto would have pushed the chores onto his mother. But now she knew that wasn't the case.
But you don't live in the dorms? Hee. Well, I am a year older than you.
Mahiro nodded her head, wondering what that bit of information was important for.
I started a year late. In that year, I wasn't attending school. I was kind of homeless. I also have no living relatives. A friend of mine had taken me in during that time.
While I was staying with my friend, I was able to make a small business, and with that I gained enough money to afford a house for myself. Some of the story was a lie. But being a ninja meant he had to learn how to make up a lie on the spot. He did add same truth to his story to ensure his emotions were felt in the story. He didn't want to tell her that the former headmaster was the one who had took him in, or the fact that the former headmaster had helped him gain a replacement for his missing right hand. He was grateful for what the elderly man had done for him, but Naruto didn't want to put the old man out of his way. The blonde was able to produce the Ika Ika series. It was the only way he was able to gain enough money to start living on his own. But he wasn't going to tell anyone he written a smut series. That was going to be his own personal secret. Mahiro, on the other hand, was shocked. She couldn't believe that one of her classmates was at one point homeless. From rags to riches. The photographer had only wanted to make sure that the blonde was doing an equal amount of house chores.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Mahiro felt bad that she forced the blonde to talk about his past.
I didn't want you to force the chores onto your mother, like my father does to me.
She mumbled the last part to herself, not wanting the blonde to pity her, but he was able to hear her.
I thought with your title being the ultimate prankster you were just irresponsible. That you simply thought life was one big party, and that you didn't care what your actions do to others. Me being called the ultimate prankster is nothing more than a title. It doesn't define me as a person. You think that way too?
Mahiro suddenly appeared in his face, her eyes sparking at his words.
My title as the ultimate photographer feels like a large letdown compared to others.
For the rest of the day, the two stayed at Naruto home, talking about everything that came to mind. From the title not defining a person worth, to Mahiro speaking about her mother, and how she was the inspiration for the redhead to go into photography, and how people felt that she should simply take photos of objects. When the day finally came to an end, Mahiro took a photo. She took a photo of the two smiling at the camera. Day 3 with Gunham Tanaka. At the moment, Naruto felt like banging his head against the wall. Why would he want to do that, someone might ask? Simple. Hanging out with Gunham proved to be a little bit too much. Don't get the former ninja wrong, he had nothing against the ultimate breeder. It was Gunham could be overdramatic. Not in the way that Naruto had to do something to cause it, but that everything he did was over the top. But Naruto was trying to keep himself calm. Calm was good. Calm would stop him from pranking Gunham. Calm will.
Tanaka! Take your hamster back.
On top of his head, one of Gunham's special hamster was using his hair as a resting place. Gently picking up the hamster from his head, he presented it towards its owner.
Fool! Supernova Silver Fox Sandy is the leader of my 4 Dark Devas of Destruction. Consider it a privilege that he enjoys your presence.
Gunham picked up his hamster and placed him back in his scarf. Naruto only got slightly angrier. Who the heck gives average-looking hamsters such weird titles? This was the 4th time that Sandy had climbed onto his head. Don't get the blonde wrong, he had nothing against the hamsters. He just couldn't figure out as to why that one hamster kept wanting to be near him. Letting out a sigh, Naruto went back to helping Gunham. Naruto and Gunham were currently take care of Gunham parents' animal pet shop/pet clinic. This was the reason as to why Gunham had become a breeder. Tanaka growing up around animals and seeing how people smiled at the newly born animals, or when they were healthy, made Gunham want to chase a future that took care of all animals. Hence his talent at becoming the ultimate breeder. Naruto couldn't deny that Gunham had talent on taking care of animals. He knew when to feed them, and how to feed. He knew how much exercise each animal should get. There was nothing that Gunham did that wasn't for the animal's sake. And he also saw why Gunham's arms were always covered in bandages. Some of the animals were teething, and used Gunham's arm as their biting post. Even though he could see the pain in Gunham's face, not once did Gunham yell at the animals for biting him. He would just put on new bandages and go on his way. Naruto, looking around, decided to check up on some of the animals to see if they had enough water. While checking up on one of the animals, he heard the door chime go off. Time for him to greet the person.
Welcome to Tanaka Animal Farm. How may I help you?
Naruto asked the people with a large smile on his face and closed eyes. This was the way that Gunham told him to greet everyone that came into the store.
Uzumaki-san, I didn't know you work here.
He knew that voice. Opening his eyes, he came face to face with Pico. And more surprisingly, that besides her, Nekomaru was with her. He knew that Yukizoma had paired off everyone with odd people, and today, he was seeing one of them. Then again, he knew that he shouldn't be talking bad about it. Him and Gunham were an odd one also.
Oh, Pico-chan and Nekomaru. What are you two doing with each other? We had to get away from some of the weird people while we were in the middle of training.
Nekomaru told the blonde. For the giant tower of muscle, he was not happy that his client training was put on hold due to strangers refusing to leave them alone. Couldn't they see that they were involved in serious combat training? For some odd reason, Naruto, hearing about how passionate he was about Pico training, he was hit with a sense of nostalgia. He was reminded of Lee and Guy. The only thing missing was Nekomaru wearing a green jumpsuit and big bushy eyebrows. A chill went down on the spine of the blonde. His mind started to envision all three together. All three in their bright green jumpsuit, all having the same eyebrows. Naruto placed his hand over his mouth. He almost vomited thinking about the mental image. Snapping himself out of his own thoughts, he saw that Nekomaru was heading to the back. That left him alone with the silver-haired swordsman.
This is awkward,
the blonde thought to himself, as he had nothing in common with the silent lady. Looking at Pico, he noticed that her vision wasn't focused on him, but the dog behind him.
Do you want to pet the puppy?
Naruto pointed to the 3-month-old puppy waggling its tail. He noticed that she seemed to be fighting with herself, as her hand kept going up and down.
No.
The blonde saw the sad expression in her eyes. Knowing that she probably was trying to remain calm and collected, Naruto decided to take the matter into his own hands. Walking to the puppy, he gently picked up the young pup and held it out in front of him.
Just give him a pet.
Once again, Pico's hand was struggling to stop herself from petting the puppy and not to. Her hand was an inch away. And the dog even started to sniff her hand. Lick. The young puppy did the one action Pico believed no animal would ever do with her around. It started to lick Pico's hand. The young puppy didn't stop, it just kept licking her hand. She didn't even notice that Naruto had placed the puppy in her hands as she held the puppy close to her. It even started to lick her cheek. Naruto laughed a bit to himself. By the look on Pico's face, this was the first time she ever held an animal. Unknown to the blonde, that was the case. Pico has always had a secret fondness for animals. Ever since she was a little girl, she always adored animals. But they didn't share that love about the ultimate swordsman. Whenever she saw an animal, no matter what kind, they would run away from her. She believed that it had to do to her scary gaze and frightening aura. Two things that were great to have for being a bodyguard to the future leader of a Yakuza gang leader. Not so much when it came to petting animals.
Just don't dash.
Naruto felt something brushing against his cheek before feeling something climbing onto the back of his head. Letting out a sigh, the blonde picked up the animal that was resting on his head. And just like before Sandy, the hamster was the animal resting on his head. Giving the hamster a light glare, Naruto's shoulders slumped as he knew that there was no reason to keep fighting against the hamster.
Can you hold this little guy as I put this little pup back into his playpen?
Pico didn't want the young dog to leave her side yet, but knew that Naruto was only doing his job. She also wanted to protest that the hamster might leave its place near her. But once again, she was amazed that the hamster didn't leave when placed her hands. Instead, it nuzzled next to her cheek, as the prankster placed the dog in its pen. As soon as the young pup was placed back in its playpen, Gunham and Nekomaru re-emerged from the back. Before anyone could speak, the door was quickly slammed open. All four became alarmed at the sound intrusion.
Hey! This is the location for the cosplay shot!
A random stranger shouted. And with that announcement, numerous people suddenly rushed to the store. Looking around, people couldn't tell that the four students were dressed normally. From Pico dark sailor uniform, with her shurnai. Nekomaru covered in chains, along with the fact that his body seemed to emit electricity. Gunham two colored eyes, with a scare running down his right. And Naruto looking like a common bancho, only due to the fact that he had spiky blonde hair and blue eyes. That was how their day came to an end. Day 4 with Ibuki Mayota, currently our favorite blonde, was meditating in his backyard. He was currently trying to do something he hasn't do in a long time since arriving in the new world. Entering Sage Mode. Ever since he arrived, he hadn't found a reason to enter Sage Mode. Even now, he had no true reason to enter Sage Mode, but for the blonde, he felt that he too see if he still had the ability to do so. He still had the ability to use chakra, but there was two important things that he felt that he was missing. His Sage Mode. And his connection with Kurama. In the last battle against Kagaya, many events had taken place. From the mother of all chakra being revived to Yon Kurama being extracted from him, to the hastily transfer of the In Kurama being placed inside him. The clash with Sasuke didn't help. Even though he won, Kurama told him he was very exhausted and would fall asleep for a period of time. Before the victory could be celebrated, the Shinigami had appeared. The very god that had sent Naruto to this world. The only bright side was the fact that both sides of Kurama were placed inside Naruto before he had been sent here. But Kurama had yet to utter one word to him since arriving. Breathe in. Breathe out. Those were the only thoughts going through the blonde mind. Feeling the flow of natural energy, he was amazed that the very natural energy was torn between two. A large portion of it was seen to be filled with positive energy. Almost as if it was natural energy created from hope, but the negative energy he was feeling was very dark, sinister. It seemed like it was filled with nothing but despair. It was just odd for the blonde to be able to identify the main two emotions that was flowing in the world.
Yahoo!
A loud voice yelled in excitement, as a body came crashing down onto the meditating ninja, stopping him from his task. Feeling a pair of slender arms wrap around the blonde neck, he opened his eyes to come to the sight of large pink eyes stare at him for a moment before they closed. A large grin appeared on his attacker. Ibuki Mayota was the attacker. And for the blonde, he didn't have to ask how she found out where he lived. He already knew that Chisa Yukizoma was probably the one who gave her his address.
Ibuki is super excited to hang out with you. Are you as excited as Ibuki is?
Naruto had to blink for a second. He was surprised with her energetic personality.
Can you come back later?
Brushing off her question, the former ninja was not ready to hang out with one of his classmates yet. Also didn't help that it was still early in the morning.
What? You don't want to hang out with Ibuki today? Ibuki is...
Without finishing her sentence, she started to froth from the mouth, her eyes going into the back of her, only showing him the whites of her eyes. Falling into the grass, she laid there motionless. The only sound being made was the gurgling from Ibuki. What do I do? Naruto thought to himself, wondering if she was attacked by a rabid animal before arriving at his home.
Ibuki will only recover if you do what she has plans for the day.
Looking down, he saw that Ibuki was still laying down on the ground, but had her eyes returned to normal, as they were half-lit now. Not sure if his voice would work after seeing the odd behavior of Ibuki, he could only nod at his head.
Yahoo!
Ibuki jumped to her feet and quickly glomped the blonde. Before the blonde could place the energetic lady down, she quickly got onto the back of the blonde.
Onward!
Ibuki pointed towards the direction of the city. He was going to put her down so she could walk there on her own. She didn't seem to share his thoughts as she wrapped her hands and legs around the blonde and declared him to be Ibuki's best piggyback driver.
Oh! A crepe stand? Ibuki wants you to go there.
The young lady eagerly pointed at the nearby stand. She was practically bouncing on the back of the prankster, a look of delight on her face, as she practically could taste the delicious treat. Naruto let out a low sigh, already knowing that there was no way he was going to get out of this. After a brief walk, the two reached the stand. Ibuki jumped off the back of the blonde and rushed the stand.
Ibuki wants one strawberry crepe.
The young musician turned her attention to her piggyback driver.
What would you like, Naruto-chan?
What she didn't know was the prankster didn't have much of a sweet tooth. He would eat sweets once in a blue moon, but never truly enjoyed sweets.
I'm fine, Ibuki-kun. I don't have much of a sweet tooth.
He hoped that her feelings wouldn't be hurt.
But Ibuki is offering. But Ibuki is offering.
Her eyes grew as into wide saucers, wondering how he could deny the delicious taste of crepes. Plus, it was free for him. Giving him a pout, hoping her pouting face would change his mind, but it didn't. Sticking her tongue out at him, she returned her attention back to the stand owner.
Can you please make it 2 strawberry crepes?
The owner nodded his head. After waiting a few minutes, the two were off. Ibuki, having food in her hand, decided it was best not to jump onto the back of the blonde, fearing that she might get his clothes dirty with food crumbs. But she was glaring at the back of the blonde's skull. She was not happy that he refused her offer to the crepes.
These crepes are awesome.
She angrily took a bite off her crepe. As she'd take a bite from the extra crepe she ordered. The reason she still bought one was she had hope after a minute of her pouting face and telling him how great the crepes were he would change her mind. So far, the plan has not worked. Naruto, letting out a small chuckle, not at all surprised that she was not only angry, but giving him the pouting expression. Maybe he should have just taken the crepe, but again, he didn't really have a craving towards the food.
Ibuki, you see there, Dash.
Without any warning, she shoved the extra crepe into his mouth and forced him to take a bite out of it. And quickly placed a hand over his mouth, she made him swallow the treat.
Yay! Ibuki wins!
Jumping up and down, she celebrated her mini victory over the prankster. She finally made him eat the crepe. Not that it took long for her to throw her second plan into action, but better sooner than later.
Can I have the crepe?
Since he already took a bite out of the treat, he felt that he should just finish the dessert. Nope, sticking her tongue out, she playfully ran away from the prankster.
It's Ibuki now.
She happily yelled at the blonde, enjoying her little ploy to get the blonde to eat the crepe. Naruto gave chase, feeling that this tricolor-haired lady was just slightly too hyper. She didn't get far away from the blonde, as he quickly caught up to her and scooped her up in his arms.
Yay! You caught Ibuki! Here's your prize, Naruto-chan.
She placed the crepe in front of his mouth, as he quickly took a bite out of it. Grinning to herself, she was pleased that she was able to make the blonde break away from his quiet self. That was her true plan. She wanted to see if the blonde was a dull person or not. And so far he has yet to make her day dull.
Do you want me to let you down?
After a full minute of being fed his crepe, he was still carrying the young musician in his arms. She wasn't heavy, in fact, she was very light. But the problem is that everyone in the street was staring at the two. They had a good reason for their staring. Besides being fed a crepe in a public street, he was holding her bride style. Nope, putting her arms around his neck, she nuzzled closer to his chest.
Ibuki is too comfortable. Take Ibuki to the nearest karaoke bar.
She happily told the blonde, not caring for all the looks that were being sent their way. Naruto let out a light mumble under his breath which sounded like crazy woman, but nonetheless still carried her to her desired destination. Within minutes, the two found a karaoke bar. As soon as the two were in front of the door, Ibuki jumped out his hands and ran inside the building. Naruto was quickly following behind her. While not a person that really sang in front of people, he knew that there was no way for him to get out of this with this girl. Within moments, the blonde found the young musician already claiming a private room for the two. Walking inside, he found the young lady looking through a menu getting real food for the two to eat for lunch. Naruto did have an appetite by now, as carrying Ibuki did drain him a bit. Walking up to her, he went to try and snatch the menu from her, but once again, she kept the menu away from him.
Ibuki already ordered for you.
She happily cheered, as she kept the menu behind her back. She felt that she had ordered the right food for the blonde, and didn't the blonde to order anything else until the food arrived. Gaining a large tick mark, the blonde wanted to yell at her, but kept himself calm knowing that she was doing what she felt was right.
While we wait, Ibuki will show you why she is ultimate musician.
She boasted about herself, as she skipped to the karaoke machine to pick out a song for herself to sing. Naruto scratched the top of his head, not sure if he really wanted to hear her sing. Nothing against her, but he really wasn't in the mood to hear a pop song nor a preppy song.
Hope you're ready.
Snapping out of his thoughts, he watches Ibuki grab the microphone and ready herself. Song starts. Blah blah, we are watching What If Naruto Was Too Into Sonia, Chisa and Junko in Danganronpa. And we are loving it. With that she ended her song, leaving the blonde with wide eyes. That was not a pop song nor a preppy song. Seems odd to hear a metal song coming from any girl. Especially one that seems like the type to enjoy pop songs.
Ibuki thinks she nailed it.
Turning to the blonde, she lowered the microphone.
What do you think of Ibuki? You were good.
Naruto didn't know what to say. Did he really think that she lived up to her title as the ultimate musician? Yes. But did he know how to really compliment her? No. He was happy that she blew away all his assumptions. He wouldn't deny that. Before he could think of anything else, Ibuki happily hugged the blonde. She always felt joyful when someone loved her musical talents. A minute later there was a knocking on the door. The two young adults walked to the door to see the food that was ordered before was finally finished and arriving. The waiter was pushing a large cart that held 12 bowls of miso ramen for the two. Both of their eyes were sparkling with joy at their food.
Enjoy?
The waiter told the two as he left the room. They didn't need to be told twice as they quickly ate their food, not stopping for a second. 30 minutes flew by for the two as the bowls were piled up and the two were feeling stuffed. While the food was no ichiraku, it was still good enough. Now he needed some answers from the young lady that was letting out a loud brump.
How did you know I love ramen? That's an easy question. Ibuki knows that ramen is the food of the gods.
Naruto's eyes sparked. That was the exact answer he would have given anyone. Placing her hands on her hips, she took a deep breath.
Ramen is so easy to cook. Ramen goes with anything you're doing.
While you are writing new lyrics to a song with a pen in hand, you can be eating ramen at the same time. Or as you wait for the food to be cooking, when the strong aroma of ramen hits you, a bright idea enters the mind. Ramen will always solve all problems. Naruto nodded his head, agreeing with her.
Ramen is there when you need a hot meal. When you plan a revenge on a person who deserved it, and as you think of the prank you're going to pull on that person. Ramen is there when you two bond with someone. Ibuki agrees.
That entire day the two spent it in the karaoke bar, singing songs and enjoying their day with one another. Day 5 with Sonia. Never mind.
Oh my!
A quiet voice said, waking the blonde from his slumber. Slowly opening his eyes, he opened them to the sight of clear crystal blue eyes staring at the blonde. As a ninja, his body was ready to pin the intruder down, but he didn't sense any malicious intent coming from his intruder. His mind still a little hazy, he felt that he'd seen those eyes before. Eyes suddenly widened. Now he knew where he'd seen those eyes before. Jumping out of bed, he came to the sight of Sonia Nevermind standing at his bedside.
Oh my!
She cupped both of her hands over her mouth. Eyes widened at the action of the blonde prankster. A large blush appeared on her cheeks. Standing in front of the princess was a half-naked blonde. She knew that she came over to his house very early in the morning, but she couldn't contain her eagerness on visiting the prankster. No one answered the door when she knocked on it, but she did find out the door was unlocked. Without thinking of her actions, she went inside to look for the blonde. She didn't think she would be greeted with the sight of the blonde standing in front of her dressed only in his boxers.
What are you doing in my house?
Naruto's mind had yet to finally register his current attire. Then again, he never cared about being half-dressed in front of anybody. He never felt any shame in his body. Why should he start now?
I'm sorry.
Bowing to the blonde, knowing that she had no right to enter his home, she felt this was the right course of action.
But I was waiting all week to hang out with you, Uzumaki-san. Just call me Naruto.
Not being the type to enjoy honorific suffixes for himself, he just preferred if everyone called him by his name.
Naruto.
Sonia nervously pointed at the blonde. Taking a second to register her actions, he finally looked down and noticed that his attire. He didn't need to tell her as he pointed at the door. Sonia didn't need to be told twice as she ran out the door and waited for him in the living room. It didn't take long for the blonde to get dressed. Quickly entering the living room, he saw that Sonia was patiently sitting on the couch, hands planted in her lap.
How did you get in my house? Your door was unlocked.
Naruto made a mental note that he needed to start checking his door before going to sleep. That was a mistake on his part. No reason for him to get angry at the princess.
I am sorry that I entered your home without your permission. You have nothing to apologize for. I am the one who left the front door open. Thank you for accepting my apology, Naruto.
The prankster gave her a light nod of the head.
I must say I am surprised that your home is quite large. By the looks of your home, you could easily have 5 or 6 people live with you. But I am more surprised that it's not a mess.
Sonia pointed out. She did like how his home looked, and if she would move into a house like this. But for now, she was happy to be living at the female dorms.
I am more surprised that it doesn't look like a delinquent home. There's no alcohol around your home, no weapons around your home, or even a lady that has been satisfied through intercourse.
Sonia offhanding commented on. Naruto's jaw hit the ground. That was something he didn't expect it coming from her mouth.
What kind of person do you think I am?
The sun-kissed blonde yelled at the princess, feeling that she indirectly insulted his male pride.
Well, you look like a common Japanese delinquent, at least from the material I have read from.
She mumbled the last part to herself, not sure how to tell the blonde without him getting even angrier at her.
Just because my title is the ultimate prankster doesn't mean that I am a delinquent.
Naruto reprimanded the young lady. She nodded her head, understanding her mistake. She wasn't sure if there was a correct way on apologizing to the blonde. Looking at the princess, he saw that she did seem sorry about her accusation.
Anyway, Sonia, you came into my house too early. I still need to take a shower. I can wait here while you shower.
Sonia didn't seem any trouble behind her sentence, but the blonde did. If she thought he was a common thug, then she would snoop around his house looking for any proof.
How about we go to the public hot springs?
Naruto suggested, not seeing any issue with his suggestion. Sonia suddenly appeared in front of the blonde, grabbing both his hands, eyes sparking.
Are we really going to a true Japanese hot springs bathhouse?
Naruto was taken back at her eagerness at a simple trip to the hot springs. Not sure if his voice would work due to the young lady, he nodded his head.
I have always wanted to go to one. Thank you. Thank you.
Sonia grabbed his hands and fanatically shaking his hands.
Maybe I will even see you in nothing but a bath towel. Like the scene from Harenchi Gakyu in classic erotic manga.
She thought to herself. She wasn't perverted, but she wanted to see if all her material on Japan would happen to her while she was staying in Japan. 2 hours quickly passed, as the two young adults were now leaving the bathhouse. Naruto needed the shower to calm himself from the odd princess, while for the princess that was causing him some of the stress was on cloud 9. Her first trip to the bathhouse, and she enjoyed everything inside the hot springs. There was a few things that she wished had happened, but again not everything was going to happen. If only I was with another girl, maybe some skinship would have happened. Sonia thought to herself as she walked side by side with the prankster. Turning her attention to the blonde, something else occurred to her. I didn't get to see Naruto only in his bath towel. Again, she wasn't a pervert, nor did she have any feelings for the blonde. She just thought like in any anime she had seen, she would have saw the blonde in a towel due to some odd circumstance.
Hey, there's a ramen stand up ahead. Do you want some ramen to eat?
Snapping out of her thoughts, she saw that Naruto was pointing further ahead. Her eyes sparked once again.
Another chance to experience the Japanese culture. Let's go!
Grabbing Naruto's hand, she dragged the blonde towards the stand ready to try out ramen. This was going to be another first for her today. Naruto already knew what he was going to order, but taking a second to glance at the princess sitting next to him, he saw that she seemed confused.
Naruto, what kind of ramen would you recommend?
She wanted her first tasting of ramen to be one to remember. But seeing that there was many different flavors, she wasn't sure which one she should try.
It all depends on what kind of ramen you like.
Naruto didn't realize that she never ate any ramen. He assumed that she at least had ramen before.
But they all look so good. I don't want my first time tasting ramen to be with one with disastrous results.
Naruto's eyes widened. Did his ears play a trick to himself? He didn't hear her say that she never ate ramen before.
Chief, one miso ramen soup for the lady.
He ordered for the princess, feeling that it was his duty to ensure that Sonia finally ate ramen. Sonia seemed surprised that he ordered for her, but felt that he had picked the right one for her to try. After giving the chief Sonia's order, he gave the chief his order. While a lover of ramen, he knew that the most important duty at the moment was getting Sonia to eat ramen for the first time. Minutes later, the first bowl appeared in front of Sonia. Her eyes brightly sparked at the bowl in front of her. One of the most common plates that the Japanese created, and to the princess, she saw it as a fine delicacy.
Itadakimasu,
she said, following the rules of Japan, as she grabbed her chopsticks and began to consume her meal. As soon as the noodles entered her mouth, she felt that her taste buds went to heaven. The taste was simply divine. She couldn't believe that none of her private chiefs were unable to replicate the simple dish.
Simply delicious.
And with that she happily consumed her meal, with her blonde companion following behind her. Even though he had to wait a little bit longer than Sonia to get his bowl, but it was fine this time. It was a small price to pay to get another person to become a lover for ramen. But it was worth the price. Just like that, an hour had passed for the two. Naruto had a large stack of ramen bowls piled next to him, with Sonia only being able to finish 3 bowls. While she couldn't keep up with the blonde appetite, she was still able to match his enthusiasm for the love of ramen. Naruto quickly paid the bill, and with that the two were walking around town.
Naruto,
the whiskered teen stopped in his tracks and looked at the princess.
Can we go to the park? I wish to rest on the park hills.
Naruto nodded his head, but was wondering why she wanted to head towards the hills. But he had no reason to complain. He did feel that he had dragged her everywhere so far. After a short trip, the two were both resting on the park hill. Both resting under a large shady tree, enjoying the gentle breeze. Resting his back on the tree, he did enjoy her suggestion at resting at the park. He felt a shift as he peeked to his side, and saw that Sonia was sitting next to him.
May I confess something to you?
Naruto could hear that her voice was trembling. For the blonde, he felt that she had something important to say to him.
Yeah, what is it?
Taking a moment to take a deep breath to steel her nerves. She felt that she needed to get this off her chest.
For a time being that you didn't enjoy any of our presents. Class 77, I mean. I thought you hated all of us. You were the first one to walk out of the class and nearly had everyone following your example. And I slightly hated you for that.
He wasn't surprised to hear someone hating him, and felt that she had every right to hate him for his actions. None of them knew that Naruto was just broken in the inside. He lost such a great deal in such a short time, and was forced into a new land. He was having his own pity party, without allowing himself to befriend anyone. Naruto motioned for her to keep going.
For me, I am a princess back home, and because of that I do not have anyone in my age group to socialize with. When I was asked to attend a school far from my home, I felt happy. I was finally going to be able to make friends with people my age. A chance to be a normal girl.
But as soon as the school year started, no one wanted to socialize with one another. And that is where some of my hatred towards you was placed. You left without giving the class chance. But then when Yukizoma-sama couldn't find you, I had thought you gave up on all of us. Yet you came back on your own. My hatred towards you slightly diminished, but I still felt I couldn't trust you. I felt that you would simply walk away from us. Not now, but soon. Maybe when you felt that Yukizoma was wasting your time. Naruto could see she was having a hard time telling him about her feelings towards him.
Then this bonding exercise came to be. As I looked at the paper and saw your name on it, a feeling of dread formed at the pit of my stomach. I had thought to myself, why him? He doesn't care for any of us. But the day before I was bonding with Mahiru, and she had told me, Naruto is not a bad guy.
He's the way he is simply because he faced some tragedies before the school year started. He's just grieving at the moment. I think once he gets past his grieving, everyone will see how much of a nice guy he is. Naruto was surprised that the redhead had said that about him. He did enjoy the day they spent together, but was more surprised that she was willing to defend him. He saw the princess got in front of him.
And after spending this much time with you, all I can say is, I am so sorry for having to judge you.
She bowed towards the blonde, not happy with herself. As the ultimate princess, she knew that she should never allow her feelings given away, but they did. She just hoped the blonde could forgive her.
You don't have to bow.
Sonia's eyes widened as she looked at the blonde.
I almost ruined everything you wanted. It's okay for you to hate me for that. You have nothing to apologize to me for. In fact, I should be apologizing to you. Sonia, never mind. I am sorry for my actions.
Naruto bowed to the princess, feeling that he was the one who deserved this.
Thank you,
Sonia quietly said, surprised that Naruto didn't hate her for her confessing.
Do you still hate me now?
No. Fanatically waving her hands in front of her, and vigorously shaking her head back and forth.
I am happy with everything we have done so far today. There is so much I wish to experience in Japan, and happy that you helped me experience it.
Even though she said that she didn't hate him anymore, that he made her day a good one, he still felt that there was more that he could do for her. She wanted to do everything a normal girl would normally experience. That is when it dawned on him. There was somewhere he could take her that she would truly enjoy.
Sonia, would you like to go to the amusement park with me tomorrow?
She didn't trust her mouth to form the words she needed. But the nod of her head was a clear answer to the question. Naruto Uzumaki was nervous. He wasn't ready to faint or run away nervous, but still at a pretty good level of nervous. Why was he feeling that? That was simple. He unintentionally had asked out Sonia, never mind. He unintentionally had asked out the ultimate princess out. The realization that he had asked out the princess of a foreign country to a date. That hadn't dawned on him until Sonia left his side. Now that he realized that he had a date with one of his classmates, even though both took this as a friendly day out between the two, he had to pull out all the stops. This was going to be her first time going to an amusement park. Dressed in black jeans, black tennis shoes, and an orange shirt, he was waiting for his classmates at the entrance. The only part that people might find odd about the young male is the fact that his right arm was wrapped in bandages. But that piece of detail could never change for the blonde. He didn't want people to see the condition his right arm was in. For a second the blonde thought he had arrived too soon. But the gentle breeze of the morning air was telling him a different story.
Sorry if I kept you waiting long, Naruto-san.
A gentle voice broke the blonde out of his thoughts. Turning around, he came face to face with the very lady that made him nervous. And Naruto could say that she looked lovely. In the small red tint on his cheeks were any indication. The ultimate princess was wearing a green and white dress with a large red ribbon, with a blue and silver jewel on the chest and a dark green, almost black, ribbon with diamonds in her hair. Also with her choice of wear a bracelet on her left wrist, black and gray thigh-high socks, and red Mary Jane. For Naruto, he thought that she looked like any normal teenage girl. Everyone's attention was focused on her, as she was dressed to impress. There was one other thought the blonde had. She did look like an ultimate princess. What did he mean by that? You might ask? That was simple. Just by looking at her, there was no impure thoughts going through the blonde. All he could do was believe that she was a role model for young ladies. Fidgeting under his gaze, Sonia nervously rubbed her used to having people attention on her. Something about his gaze was different. Having his attention for Sonia felt as though she wanted him to see her as a friend. But the rapid thumping in her chest was telling her differently. With that, she also prayed that their day together will go as one to remember. Unknown to the princess, the prankster was having similar thoughts.
No, you didn't keep me waiting long.
Naruto finally spoke. Sonia smiled, happy that their slightly awkward meeting had finally come to an end. Without any further delay, the two walked into the amusement park. As soon as the two had walked through the entrance, Sonia's eyes widened at the attractions that were on display in front of her. Roller coaster with the sounds of people screaming in joy as they rode the ride. A giant Ferris wheel in the center of the amusement park, with restaurants all scattered over. If Sonia was a little girl, she would be jumping up and down in her spot, but she was a dignified lady. She will do that when she went back to her dorm.
Where would you like to go first?
Being snapped out of her thoughts, Sonia turned her attention to her fellow blonde. She didn't know where to begin. There was a few attractions that she wanted to go right away, but they might confuse her companion. She had to wait till later in the day before she could. That's when something caught her eye.
Let's go to that ride.
As soon as the words left her mouth, she grabbed her companion by the arm and led him to the ride. The ride was called Let's Go Jumble SP. It was a ride based off an old game. Their ride allowed them to be seated to a jumble bus with two large mounted guns. All around them were large projection screens descended upon the two. Within moments, the screens came to life as monsters started to appear on the screens. The two were spinning around in their seats as they spent the next half hour shooting monsters, laughing with one another as they enjoyed the first memory of the day. After finishing their little game, the two were trying to figure out where they wanted to go next. Sonia took a moment to look around her and saw that one of the attraction sign read, Fortune Forest. That piqued her interest. Sonia tugged on the arm of Naruto to show him where she wanted to go next. Not seeing a problem with the attraction, the two went in. They couldn't go in together to hear their fortune as one, so they had to wait for one to finish before the other could enter. Sonia was the first one to enter. There is a bright light near you. One that will always protect you. There will be a time where you will be asked to protect that light. If you refuse, then that bright light will quickly fade into darkness and take all those near into that darkness. With that, Sonia's fortune came to an end. Now it was time for Naruto. You will come to a crosswalk in your life. One that will lead many into salvation or damnation. No matter your choice, all those around you will be affected by your choice. Finally, allow those trying to befriend you to enter your life. Naruto was finished, and he let out a small chuckle. That was an odd fortune. There was no way any of his choices would affect anyone but himself at this given point. He already lost everything. What else was there to lose? Walking out, he found Sonia waiting for him.
Hey, sorry if that took so long.
Sonia shook her head, feeling that there was no issue with how long he was in the fortune house. Maybe gone for about 2 or 3 minutes. Nothing that kept her waiting for long. It wasn't like he took longer than she did.
Is there anything you would like to do at the amusement park?
Sonia asked the blonde, fearing that she hadn't allowed the blonde any enjoyment so far. While they might not have been there for long, they still had done only things that she wanted to do. It made her happy, but now that she had a second to think about it, made her feel selfish.
Nothing comes to mind.
Naruto looked around, not seeing anything that he would enjoy to do. Again, being in an amusement park was also something new for the former ninja. All the rides were more advanced than anything in his world.
But don't worry about me. Today is your day. Pick anything you want to while we're here.
Smiling at his kindness, Sonia wondered what they should do next. She felt that it had to be something that could take them to lunch, but what is there? The room of the living doll is what caught her attention. It sounded scary and seemed to be mixed with the occult elements. Everything that she liked, and her secret hobby. Yes, Sonia enjoyed the dark arts. Heck, in her spare time she studied the art. She didn't believe that she was some dark mage or anything, she just liked the lore that occult was associated with. The attraction was an odd one to say. The two found themselves in a haunted house, where a creepy doll was seated. As the two went towards the doll, it started talking to them, telling them to give up their souls, and that they are mere mortals trapped with her forever. The end of this little attraction came when Sonia seemed to become possessed by the doll. Sonia became the host for the doll. Now that their little fun was over, it was time for them to get some lunch. Both placed their orders and waited for their order.
You looked like you were enjoying the last attraction,
Naruto commented on, as he noticed that she had a large grin on her face when she became possessed by the doll. Heck, she even made her voice darker to sell the possession.
Being in a haunted house was something I always wanted to do,
Sonia remarked, not wanting to reveal that she wanted to be possessed at one given point. This was to feed her hobby to the black arts. Naruto eyed the pale blonde beauty in front of him. He was skeptical of her claim. He just couldn't believe in her words fully. Her laughter, her enjoyment, and everything she did there made it seem like she was going all out in the haunted house.
It's okay to say that you enjoyed the possession game,
Naruto offhandedly said, having an odd feeling that she was trying to save her image as the ultimate princess. He didn't blame her, but knew that it was too early for her to truly show her true side to him. Maybe once they had a longer friendship she would. Sonia let out a low thank you to the blonde as their food arrived. Sonia had ordered a simple salad, while Naruto ordered a cheeseburger. He was angry that none of the stands served ramen, but he will live. Just has to remind himself that he will need to sneak ramen next time he comes here. As they ate, the two chatted with each other, getting to know one another. The two flew as the two finished their meal.
Oh, Naruto, you're here too?
The two turned around and came face to face with a young lady. Hey Seiko, I didn't know you were here too.
Naruto greeted the ultimate pharmacist. He was surprised to find her in the amusement park, as she was more of the type to be locked in her room studying or in her lab trying to find new cures. Before the two could converse any further, Sonia had other plans in mind. Is that a true respirator mask?
Sonia's eyes sparkled as she stood up close to the young lady.
You even customized the mask to suit you. Wait, you are not sick by chance?
Sonia knew that the Japanese people didn't like to enjoy to spread sickness around, and would do everything in their power to be courteous and prevent their colds from spreading.
Shifting
her purple eyes to see to her blonde friend, she saw that he was holding back a laugh.
I am not sick. I wear this respirator mask to make sure that I am always healthy. And I also wear this to make sure my friend Ruruka doesn't try to feed me any of her snacks.
Seiko enjoyed her friendship with Ruruka, but there was bad side about that said friendship. Ruruka was quick to anger when someone refused her snacks. As in she ready to break people bones angry. Seiko would love to eat one of Ruruka's snack. The issue on her part was the fact that any sugar would cause a fatal reaction in her body. She wasn't allergic to sugar. No, the medicine coursing through her body didn't allow her to consume sugar unless she wanted to die.
That is the bomb!
The two ultimate sweat dropped at the ultimate princess' use of slang. But the joyful expression on her face made it impossible for the two to burst her bubble.
Why are you here, Seiko-chan?
Naruto asked, as he had yet to find a reason as to why she was out and about.
Oh yes, I am here cause Ruruka invited me today.
Naruto could have sworn that somehow her hair was wiggling in happiness.
Wait, did you say Ruruka is here? Yes. Along with Sanosuke.
The feeling of dread appeared in the pit of Naruto's stomach. He gotten an earful from Ruruka when she first found out that he wasn't attending class. Heck, he spent another week out of class due to a class assignment. The class assignment that he forgot to tell her about. Why was he being fearful of the Ruruka? She wanted Naruto to succeed at Hope Peak Academy. She was basically acting like a sister to the ninja. And for Naruto, he had only one course of action to do knowing Ruruka was nearby.
It was a pleasure hanging out with you, Sonia. Nice seeing you, Seiko. See you two later.
Both of the girls stared at him dumbfounded as he sprung around and started to head towards the exit.
Where do you think you're going?
Not even a step away from the two girls. A hand was gripping the shoulder of the blonde. Gulping, Naruto slowly turned around. His fear was confirmed. Ruruka was the one who had stopped his exit. Sanosuke was standing behind her, watching the scene with a look of amusement on his face. Hand on hip, a glare aimed at the blonde. Naruto knew there was no way to escape her wrath.
You don't go to school for a week. Even after you promised that you would stop skipping school.
Finger jabbing into the chest of the blonde.
And now you're trying leave without saying hello.
Another jab to the chest. Naruto knew there was no way to salvage this. All he could do was take his punishment.
At least introduce us to your friend.
Huffing at the blonde, she crossed her arms over her chest and looked at the blonde beauty.
Sonia, these three are Ando, Ruruka, also known as the ultimate confectioner. The guy standing by her is Izaioi, Sanosuke, also known as the ultimate blacksmith. And finally, you already met her, but this is Kimura, Seiko, also known as the ultimate pharmacist. All three of them are my friends.
Naruto finished their introduction.
These three all go to Hope's Peak Academies. Amazing!
Sonia's joyful tune showed how excited she was to meeting more students from the same school. The other three were more surprised of how happy she seemed to meet them. But that was the type of person Sonia is. She always found joy when meeting anyone new.
And this is Sonia, never mind.
Ruruka had a smug look on her face, believing that she was the better of the blonde. Seiko was curious on who this young lady was exactly. And Sanosuke was indifferent on meeting this lady.
She is also the ultimate princess.
Ruruka's smug look quickly vanished from her face. Sonia might have been the junior to Ruruka, but in this case Sonia was in a higher standing than she was. Seiko now realized as to why she was hanging out with Naruto. This was one of his classmates. If she was around Naruto, that probably meant that she was a good person. But again, she had yet to really know the princess.
Nice to meet all of you.
Sonia bowed to 3, remembering her manners. The other 3 didn't know what they should do in the presence of the ultimate princess. This mainly had to do with her being royalty.
Nice to meet you too, Sonia.
Seiko returned the greeting with a bow of her own. Already having a little chat with Sonia before her formal introduction made the pale girl a little less nervous around the princess.
Nice to meet you too.
Ruruka also greeted the ultimate princess. If Seiko was not going to be nervous around Sonia, neither would she. Sonosuke gave her a quick greeting and bow. He was the silent type. He didn't need to say what everyone else was saying. Naruto smiled to himself. He was happy that everyone around him were slowly getting to know one another. And by the expression on Sonia's face, she was happy to meet new people also.
Sorry that we have to cut our first meeting short, but there's some places here that I need to check out for new ideas.
Ruruka told the 2 as she turned around and started to walk away from the 2. Sonosuke didn't say anything as he followed after his girlfriend.
If you ever are feeling unwell, please come to me,
Seiko told Sonia as she turned around.
And I might be able to get your own respirator mask.
Seiko left as soon as she said that, as Sonia's eyes sparkled at the mental image of what her personal respirator would look like. Maybe a crown in the center of the mask. Or diamonds. Or her home country flag. So many ideas floated through her head. Waving at the 3 as they left, the 2 were left by themselves. Sonia was happy to have met some of Naruto's friend. While for the blonde, he was happy to make Sonia's day even better. He still felt that he owed her more, and since the day was yet to be over, he was planning on making this day a great one for her. Sticking his arm out, Sonia linked her arm with his and followed him. They spent the rest of the day riding everything that they could. From smashing into one another in the bumper cars, to finding an exit in a haunted house. Sonia took her time as she admired the ghosts that were part of the attraction. For Naruto, he wanted to exit it as soon as possible. Not a fan of ghosts. To riding the roller coaster. And they ended their day with riding the Ferris wheel as the sun was setting. The glow of the sun setting left Sonia in a state of astonishment. Naruto smiled at the dazzling smile on Sonia's face as their day came to an end. Monday morning, Naruto was currently slurping ramen as he was walked towards his classroom. While he was early for class, he grabbed breakfast on the way to school. This was the normal for him to eat at all given time.
Ibuki stage drive.
As soon as Naruto opened the door, he heard the female musician announce. Only given a moment to take in his surroundings, he saw that Ibuki had jumped off the teacher's desk. Using his natural reflexes, he tossed his empty ramen cup into the trash bin, and with great speed and strength, he caught the young lady from crashing into him. Doing a quick spin, he placed Ibuki on her feet after her in prompt stage dive.
Why did you do that? Ibuki knew that you were going to walk through the door. Ibuki wanted you to catch her,
she stated as if it was the normal response. Naruto's sweat dropped, wondering what was going through her mind. He didn't mind her craziness, and yet there was a certain level of craziness he could deal with. But that smile of hers kept him from staying mad at her. Taking a quick peek behind himself, he noticed that there was plenty of time before the start of classes. Without saying anything to Ibuki, he went towards the school cafeteria to prepare more ramen for himself. Chiaki Nanami wasn't antisocial or incapable of talking to others. Being the ultimate gamer, she just preferred being by herself. She enjoyed the peace of mind that came with playing a game and getting lost in a world that had nothing to do with the reality she had to face day in and day out. It was nice. It was an escape. No, she didn't have family troubles when she was at home. She just liked the fantasy world that video games took her to. With most females like to spend their time at malls, or talking about boys, or their clothes, she did not. And because of that, she didn't have friends growing up. Majority of females didn't see the appeal of video games. While boys didn't enjoy being beaten in video games by a girl, that meant almost everyone avoided her due to her strange behavior. Chiaki didn't understand why that seemed like a big issue to others, but to them it was. Chiaki would enjoy the company of others that wanted to game with her. And the week off from school to bond with her classmates was a pleasant surprise. She was amazed to find out that Mahiru was just like her. While humble to receive the title of Ultimate, she didn't see her title as being anything important. Which is part of the reason she enjoyed the company of Hajime Hinata. He treated her like a normal person. Taking a second to look up from her Nintendo Game Girl Advance, she saw that everyone had taken their seats. She was also surprised to see that Naruto had 5 cups of ramen on his desk. Looking to see if Ms. Yukizome had arrived or not. She had not. Chisa had yet to arrive for class yet. The door quickly slid open, and a female substitute teacher had walked in.
Hello class. Sorry, Yukizome will not be teaching classes today. That assignment of hers will be taking some time for her to finish going through.
The substitute teacher informed everyone in class. Everyone's mood went down. They enjoyed Chisa's presence, but they knew that might as well give this substitute some respect. The orange-haired teacher was happily hummed to herself. She couldn't believe that all her students had done the assignments, and from the pictures that they were asked to attach with their reports. She enjoyed seeing Nikon feeding Chiaki while she played her video games, Akane being taught how to dance with Hyoko, Nagito causing food poison to Teruteru, and even the surprising picture of Naruto and Ibuki singing together. Chisa couldn't stop herself from grinning. These were the bonds that she wanted her students to form. And they seemed to be enjoying the odd pairing that she made.
You seem extra cheery this morning.
The voice of Koichi brought Chisa back to reality. Turning around, she noticed her student's true teacher was approaching her.
Oh yeah, I am. All my students not only did their assignment, but they have been all coming to class since I have arrived.
Koichi was slightly surprised that his class was finally being a class.
Well, don't let those students overwhelm you.
Leaning in closer to whisper into Chisa's ear.
If the students ever go to crazy, they might stick us with one of the reserved student dunce to teach us a lesson. You're worrying too much. There isn't a bad egg in the bunch.
Chisa quickly told him, as she already seen the results of her teaching style greatly influencing the young adults. Placing a finger on her chin, a thought came to her.
I still need to pick a class rep. Seems like a lot for you.
Koichi casually commented on. He already knew he wouldn't be the one to have done all this within his short time, unlike Chisa. But then again, he was the type to always do everything in the last minute, compared to Chisa do it now not later attitude.
Do you want to take back your class then?
Quickly shaking his head.
As much as that sounds like fun, there's a girl that I have been hearing about that has never lost a gambling match. I need to go scout her out while I can.
Chisa playfully glared at her fellow teacher. Before she could say anything else, the phone on her desk went off. Picking up the phone, she wondered who was calling her.
They're monsters. They are all monsters.
Then the phone went silent. Hanging up the phone, she wanted to ask the advice of her fellow teacher only to find him long gone.
Well, he was no help at all.
Chisa was desperately running to her classroom. Thousand thoughts racing through her head as she was worried what her perfect students could have done. She heard the fear in the substitute teacher voice when she had called. Finally reaching her classroom, she quickly opened the door to see what the phone call was for.
What the heck is going on here?
Chisa shouted, but she didn't get an answer. Instead, the response she was giving was Akane flying into the wall next to Chisa.
Get up, weakling!
Nekomaru yelled at the ultimate gymnast as electricity came out of his eyes.
Oh, I ain't done yet.
Akane wiped the blood off her lips and jumped back into action. She wasn't backing down from this battle against Nekomaru. And without any hesitation, the battle started back up. Chisa looked around at the state of her classroom, and she honestly couldn't believe the damage that had been done to her classroom. Bookshelves were knocked over. A few holes here and there. There was some disbelief on her part as she noticed some of the students were still sitting in their seats as these two fought. Was that a dumb bell that went flying through the air? And did she mention?
Anyone care to tell me what happened to the wall?
One of the walls that lead to the outside of the building was almost gone.
As amusing as this is, I guess we got to stop them.
Fuyuhiko lazily commented on, as he rested against the wall watching the two fight. He could care less, but the having to clean the classroom after this was going to be a pain in the ass.
Our substitute fainted right away. The excitement was too much for her.
Sonia told Ms. Yukizome as Mikon placed a towel over the substitute forehead. Running up to the two, Chisa had some words for them.
Listen up, need I? You can't destroy the classroom cause you felt like rough housing. What did you call it?
Nekomaru gave a light glare to the young teacher.
I have you know we're training in real-life combat conditions. Oh. In that case, knock yourself out.
Chisa causally strolled away from the hulking giant. Now she saw nothing wrong with what the two were doing. They were just honing their talents. Nothing wrong with that.
So much for that.
Fuyuhiko angrily muttered to himself.
And so the room fell. Room by room.
Gunham poetically said.
How am I going to drop that gorilla?
Akane angrily muttered to herself. Nekomaru had her beat in every aspect since the clash began.
I might have something to help your conundrum.
Teruteru suddenly appearing by the side of Akane. Metal suitcase in hand. Giving it a quick pat, he opened the case to show the fighting lady what was inside.
Thanks to some help from our resident's pharmacist friend.
Grabbing a neon green bottle.
Behold, our special soup is guaranteed to put a spring in your step. Dude, you don't got to tell me twice.
Grabbing the bottle in hand, she let a quick thank you before drowning the whole bottle down in one large gulp. As soon as the last drop went down her throat, her eyes widened. She felt a sudden rush going throughout her body. Everyone watched as the curvaceous figure of Akane changed into a large body of muscle with her skin now red, and her hair standing up and flipping in the wind.
Wait, what is this shit?
Nekomaru shouted, surprised by her drastic change.
Her fight power is off the chart. Her power level is over 9,000.
Sao shouted.
How do you fancy my doping corn soup?
Teratera asked the red-skinned lady.
Power coursing through every inch of my body.
Tossing the bottle to the group, she gave a light glare to her opponent.
Suck it! Need I?
With that she charged at the large man ready to win their duel. That was the cue for the rest of the class that were still sitting in their chairs to walk away from the fighting teens. Ryota picked up his drawing pad and walked out of the class. A shockwave shook the entire classroom as the two kept fighting. A random object flew and smacked the top of Chiaki's head. The blow caused the gamer die in her video game. Without saying a word, she stood up and walked away from the classroom. Another shockwave went coursing through the classroom as more random objects went flying. Some coming close to smacking Nagito across the face, but still no contact. But one of the objects decided to anger one. The random object knocked over a cup of ramen. It wasn't one cup that was knocked over. No. This one object knocked over 5 cups of ramen off the desk of one particular student, namely Naruto Uzumaki. He was forced to watch in slow motion as his cups of ramen fell to the floor. The blonde wept mentally as the 5 cups spilled all over the floor. But his anguish quickly turned into anger. Turning his focus to the ones that caused his food to fall to the ground, there was only one thought going through his head. Revenge. As the two hulking figures kept fighting, throwing random insults towards one another, they failed to notice the blonde standing up from his desk. Just as the two were ready to smash their fist into each face, they were both stopped. By stop, it really was both got knocked up in an instant. What was the cause? The prankster had thrown a desk into the back of Nekomaru, sending him flying into Akane, and sending the both of them into the wall, effectively knocking the two out cold. Everyone's eyes widened at the scene in disbelief. They all thought the only way this fight was going to come to an end was when one of them knocked the other out, but instead, what stopped the chaos was a flying desk.
That was for knocking over my ramen!
Naruto angrily declared, glaring at the prone forms of Akane and Nekomaru. Time had quickly passed, and lunchtime was right around the corner. While Chisa Yukizome had been away since the brawl had happened, but there was still no signings of their teacher returning anytime soon. The class had done a bit of repairs to the class, such as patching up the wall from the outside wall. There was only so much that could be done by a group of teenagers. None of them were repairmen. Well expected soda, but that was more on the lines of machines than buildings.
Hey Naruto, would you want to join me on a trip to the reserve course to have lunch with a friend of mine?
Mahira asked the blonde prankster as she held a bento box in her hand. The blonde was surprised by the sudden invitation from the redhead. He had to admit, he did want to see how the reserve course looked like.
Can I join you too?
A voice said behind the photographer. Both turned their attention to see that Chiaki was the one who had asked to join them.
Sure,
Mahira answered with a smile on her face. She returned her attention to the blonde still waiting for his answer.
Naruto Uzumaki, can you please come outside for a brief questioning?
The door opened up to reveal a young lady in the doorway. The young lady had blonde chin-length hair, with a pair of black thin-frame glasses covering her blue-green eyes that were placed on top of her small nose. Her pale skin made her stand out a bit. The female blonde was of average height. The young lady was dressed in the standard uniform. She had a slim figure with a modest bust.
I'll join you, Mahiru, after this is over with.
Naruto wasn't sure who this lady was nor what he had done. He knew he hadn't done any pranks yet, so there was no way he should be in trouble yet. But that lady had a stern expression on her face, meaning that she was here to do business with the blonde. Getting out the chair, he followed the fellow blonde out the class. Closing the door behind him, the two walked a bit before stopping at a random location in the hallway.
Now before I ask you some questions, introductions are in order. I am Togami Shinobu, the ultimate secretary. I am in class 77A, pleasure to meet you.
She extended her hand out to the blonde.
Uzumaki Naruto, the ultimate prankster.
Naruto grasped her hand in his and shook it. Both let go after a couple of seconds of shaking hands.
Now there was many forms filled out by your teacher today, but the oddest one she failed to fill was reason behind you needing a new desk.
Naruto was confused by her statement. Ms. Yukizome filled out paperwork for them, and even a new desk for him.
Why do you need a new desk? What happened to your old one?
She asked the blonde, wanting to ensure that the school wasn't wasting money on ordering a new desk for the blonde prankster. Being the ultimate secretary meant that she was asked at times to help file paper and organize them. And that meant even the very school she was attending will ask for her help. And the total mess that happened early in Ms. Yukizome was no exception. He wasn't sure who to answer that. Was the best way to answer that was to be honest? Or to make up a fake story? That look on her face was telling him that she was waiting to hear his answer. Taking a deep breath, he was able to quickly regain himself.
I threw my desk at a fellow student.
He was met with silence.
I had a good reason. They knocked over my ramen. They don't know the sin. Ha ha dash.
Shinobu had burst into a fit of laughter, clutching her sides as she couldn't believe what she just heard. Naruto was confused. Did that mean he was not getting a new desk? Did he just blow his chances?
I have never heard of such a funny reason to destroy school property. Normally some say it was just an accident, or they don't know what I am talking about, but hearing an honest answer is very refreshing.
She finished telling him with a large smile on her face. Naruto was even more confused by her response, giving him a quick pat on the shoulder.
That's all I needed to know. Now I can fill out the forms and get you the new desk in no time.
Naruto had a blank look on his face. This was an odd encounter for him. Without saying another word, she started to walk away from the blonde. As she was a few feet away from the prankster, she turned around to face him one more time. It was a pleasure meeting you, Uzumaki-san. If you ever need my help, please feel free to ask for my assistance.
It was nice meeting you too, Tokami-chan.
Naruto returned the farewell, as he watched the female blonde walk away from him. Now that his conversation was over with, it was time for him to meet up with Mahiro and Chiaki.
When Mahiro-kun told me that there were other students in Hope Peak Academy that didn't really care for their talents, I had thought that she was lying, but after talking with you two now I can believe it.
The friend Mahiro commented on, as she sat next to the redhead eating her lunch.
Told you, Sato, that not everyone believes that talent is everything,
Mahiro remarked, a sly grin on her face. Her friend, now known as Sato, gave the redhead a playful glare. The young lady has long wavy Viridian hair, with violet eyes, and wore the uniform of Hope's Peak Academy with black knee-highs and white sneakers. She appears to be quite tall for a girl her age.
Well, I thought Chiaki was the only one who thought talent was nothing important,
a male voice commented on, surprised to hear that not all the ultimates believed that they had everything already for them.
Did you say something, Hajime?
Chiaki asked, as she lazily looked at her friend. She was very busy on beating her personal high score at the moment. She became so confused in her game that she forgot where she was at. Taking a moment to look around, she now remembered where she was at. She was in the courtyard, eating lunch with friends. Wait, she now had friends. It finally dawned on her that she did now have friends. There was Hajime Hinata. He has short, spiky brown hair with an ahogue that moves according to his emotions. He wore the standard reserve course Hope's Peak Academy uniform. Hajime's eyes have a straight line running across his pupil, resembling a prohibition symbol. His eye color is a dull green. And for the ultimate gamer, he was the first friend that she made since coming to this school. Then, there was Mahiro, the ultimate photographer. A fellow student in the same class as her, and she was one of the people she spent the day with during the assignment last week. For the gamer, she saw Mahiro as a good person that truly cared for everyone. She even made sure that Chiaki didn't spend all their time together last week simply playing games. Then, there was the other two. Naruto, Uzumaki, and Sato. They were not exactly strangers to her, but at the same time, they were still a long way from becoming friends with her. Maybe if she spent more time around Mahiro, she would get to know Sato, and see if a friendship could form, but for now, she had no plans to be around her. Naruto Uzumaki was a different story. He was her classmate, that was a fact. But she had yet to have any reason to fully interact with the blonde. Even in this lunging outing, they didn't really speak to one another. That was partially her fault, since she became engrossed in her game. And when this ultimate gamer became engrossed in a game, the world seemed to become silent all around her. But Chiaki did want to make an effort to try and know the ultimate prankster. He didn't seem like he was a bad guy, in fact, he seemed to be enjoying himself in this group activity. Maybe when she had a chance, she would attempt a conversation with the blonde. But not now.
I wish there was a way that everyone from our class would get along,
Chiaki mumbled to herself, low enough that no one should be able to hear, but one did. She had a feeling that there was still a rift between everyone. Not like the one there was the school year started, but still there.
We just need to find something that everyone would enjoy to do,
Naruto said, hearing what the ultimate gamer had mumbled to herself.
That is the problem. With all the different personalities we have in our classroom, finding the one common thing that we could all enjoy is close to being impossible,
Mahiro commented on.
How about movies?
Sato suggested, hoping that she could be of some help for the three ultimates. Everyone thought of it for a second. It seemed like a good idea on paper, but it still felt like there was something wrong about the idea.
There's two problems with that.
Everyone turned their attention to the prankster, waiting to hear what would come out of his mouth.
Time. And what kind of movie it will be. Couldn't you just watch multiple movies?
Hajime asked.
Normally yes, But it wouldn't work in this situation. First, we all have classes to worry about. Even if Yukizome-senpai would say yes to an all-day movie marathon, we still need time to figure out what movies everyone in the class would enjoy to see. Not only that, how long each movie would be.
How many people would stay after classes to just watch movie? Not all of them would stay. Plus there's also the fact none of us would actually be interacting with one another. We would all just be quiet as we watch a movie.
Naruto explained. Everyone nodded. They saw what he meant.
Movies, normally a good idea, but for everyone to start being a friend towards one another they needed an activity that would get them to interact with one another. Chiaki became lost in thought. They had time against them, and needed an activity that would get everyone to socialize with each other. That just seemed harder than it should be. Like an overcomplicated raid boss in Destiny, where she had to guide a team of noobs to defeat the raid boss for the first time. Wait a minute. It finally dawned on her what she could suggest for them.
How about video games?
The next day, Chiaki set her plan in motion. She was able to convince Soda to build a television big enough to fit in the classroom. She was even able to bring her game systems and video games that she believed her classmates would enjoy. And they did enjoy the video games so far. Her actions brought a smile to Chisa. This is what she wanted her class to be like. At the moment playing a game were Kazuchi, Fuyuhiko, Nagito, and Naruto. The four were playing a game that was very similar to Monopoly. And the current person that was winning at the moment was Kazuchi Soda. And the two tied for last place was Naruto and Nagito.
There's no stopping the Soda train.
The pink-haired mechanical boosted about himself. On his next move, he should be able to win the game.
A guy about all luck, that poverty god seems to be raining pretty hard on you.
Kazuchi said, the pale blonde luckster.
My luck was bound to run out.
Nagito causally commented on, not at all mad about his place in the game. He was just enjoying being around all these talents. He pushed the button to roll the dice for his next turn.
Well, this is awkward.
Nagito was surprised by what he had rolled along with everyone. On the scene, it showed he rolled a perfect 60, allowing him to pass Soda, come in first place, and do one other thing.
How the hell did you roll a 60? I'm sorry. I guess my luck's still good for now. Damn it. Drop the poverty god on Soda. And beat him to the finish.
Fuyuhiko said what everyone was thinking. Nagito didn't need to be told twice as he do so. All Soda could is watch as the money went down to -$99999999999.
My money!
Soud cried. Now that Nagito had won the game, there was no point on finishing the game, but there was still one reason. To see what place the other would come in. And now it was Naruto's turn. Without giving it much thought, he pushed the button to start his turn.
Not another 60.
Soud cried, seeing how everyone else was getting lucky now with perfect rolls.
I quit.
Fuyuhiko angrily said, not caring what will happen now. Naruto gave a small laugh, knowing that their Fuyuhiko already knew he was going to come in last place. Taking a page from Nagito's book, he dropped another poverty god on Soud as he passed him.
I didn't think anyone could be that broke,
Fuyuhiko said, as they watched Soud's score went further down. Now it stood at -99999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999999. Soud did the only thing that he could do. He cried even harder.
Who's hungry?
Teruteru announced, as he and Hyoko walked into the class pushing 2 large containers with them. Their sudden announcement caused everyone to stop playing the games and focus their attention to them.
Well, that smelled like ultimate level.
Chisa Yukizome commented, unhappy that they were getting some food in their system.
Thank Chiaki-kun. She told Teruteru-kun to prepare a meal for us.
Ibuki happily told their teacher.
Really? She did.
Piko walked to their teacher.
We got so focused on repairing the classroom that we didn't eat a proper meal. I didn't want you guys to get hungry while we played video games.
Chiaki was blushing with all the attention and praise she was receiving.
You're the best.
Sonia happily hugged the gamer, as she rubbed her cheek against Chiaki's cheek. For the princess, this was a day she would never forget. But the sweet moment seemed to be completely ruined as something was rumbling throughout the classroom. By the noise alone, it seemed like someone let out a bear into the classroom. And that said bear was hungry, ready to feast on everyone in the class.
No, it can't be. Did a demon escape from the 9 realms to wreak its chaos upon this fallen world?
Gunhem fearfully cried out. His hamsters hid themselves into his scarf.
It's her stomach.
Nekomara casually told everyone as he hit up Akane by the collar of her shirt. A large trail of drool was escaping from her mouth as she looked at the food that was just a few feet away from her. All she could think about was devouring the beef stew. Everyone's sweat dropped. They couldn't she was that such a slim girl could be such a glutton.
And by special request, our ultimate prankster gets a whole bowl of ramen.
Teruteru announced as he showed them that the second container was actually the bowl for Naruto. Naruto looked at the ultimate cook.
That was my idea,
Ibuki happily told the blonde as she tackled him from behind.
It was actually mine, Akane and Ibuki idea,
Sonia told the blonde with a small smile on her face.
Akane felt sorry that she knocked over your food during her brawl yesterday, and just wanted a way to apologize.
She would have let Akane tell the blonde, but judging by Akane's expression, she was too far gone.
Thank you.
Naruto's smile never left his face.
Itadakimasu,
everyone said together as they prepared themselves to eat their meal. Since their classroom was still destroyed from yesterday's event, they didn't have their desk to use as a table, but they didn't care for that. All they really cared for was that they could enjoy this meal as a group.
Seconds.
Akane suddenly appeared in front of Teruteru holding her empty plate. Everyone stared in disbelief. Everyone had so far only taken one bite from their plate, and she already finished her meal. While everyone was enjoying their meal of Nikujaga, Naruto was eating his own bowl of ramen. But the blonde prankster notices something. Hyoko wasn't eating with the resting of them. No, she just kept looking at them with shifting eyes, as she hid her face using one of her sleeves. The way her eyes kept shifting, the light giggling escaping from her. There was just something about her actions that seemed all too familiar with the blonde prankster. Eating some of his ramen, his taste buds went to heaven. Everything about the ramen was just a piece of heaven. The taste, the meat, etc. But after taking another bite of ramen, he felt as though something was off about his ramen. Almost like there was an ingredient added into the ramen that shouldn't be there. Then it hit him. A burning sensation going throughout his body. A aching in his lower body. And did this room get even hotter? Looking around, he noticed that Akane and Nekomaru were staring into each other's eyes. A loving expression on the two of them, as they slowly got closer to one another. They were so close to kissing. Ibuki also seemed to be struggling with standing up straight. And the flushing expression going around everyone. Naruto now knew what he was tasting in his ramen. Aphrodisiac. Someone had messed with the foods that were being served, and now everyone was facing the consequence with. The ninja knew that having a room full of nothing but horny teenagers that just had aphrodisiac in their system meant only one thing. This room was about to become an orgy. And not in a good way. Looking to his side, he noticed that his suspicions were confirmed. Hyoko was laughing at everyone in the classroom as they struggled with their newfound lust. Yukizumi-senpai even was trying to scold the young dancer, but that was close to impossible when their orange-haired teacher was fighting her own growing sexual desires. The blonde tried to move and stop people from doing anything they might end up regretting. But that was easier said than done. The grown-up tightness of his pants were stopping him from truly moving anywhere.
Ibuki love heart is ready to burst.
Ibuki appeared next to the blonde prankster, hugging his arm extremely close to her chest. Naruto could only blush, as he was forcing himself from doing everything possible from jumping the multi-haired musician. He is a ninja. He was trained for this. Nothing would break his moral compass.
Naruto, please, cool down my burning body.
And that moral compass was getting closer to breaking with the aid of Sonia. Just like Ibuki, she took his free arm and hugged it close to her chest. He could tell that both ladies had great bodies. But no, he can't do this. If he took advantage of their current state of mind, he would practically be raping them. No, he will never do that. Please, both girls slowly moaned, as their own desires were slowing overpower them to the state of mindless sexual deviance. Naruto needed a way out, something to stop all this chaos.
Heaven-slaying dragon fist. Taylor Swift.
Everyone stopped doing what they were doing, as they watched Teruteru's body fly through the air. Everyone focuses their attention on Chiaki, the one that had knocked out the ultimate cook.
No one messes with my classmates.
As soon as the words left her mouth, the ultimate gamer fainted. The next day.
Alright class, listen up.
Everyone let out a groan at the cheerful voice of Chisa Yukizumi. Everyone was still suffering from their actions yesterday. They didn't want to deal with a happy go-getter so early in the morning.
How are you still perky after yesterday?
Sao groaned, not sure if their teacher ate the beef stew from yesterday.
Because I am an adult. Yesterday wasn't Yukizumi-san's first time dealing with that.
Proudly stated, happy that she was able to calm her desires after yesterday's disaster.
I see,
Sonia said to herself. Maybe that's why I am not exhausted either.
What do you mean, Miss Sonia?
Sao asked her, but Sonia did not answer him. But Naruto heard what Sonia said. He even knew what she meant by that. She was not as innocent as she appeared. While Chisa kept on talking, Naruto was lost in his own thoughts. He needed a way to prank Hyoko after yesterday's little prank. He would say it was a good prank, but he had an issue with it. He was a victim of said prank. He could not let that stand. He needed to get revenge on the little dancer.
Chiaki Nanami will now be your class rep,
Chisa announced, as it was met with claps and cheers. Even Naruto clapped for the ultimate gamer. While everyone was celebrating for her new status, a few people didn't feel their phones go off. I am coming to Hope's Peak Academy Natsumi, Chapter 4, Hope for the Future.
These are for you, Uzumaki-san,
the calm voice of Pico said to the prankster. In her arms were a medium-sized bento box wrapped in a black and gold cloth. Before the blonde could question as to why she would be giving him a bento box, she shoved the bento box into his arms. Now the blonde was even more confused. Why was one of the most stoic girls that he has ever met giving him a bento box? It's not like there was any reason as to why she would. He couldn't remember do anything for the silver-haired beauty to warrant a handmade lunch. Seeing the confused expression on the blonde, Pico knew she had clarified why he was given a bento box.
Lady Kazuryu requested that I deliver the yakisoba to you, as a thank you for the fun time she had when you visit the household.
Naruto was surprised by Natsumi's actions. All he did was hang out with her, and treated her like she was a normal girl. Nothing special in the blonde books. But apparently his treatment to her was special to her, that she cooked him fried noodles. He was touched.
Why didn't she deliver it herself to me?
Naruto was thrilled for the free food, but he found it odd that she didn't bring it to him herself.
Lady Kazuryu was unable to do so for many reasons. Mainly due to the fact that today was the first day of her attending reserve course, and the second reason is that since she is a part of the reserve course, she is not allowed to come to the main campus unless given permission.
Naruto nodded his head, now understanding why Pico was given the task.
Now that my task is accomplished, I will be heading to class.
Taking a few steps away from the blonde, she stopped in her tracks, and turned to face him once again.
I almost forgot, Lady Kazuryu also wanted me to tell you that she would like you to see her after school is over for the day. Alright, I will see her. She will be happy to hear that. Now I must go the other direction before to ensure that no one sees us in the alley together.
Pico mumbled the last part to herself as she walked away from the blonde. Naruto was able to hear her, and now understand why she dragged him behind the building. While she didn't do anything other than give him a bento box, anyone seeing it would think that she was the one giving the bento box to the blonde. That is the fast track to rumors spreading throughout the school. Later that day,
glad you showed up.
A cheerful voice called out to the blonde prankster. Naruto leaning on the side of the wall, as he waited for the young Yakuza sister to show up. For the blonde ninja, he didn't care if anyone saw him socializing with the reserve course student. She was a kind girl when he met her and saw no reason why he shouldn't be able to hanging out with the said girl. Natsumi gave a quick wave as she walked towards the blonde. Returning her greeting, he shoved his hands in his pockets and waited for her.
What did you think of the yakisoba?
She didn't need to ask if Pico delivered the meal to him or not. The fact that he was waiting for him after school ended was proof enough.
It was great. Thank you for the great meal.
Even though Naruto was a strict earned lover, that didn't mean that he couldn't enjoy other meals. And her fried noodles were definitely in the top 5 of meals he will eat forever.
Of course they are.
Natsumi placed both her hands on her hips.
The yakisoba were made by me. I had hundreds of people waiting in line every year just to eat the yakisoba at festivals.
She boasted about herself, happy that the blonde had enjoyed her food. While normally used to hearing people tell her how good her food was, there was just something different about this. Maybe it had to do with the fact that she only prepared the meal for one certain person, or the fact that said person was praising her talents.
Is there a reason you wanted me to wait for you?
Naruto asked her, stopping the young lady from getting a bigger head than normal. He was unsure on what he should be doing now. He never had a girl waited for him when he was in the ninja academy. But then again, he didn't have any friends back then either. Being here, the blonde felt that he was getting a second chance on finally having a normal life.
What, I can't just ask you to hang out with me?
Naruto gave her a blank look, not sure if she was being rude or not.
Fine. I just wanted to see how people that were given the Ultimates titles were truly like. Why don't you just hang out with Pico and Fuyuhiko? You do live with both of them.
Naruto asked, not sure why she didn't go with the people she lived with.
It's not the same. I grew up with those two, and they would do whatever I want. They wouldn't show me how it's like to become an ultimate. But if I hang out with you, then you wouldn't do anything different than you normally do. But since I am hanging out with you, Natsumi-san, wouldn't I do everything differently cause you are with me?
Naruto found a great flaw in her plan. He didn't know anything about the young lady other than she was great at cooking fried noodles, and that she was the young sister of a Yakuza leader. She didn't think of that way. She just thought that she would have him do his normal routine while she watched. She couldn't find a good reason for him to do his normal behavior. With someone watching him, he wouldn't.
Why don't we just hang out?
Naruto didn't want to get rid of young lady, and at the same time knew that she must have a valid reason to wanting to watch his habits.
You can even ask me any questions about being an ultimate too.
Natsumi smiled and nodded her head. This was going to be the perfect chance for her. So many questions. And they were all at her fingertips. Where to begin? Was there even a wrong question to ask?
How did you get the title of Ultimate?
Natsumi asked, as they started to walk away from the school. Her question was a simple one, but it was one that so many people had wanted to know. How did an Ultimate gain their title? Naruto paused in mid-step. That was a good question. But at the same time, he didn't have a correct answer for her.
I don't know.
Natsumi stopped walking and raised eyebrow the blonde. Shouldn't he know how he got his wanted to yell, stomp her feet, and call him a liar? But she waited for him to say anything that he hadn't said yet.
I didn't have a normal way in getting into the school.
Now Natsumi was interested. There was 2 ways of how to become Ultimate. That was something she didn't know.
The way I was recruited to the school was through the former principal of Hope's Peak Academy. He said I had talent and that I should apply for the school. And that the school will give me something that I would truly enjoy. What did he mean by that? I still haven't figured out what he meant by that myself.
Naruto gave a small smile. That old man was doing everything he could to try and make Naruto feel welcome to the school. And so far this school hasn't been a letdown. Natsumi growled a little. She hadn't found a good answer on how to become an Ultimate. The only thing she did find out was that the principal could have people test to be an Ultimate, but that was about it.
But why are you so interested in the Ultimate process?
Naruto knew that there was a reason as to why she was asking him on how he entered the school. She wasn't asking for small talk. No. She was asking for her own personal gain.
Because
Natsumi wasn't sure if he was going to cut down her dreams or not. He didn't seem like the type to do so, but she take the risk. Taking a deep breath, she opened her mouth.
The only people that can stand by my brother's side are the truly elite. Only those that call themselves Ultimates are allowed to be by his side.
If I don't become one then?
That's stupid.
Naruto commented on, already seeing a flaw in her reasoning.
What do you know about it?
Her head snapped back, as she glared at the blonde with an intense hate in her eyes. Naruto knew that look. But at the same time he knew that this was going to be the best time to explain to her about her goal major flaw.
Your brother doesn't strike me as the type to simply abandon people, especially his own little sister, just because they were not given the titles of Ultimates. I don't ever see him from throwing people away just for that one reason.
While the blonde didn't know much about the short gangster, he did feel that the young leader didn't have the heart to discard people from his life for petty reasons. But maybe Natsumi knew something about her brother that he didn't. She did grow up with him after all.
Grr.
Natsumi wasn't happy to hear what came from his mouth.
That's so easy for you to say. You were given the title of Ultimate. You have every right to stand by my brother's side. I need to become one so that I don't get left behind.
The light blonde woman shouted at the blonde prankster. She needed to become a person worthy standing by her older brother's side. Not be left behind in the dust. Pico will forever stand by his side, because she was the ultimate swordsman. But she was unlucky that her talents had yet to be realized. And her time limited to finding her talent was closing very fast. Naruto stared at the young lady. He knew that there was no way that words alone were going to get through her head. He crossed his arms over his chest and thought to himself. What could he do to change her mindset? What could he do? Even though it had been hours since Naruto's little spat with Natsumi, he just couldn't find a right way to convince the young lady that she didn't need to become an ultimate to stay by her brother's side. Laying down in his bed, the blonde stared at the ceiling, wondering what he should do. Words were not enough to convince Natsumi. But no course of action had presented itself on solving this problem yet. Rubbing the temples of his forehead to lessen a small headache from the stress that Natsumi caused him, he wondered why he was going out of his way to help her. The old him would have done anything in his power to change her heart and see the error of her way. But since arriving to this new dimension, that part of him had vanished. When he first arrived to this dimension, Naruto was broken. There was no other way to describe it than saying he was simply broken. The blonde knew why he was broken. He was broken simply due to the fact that he had lost everything in an instant. His home, his friends, and lastly everything he ever accomplished was stripped from him. The blonde didn't care for his material possession due to his childhood. He never had anything, and the only thing he cared for was items he received from his precious people. But after spending so many years crawling his way out of the hellhole that was his childhood, he wanted to do everything he could to protect that small group of precious people. He would do anything that he could do to protect them. That was a promise he made to himself when he was very young. His home wasn't the small apartment he lived in. No, his home was the entire village of Konoha. While he didn't have very fond memories growing up in his home village, he made a vow to himself to protect Konoha from anyone attempting to harm his home. Not because that was the duty of a Hokage, but because that's where his precious people lived. For most people that were given the treatment that Naruto received, they would rather see the village burn before helping it. And while there was a time where the blonde wanted everyone to suffer. But that changed. Due to the fact that someone finally acknowledged him. After that he wanted the village to flourish. But the war took everything from him. Everything he had ever accomplished was stripped from him in a blink of an eye. From finally getting everyone to acknowledge his existence. That he wasn't the Kyuubi. He was simply a boy who had the wish to one day become Hokage. After the battle with pain, he felt that his dream was getting closer and closer. While the war was a bump on his long-time dream, he still felt that it was in his grasp. But Naruto should have known that it wasn't going to be that easy. The Shinigami was the cause of the blonde arriving to this new dimension. The death god was angry about how his realm was defiled by the mortals. That they defiled his realm for a war of man. That all of those that shouldn't walk on the mortal plane were now with the living once again. And that even he was attacked to reclaim the souls that were trapped in his belly. The Shinigami wanted all the lives of those that fought in the war as retribution for what they had done. But Naruto was the one able to change the mind of the powerful god. It wasn't a simple task for the blonde. But he was able to, and save the lives of so many. But at the cost of his own happiness. Ring, ring. Naruto was taken out of his thoughts as he saw his phone went off. Grabbing his phone, he went to see who was contacting him. Text from Ibuki Mayota. Naruto-chan. Join me after school. Please. Please. The blonde had to laugh a little to himself. Ibuki was an odd girl. At least the blonde prankster thought she was. Not in a bad way. He didn't know how to put the correct words when it came to describe his relationship with the young musician. Maybe he should start from the beginning. He didn't dislike her. In fact, he enjoyed the way that she was forcing him to finally live a little bit in this new dimension. Before meeting Ibuki, Naruto was living but not enjoying anything that this world had to offer. He was simply filling space as he coped with everything he lost. She made him change just a bit. Was he still upset that he lost so much in an instant? Yes. But he was finally finding a way to overcome his grieving period. He understood that out of everyone she was the one he was closest in the classroom. Next to Sonia, never mind. He wasn't going to define his relationship with Sonia just yet. Going back to Ibuki, the blonde was trying to figure out why he was allowing Ibuki to get so close to him. Again, he didn't mind the friendship he was forming with her. In fact, he found himself smiling whenever he was near her. She unknowingly was acting as a moral support for him. Very much the same way as Shikamaru did when he lost Jiraiya. A kind act that he could never forget. But for now, he needed to find himself before he could do anything else for anyone yet. Letting out a chuckle, Naruto replied to the message knowing that Ibuki would send more messages if he didn't reply in a timely manner. Lunchtime next day.
How does it feel being around by such beauties like Ibuki-san and Nevermind-san?
Teruteru casually asked Naruto, as he sneaked up behind the blonde sitting at his desk. For the prankster, he wasn't caught by surprise by Teruteru's appearance, but more of the question itself. Was it really that odd that a guy hung out with girls?
I had no clue what you were talking about.
Naruto played dumb, hoping that the conversation would come to an end. He didn't want any rumors spreading, but who he liked. Let alone any information on the girls that he might know that no one else knew.
Come on, don't be like that.
Teruteru slung his arm around the shoulder of the blonde.
For whatever reason, those two beautiful ladies seem to always be around you. Heck, Ibuki-san waited for you to come to class before stage diving off our teacher's desk just so that you could catch her. I don't know what you're talking about.
Naruto turned his attention to the window. He didn't want the ultimate cook to see his blushing face. Did he find Ibuki's stage dive a little odd? Yes. But that wasn't why he was blushing. It was the fact that he felt up the young lady. Not on purpose, of course. But that didn't mean he couldn't enjoy the feeling of her body. He was a healthy young male.
Oh, are you saying you don't know what I am saying?
Teruteru grinned to himself.
So you're saying that it will be fine if I tried anything on those pretty ladies? Maybe like have Sonia suck out the poison from my one-eyed friend. Or asking Ibuki to play my skin flute.
Naruto gained a large tick mark on his forehead. That was just plain out creeping on those girls. Click, a bright flash blinded the young cook, letting out a gasp as he rubbed his eyes to try and remove the blinding light effect on his eyes. The cook tried to glare at the person who blinded him, but failed at doing so. Naruto, on the other hand, was glad that someone took action before he did. Who knows what he might have done? Looking up, Naruto was greeted with the sight of Mahiro holding her camera in one hand, while also giving a heated glare at the cook. Naruto knew that look. It was the same one he saw whenever he did something stupid around any lady he knew. It was the one that promised punishment. A great deal of punishment.
What was that dash?
Click, click, and once again Teruteru was covering his eyes, trying to shield himself from the onslaught of Mahiro camera flash attack.
Woman! Would you stop that? Don't be a pig. If you didn't act like a pig, I wouldn't have to treat you like one. Be a true man and try to act like gentlemen.
Mahiro shot back. She was not going to let the cook get away from his perverted antics. Naruto was grateful for the intervention of Mahiro. Even more grateful with the fact that she was telling off the cook. Giving the redhead a smile, he stood up and left to get some food. Opening the door, he left the classroom.
Oh, Naruto, just the very person I was looking for.
Naruto hadn't even taken a step out away from the class before he was stopped by another person. Looking to see who was waiting for the blonde, he was greeted with the bright smile of one Sonia Nevermind. Naruto returned her greeting, wondering why the blonde princess was looking for him.
How can I help you, Sonia?
Naruto asked, not sure if he should be happy that Sonia was waiting for him.
This might sound like an odd request, but...
Sonia fiddled with her fingers, not sure how to ask the blonde.
Do you by chance know what Kimura-senpai likes to eat?
Naruto was caught by surprise by the question.
Why do you want to know? Well, Kimura-senpai was kind enough to offer to make me my own respirator mask, and I want to return her kindness.
Sonia's cheeks were a little red. As the ultimate princess, she was used to people giving her anything she wanted. But she never enjoyed receiving a gift and not doing something in return. Naruto let out a small chuckle. He wasn't surprised by Sonia's kindness. He quite enjoyed that even though she was the ultimate princess, she still wanted to be a normal girl.
Seiko is not picky about what she eats. The only thing she can't eat are anything mixed with sugar. Sugar? How come? It has harmful effects to her.
Naruto didn't want to tell Sonia that sugar could kill Seiko. It was not something he wanted anyone to heard about. While he didn't think anyone would try to kill her, he still didn't want to take that chance. Sonia happily nodded her head and gave a quick hug to the blonde. She quickly released the blonde from her hug and gave a quick thank you before walking into their classroom. Sonia was left with own thoughts as what she could cook for her new female friend. While Naruto finally was given some peace and was able to head to the cafeteria to get some ramen to eat. After school. Same day,
Ibuki feels so lost.
The young musician screamed out loud, clutching her head with both of her hands. Naruto, on the other hand, could only sweat drop at the over-dramatic Ibuki. They were both in the music room. For some odd reason, Ibuki decided to use the music room that was located at the reserve course. The reason they were here was because Ibuki had done some damage to the music room on the main campus. She burned the classroom with her flamethrower guitar.
There.
Naruto patted her back, trying to give her some form of comfort. He didn't know why Ibuki felt lost. They had reached the music room with no problem, and everything was in place for her to practice. So why did she feel lost?
But Ibuki doesn't know what her next song should be.
She yelled at the top of her lungs as foam started to appear in her mouth. Shaking her head back and forth, she speared the foam all around, even splashing a bit on Naruto.
Clam down, Ibuki.
Naruto tried to be the voice of reason, but his words seemed to fall on deaf ears. Ibuki started to check out every instrument in the room, hoping that one of them would speak to her, to give her a reason to write her next song. But so far none of them were.
Ibuki wanted to show off her mad skills.
Ibuki spoke to herself, feeling a little sad that nothing was coming to mind. She was used to dry spells where nothing would inspire her till bam, something suddenly did. But she had added pressures that she added to herself. And that was trying to impress the blonde prankster known as Naruto Uzumaki.
You don't have to do anything special for me.
Naruto attempted to cheer her up, but once again Ibuki didn't seem to hear him. A cloud of gloom seemed to appear above the young lady. Seeing the state that Ibuki was in, Naruto did the one thing that came to mind. He walked over to the drums and started to play. Horribly. He had no rhythm, wasn't carrying a beat, and was just hitting in a random pattern. But that didn't matter to Naruto. He was doing the one thing he felt that would cheer up Ibuki.
Ibuki is wondering, what are you doing?
Ibuki asked, not sure why he was trying to play the drums. Did she notice that he had no skills in playing the drums? Yes. But that didn't seem to stop him.
Playing the drums,
was the simple response that he gave her. Ibuki was left confused. He was the ultimate prankster, not the ultimate drummer. Didn't he know that he had no talent for the drums? But here he was drumming away, not caring for how badly he was playing. That's when something clicked in the mind of Ibuki. Something she should have known all along. Walking behind the blonde, she sit behind him and placed both of her hands over his.
Ibuki will show you how to truly rock out on the drums,
she declared, as she gilded his hands. She didn't know why, but this was the first time she felt such a great amount of enjoyment from simply using her talents. In the past, it always felt that she had to perform because she had the talent to be the ultimate musician and lost some joy when performing. But now it felt that some of that joy had returned for her. Half an hour would pass before the two would stop jamming out. Ibuki rested her head on top of Naruto's shoulder, not wanting to move from her jam session. Naruto, on the other hand, was surprised by the way Ibuki took charge in this session. She showed him how to keep control while drumming and even keep the rhythm. Even though he had no interest in learning the drums, he noticed that Ibuki was enjoying teaching him. And for the blonde, that was what truly mattered. Seeing a smile on her face was worth it.
Ibuki had so much fun,
she happily declared as she slowly stood up. She enjoyed every minute of it, and her heart was pounding ever harder in her chest. Yes, this was a moment that someone could only receive when hanging out with friends. Naruto nodded his head, getting ready to open his mouth.
"You bitch!"
The two heard someone yelled. Both of them looked at one another before silently agreeing to one with one another. Both walked out of the music room to see where the commotion was coming from. It didn't take long for the two to find the source of the commotion. It was Natsumi and Sato arguing with one another. Naruto even noticed that Hinata was trying to play peacekeeper, but failing at doing so.
"You just signed your death warrant,"
Natsumi whispered to Sato as she stormed past her. She was the daughter of a Yakuza leader. No one insulted her and lived to tell about it. Hinata looked at the two ultimates and Sato before giving them a quick bow and following after Natsumi. He felt that he had to calm her down before it was too late.
"What happened?"
Naruto asked Sato. While he just barely met her the other day, he didn't think that she was the type to start a fight with anyone, let alone the new girl. But the blonde didn't know of their past with one another.
"I'll protect Mahiru,"
she muttered to herself low enough that she faked that no one heard her, but Naruto heard her. And he even felt the slight rise of killer intent coming from the young lady. The blonde knew there was one thing that he could do. Wait and watch. The next day, everyone in class 77B was enjoying eating lunch out in the courtyard today. Everyone chatting with one another, and some even sharing their lunches eating with one another. While that was going on, Naruto was lost in thought. He couldn't shake the feeling of Sato and how she leaked killer intent. He knew that the people in this world were not killers, but at the same time all it took was someone being pushed far enough to kill. Even though he knew that he should confront Mahiru, Sato, or Natsumi, he felt that he wouldn't get any answers. But the waiting game was slowly driving the ninja a little insane. Taking a look around, he saw that some of his classmates were not eating lunch. Instead, they were practicing their talents. Ibuki was tuning her guitar. Chiaki was playing on her handheld system. Ryota was drawing. Wait, Ryota. He was the ultimate animator. While too many people that would make them assume that his talent was in drawing, there was a second part of his talent that no one knew about. And that was writing and creating his own animation. Since he read, watched, and created a great deal of his own fiction. Well, that's what Naruto assumed he has done in his free time. He should be able to give Naruto a clue on what to expect from the personalities from the two main girls in question. But how to word it so that he doesn't become suspicious.
"Ryota,"
Naruto called out to the pale blonde as he walked over to the animator. The male in question stopped drawing and looked up to see who was calling out to him. He was surprised to see that the blonde prankster was calling out to him.
"Oh, hey, Naruto-san,"
Ryota timidly replied back. He wasn't sure why the blonde wanted to talk to him.
"Can you help me out in a story that my friend is writing?"
Ryota's eyebrow rose. He was surprised that the blonde wanted his help on such a simple thing. But at the same time, he was wondering why him out of all people.
"Why? You seem like the best person to ask. You are after all the ultimate animator."
Naruto believed that flattery would end the questions. He wasn't really worried about Ryota asking questions, but more of the line of worrying that he should something go wrong, that the blonde would be the one in deep trouble for not inform the authorities.
"Thank you for that. I will be more than happy to you out."
Naruto quickly explained the false story he created for Ryota, giving him the personalities of both Sato and Natsumi, including the threat that Sato muttered when Natsumi was walking away. Even the fact that Natsumi was a part of the Yakuza. He didn't leave anything out. He gave the ultimate animator everything little detail that he knew and left nothing out. Now all that was left was seeing what Ryota was going to say to him.
"By the way, your two characters' personalities are, I would say that both are capable of killing one another. It probably wouldn't take them long for each other trying to kill one another. While most people would say the girl with the Yakuza connections would kill first. That would be too predictable in this type of story.
You should tell your friend that the other girl should kill the Yakuza girl first. That would make the story more interesting." Naruto nodded his head.
"Where should the murder take place?" "Well, the best way to kill the Yakuza girl would be at the school. It's the only place that she couldn't have her Yakuza gang around her. And I was the one writing it, I would do it after school in AE pity room. Probably in one of the after-school activities that isn't being used."
Naruto nodded his head. He was able to get some good information from Ryota. And he didn't make a point. The only way that Sato was going to get Natsumi was at the school. That meant he needed to place seals in every room in the reserve course building. While that meant he knew that Sato would strike at the school, that didn't mean that Sato was safe from Natsumi outside of the school. Now he just needed to spring his plan into motion. Later that day, with the classes letting, Naruto was walking to the school gates on his own. Walking to the gates, he noticed that Hinata was waiting at the gates. The blonde knew that the reserve course students were not welcome onto the main campus, but wasn't that only during the school hours? Well, there was only one way to figure out what Hinata was doing here.
Hey Hinata, who are you waiting for?
The reserve course student seemed to nearly jump out of his skin. Naruto let out a little chuckle, surprised by his reaction.
Oh hey, Uzumaki-senpai.
He nervously shuddered out, shocked that one of the main campus students would bother remember his name. But then again, the blonde didn't strike him as the type to be stuck up.
Just call me Naruto,
Naruto casually said, not being a person who cared for all the formality.
Okay Naruto, I am just here waiting for Chiaki to appear.
Giving a quick nod of the head. He was surprised that Chiaki made friends with a reserve course student. Nothing bad about that, but just merely surprise. A silence went between the two, before something sprung into the mind of the blonde.
Do you know if Natsumi and Sato left already?
He wanted to make sure that nothing has happened yet. He still needed time to prepare. While he could perform the shadow clone jutsu, he didn't feel that it was necessary to do so yet.
Yes, I just saw Natsumi get picked up after class went out. She's still mad about something. And I think Sato is waiting for her friend from the main campus before leaving.
Hinata was surprised that one of the ultimates was worrying about the ruckus that was going to down in the reserve course. But there was something else he wanted to ask. While Chiaki always answered his questions about the main course, he always felt that she wasn't the best person to ask, considering she could be an airhead at times.
Can I ask you a question?
Naruto nodded his head.
Is being one of the main course students all that it's cracked up to be?
Naruto was confused about his question. Wasn't the reserve course the same as the main campus?
I mean, doesn't the main students enjoy the free ride that they were given in life?
Naruto looked at the young male standing in front of him. He had to take a minute to see how he was going to answer his question. After thinking about the question for a bit, the answer finally came to the blonde. He opened his mouth and... Next day, Sato was leading the so-called ultimate little sister to the music room. This was time for her plan to spring into action. She was going to be able to protect Mahiru from this Yakuza bitch. She didn't care what happens to her afterwards. As long as Mahiru was safe, that is all that matters. So far no one was around when they headed towards the music room. As soon as the two entered the room, Sato noticed that her metal fatal was still where she left it. She locked the door behind her. She didn't need anyone coming in before her plan was finished.
Alright, what do you want to talk about?
Natsumi asked, not even turning around to face Sato. She was left wondering why she was brought into the music room. Sato didn't answer right away. She picked up the bat and slowly approached the Yakuza girl. Before Natsumi could utter another word, Sato swung with all her force. Boink! She could imagine Natsumi laying in a pool of blood. Her head busted wide open. Her soul fading away as it left her body. Mahira's future being protected. No more threats on Mahira's life. All for a safe future. She didn't care what she had done. All that mattered was Mahira's future. Instead, the bat bended, but nothing else. Natsumi was not in pain. There was no blood gushing from the back of her head. There was nothing. That's when Sato realized it. Her metal bat was replaced with a rubber bat. Not only that, Natsumi was now aware of Sato's true intention. There was only one way she was going to get out of her alive. She was going to have to strangle the life out of her. Natsumi's eyes widened at her action. Sato threw the rubber bat away and charged at Natsumi.
I wouldn't do that if I were you,
a calm voice said at the entrance of the music room. Both looked at the source and saw that Naruto was at the door. His arms crossed as he stared down Sato, knowing full well what she had planned.
You don't understand. If she lives, Mahira's life will be in constant danger.
Sato shouted at the blonde, her mind lost, with only one focus going through it. Protect Mahira's life at all cost. She would back charging at the female blonde and tackle her down. Just as her hands were about to wrap around Natsumi's throat, she was lifted off of her, kicking and screaming as she desperately attempted to reach for Natsumi. Protect Mahiru. Protect Mahiru, were the only thoughts racing through her head.
What the hell?
Natsumi yelled as she crawled back onto her feet. She couldn't believe that someone just tried to kill her. She wasn't going to follow through with her threat on Mahira's life. It was just the way she was raised on. She was going to find a way to enter the main course on her own merits. Not through the Yakuza. Naruto was surprised by the strength of Sato, but she was nothing compared to Sakura. Holding her back, Naruto knew that he had to be the voice of reason for this delicate matter.
Were you really going to take Mahira's life?
Naruto could see the horror in Natsumi's eyes. She was probably used to people trying to take her life, being the daughter of a Yakuza leader, but this was the first time someone her age tried to kill her.
No. They were just empty threats. That's a damn lie. You would do anything to go to the main course. I want to be with the main course. I want to be in the main course so that I can stay with my brother. I don't want anyone to get hurt just because of my selfish reasons. I don't believe you.
Sato struggled even further. She was doing everything in her power to escape the grasp from the blonde prankster.
You just want to hurt Mahiru.
Naruto was getting angry with Sato at this given point. He knew there was only way to snap out of her madness. He slammed Sato into the wall and stared into her eyes.
If she really wanted Mahiru dead, she would have done it by now.
Sato's eyes widened.
It's okay to want to protect your friend no matter what, but when you try to kill someone to protect your friend, then you're no better than a murderer. But...
Sato's resolve was slowly fading away. She was trying to protect her best friend from someone she felt that would do anything for her own goals. But not once had she done anything to attempt to achieve her goal. Mahiru was still alive. And Natsumi even admitted that she would only go to the main course on her own merits. That's when her mind finally broke. She started to cry. Her tears simply didn't stop. Everything she had done was for all the wrong reasons. Would Mahiru stay her friend if she found out what she'd done? No. She had done all of this to protect Mahiru, but if she couldn't remain friends with her, then this would have been for nothing. A couple of days later, after the little incident, the school facility had caught wind of it. They didn't make the details public, simply because they wanted to keep their public image. But Sato was expelled from the reserve course. The reason behind this was because she was willing to kill another student. They feared she would attempt to kill another student in the future. Natsumi was suspended from school for a week. The reason behind that was because she had given death threats to other students. Even though one was a main course student, the school didn't want to lose Natsumi, as she provided a large source of income to the school. Naruto was left wondering who had reported the incident, since he felt that there was no one around, but for now, he was going to let it go. At this very moment, Naruto was walking towards his house. Sonia and Ibuki were walking side by side to the blonde. They were helping the blonde with a small project for class. While Sonia was, Ibuki was just tagging along.
Ibuki thinks the first thing we should do when we get to your house is jam out,
she happily declared, already forgetting that Naruto needed to finish a class assignment.
Remember, Ibuki, Naruto has a class assignment he needs to finish first,
Sonia reminded the lady rocker. Naruto wasn't paying attention to what the two young ladies were saying. He was more focused on the message he received from Natsumi. Next time I see you, you will be in for a surprise. Naruto could only wonder what the young lady was talking about.
Wait, why is there a truck in front of my house?
Naruto stopped walking as he noticed a truck was parked in front of his house. There was many guys unloading the truck and loading the contents of said truck into his house. Both girls were just as confused as the blonde. Without saying a word, all three ran towards his home wondering what was going on.
Excuse me,
Naruto shouted as he tried to grab their attention, but all of the movers seemed to ignore him.
Oh, Naruto, you're finally here.
A figure emerged from his house. It was Natsumi with a large grin on her face.
Starting from this point, I will be living with you.
Naruto felt his soul leave his body. Did he just hear her right? She was going to be living with him from this point on. He didn't agree to that. This was his home. The only place he was given as freedom from his crazy school.
Hey, if she's going to live with you, then Ibuki is also going to live with you. Then I feel I should move in with Naruto too, if you two are going to do so. No!
Naruto shouted to the heavens. But it seems to fall on deaf ears. These three girls seemed to not care for Naruto's opinion on this matter. Chapter 5, Through the Night. The night was truly a special time in the everyday life of everyone on the planet. They could gaze at the endless stars in the night sky, or see nothing but endless darkness of the night. A person could use the nighttime as a time to plan. A time that a person could be left with their thoughts. A time for someone to plan. From either what their future could hold for them, or from simply what the next day would hold for them. The night is also a time for people to work. Or for some, the night was a time for one to think about their place in the world. The night was simply a wonderful time for anyone. Piko Pikoyama was used to the late night summoning from her young master. The young man never made her do anything that involved intercourse or beatings. No, he would only summon her if he felt that something was wrong. And at the moment, that may be true. Earlier in the day, Fuyuhiko was told by his father that Natsumi would no longer be living in their house for the time being. But he was not given a reason as to why she was no longer in their home. Piko knew this bit of information did not sit well with him. It had nothing to do with the fact that he was the ultimate Yakuza. No. It had to do with the fact that it had everything to do with the fact that it was his little sister. Walking to his room, she gently knocked on his door. Enter. Without saying a word, she entered the young master room, silently closing the door behind her. She didn't need unwanted people to know of their meeting. As the door closed behind her, she saw Fuyuhiko sitting in his chair, gazing outside his window. Where their home was located, the night sky was covering the moon, leaving nothing but the dark sky in their view. In some ways, not having the moonlight was appropriate for them. They did not need people to know of their activities.
Pico, we have the next 2 days off from school. I need you to do me a favor.
Pico knew why he was asking, as if though he was asking for a favor. He wanted her to be a normal girl in their final years of their schooling. Once they graduate from Hope Peak Academy, they were going to be with the Kazuria clan full-time. A fact that both had known since they were children.
What will that favor be? I need you to track down Natsumi and find out why she has left our home.
Pico was not surprised by his request. Even though he was raised to be the ultimate Yakuza, there was one thing that most people didn't know about Fuyuhiko. And that was, he had a kind heart. Normally people would say that was a good trait to have, but not for Fuyuhiko. As the next head of the Kazuria clan, he was meant to have no heart. He was meant to be ruthless, and never allow his emotions to get in the way. Willing to sacrifice people for the sake of his family. But Fuyuhiko was not the type of person.
If I run into trouble, just don't do anything stupid.
Pico knew that tone of voice. It meant he didn't want her to do anything that would result in a confrontation. Giving him a short bow.
I understand, Fuyuhiko-sama.
Hajime Hinata, at this very moment, was having a rough time falling asleep. He kept tossing and turning in his bed, hoping that somehow sleep would just take him. But that didn't happen. Normally, as soon as his head touched the pillow, he would quickly fall into the land of slumber. But tonight, that was not happening. Hajime knew why he was having trouble falling asleep. It all had to do with the offer he was given. Weeks ago, he was offered a chance to finally enter the main campus. The only catch was that he had to go through an experiment. The only details he was given was that if the experiment was successful, he will gain the talents that would equal all those that were given the title of Ultimate. That seemed like a dream come true. But something in the back of his mind had stopped him from taking up the offer right on the spot. As time went on, Hajime, resolved to take the offer, was slowly fading. Not because he had no interest in joining the main campus, but he always felt when he did join the main campus it would be with his own talent. Not a talent that was given to him by someone else. But at the same time, his goal was at his fingertips. And yet, he didn't feel right taking the easy way. Tossing his bed sheets off his body, he sat up and looked outside his window. The night looked so peaceful. He could only make out half of the moon as some clouds were blocking his view. But he felt only seeing half the moon was appropriate for him. He knew he had a choice to make. And somehow, it would either lead him down a dark path or a bright path. Several seconds passed as Hajime continued to stare at the moon. His mind drifted back to his conversation with Naruto the other day. There's one thing that Hajime kept remembering from their conversation.
Our talents do not define us. We don't have a free ride in life. We are forced to carry the burden of everyone's hopes and dreams with our talent. At least with someone that doesn't have a talent, they are able to live their life any way they see fit. To me, that means that people like you have the most freedom in life. Unlike us.
Hajime was surprised to hear that people on the main campus felt they had less freedom than people who were said to be nothing. That they only lived to help those with talents thrive in the world. He heard it from Chiaki that talent meant nothing. But he didn't want to believe it. His excuse was that she was too much of an airhead to understand the importance of having talents. He also heard from Yukizume Senpai that he shouldn't allow his lack of talent hold him down. He should simply be happy with his life and let nothing hold him down. That if he did have some type of talent, it would manifest itself someday. But once again, he didn't want to believe her. His reason to that was because as an adult, it was her job to comfort the next generation. But now a third person told him talent meant nothing. And that forced Hajime to ask himself, what if having talent was more of a curse than a blessing? With that, an inner turmoil was created inside the young male. He just didn't know what to do with his future. And like that, he felt that he was at the crossroads of his life, and time was rapidly coming to an end for HM to make a decision. What to do? For one Naruto Uzumaki, he always enjoyed the night time. All the stress of his day came to an end, and all he had to do was let sleep quickly overcome him. But for this night, his normal routine was throw out the window. The reason behind that was one good reason. Well, more like 3 good reasons. Laying around the blonde was 3 beautiful ladies. All 3 ladies were sleeping around the blonde in simple sleepwear, which ranged from modest to an extra few minutes for the blonde male in a cold shower. Naruto knew that the 3 ladies that had decided to move in were headstrong, but he didn't think on their first night they would want to all sleep in the same room. Here he was sleeping in the living room with the 3 beautiful ladies all around him. But they were not allowing him to sleep. Ibuki, who was sleeping near the head of Naruto, was sprawled all over her futon. Her blanket was tossed off herself at some point. Now she was sleeping where her feet were, and her feet were dangerously close to the head of the blonde.
And once or twice throughout the night, she had kicked Naruto in her sleep. Taking a second to make sure that her feet were not going to make contact with his head again, Naruto noticed that if she had her legs slightly further apart, he would be able to see her underwear. Not that he was hoping she would spread her legs a little bit more. Natsumi was at least better than Ibuki about her sleeping habits. The young lady was sleeping on the right side of the prankster. She had turned in her sleep, and was now facing the blonde in her sleep. But unlike the multi-haired colored lady also sleeping near him, she hadn't bothered Naruto as much with her sleeping habits. The only thing she had done throughout the night that had slightly bothered the blonde was the fact that her leg would brush against the leg of the blonde. For Naruto, he was not used to a leg brushing against his own, let alone one brushing against his own while he tried to sleep. Sonia, on the other hand, was the least problematic of the three ladies sleeping near him. Sleeping to the left side of the blonde, Sonia hadn't moved nor made a sound since falling asleep. Living up to her title as the ultimate princess, Sonia had fallen asleep perfectly on her back and didn't move. No snores came from the young lady. Just silence. Naruto turned his head to her direction to see if she was sleeping well. Taking a glance over, Naruto noticed how beautiful she looked sleeping. Almost like she was sleeping beauty waiting for her Prince Charming to come and awake her from her eternal slumber. In some part of Naruto's mind, he wanted to be the one to give her a waking kiss. Closing his eyes, Naruto let out a silent sigh, knowing that tonight he was not going to get much sleep.
"What are you going to do while we're gone for the day?"
Natsumi asked Naruto as he was finishing his breakfast. She didn't look like it, but that blonde yakuza could cook. If her staying here meant that he was going to get good food every day, then she was more than welcome to stay at his home for as long as she wanted. Snapping out of his food daze, Naruto looked at the blonde yakuza, barely able to register her question. Taking a second to think of the proper answer to the question. Naruto wasn't sure what he was going to do while they were gone. Then again, he didn't normally do much before they had moved in. Normally it was him walking around town trying to get used to the town. But at this point, he already knew enough of the town to get around.
"I
have some errands to run."
A lie, but better than saying he had nothing planned. "That's good to hear. I didn't want you to be doing nothing all day,"
Natsumi commented on, as she slowly walked away from the blonde. She didn't have much to say to the blonde prankster, as she had to retrieve the last of her items.
"When we get back, Ibuki will show off her amazing talents to you,"
Ibuki happily declared as she pumped herself up.
"Natsumi was kind enough to offer her fellow associates assistance for our packing,"
Sonia commented on. Natsumi didn't have to do so. But some odd reason the young lady was be kind to the other two ladies. Maybe it had to do with the fact that they were super high school talents, and being around them would help her find a way to enter the main campus. Or maybe Natsumi did change after the Sato incident, but either way the two girls were happy with Natsumi's friendly attitude. All three ladies gave the solo male in the room a quick goodbye as they left for the day. That left the blonde with one question in his mind. What to do for the rest of the day? Sitting at a random bench at the park, Naruto was not sure what to do for the day. He didn't want to waste the day away by doing nothing, but at the same time, he had nothing to do. A part of him said that this was the perfect chance for him to attempt to enter Sage mode while the girls were away. But since the last time where Ibuki had interrupted his last session, he didn't want to risk the chance of that happening again. But that only left very little options for the ninja. Rubbing his forehead, Naruto wished something would happen.
"What are you doing here all alone?"
Naruto snapped out of his thoughts and looked up to see who was talking to him.
"Yukizo-senpai."
Naruto almost had jumped out of his seat, but was able to stop himself from doing so. The grinning face of his orange-haired teacher maid was the reason why he didn't jump from his seat. Giving her blonde-haired student a friendly wave, she quickly sat next to the prankster.
"Hey, Uzumaki-san. What are you doing here by yourself?"
She asked him once again, surprised that one of her students were simply sitting on an empty bench at the park. From her experience with dealing with her students, they were all very active students. The simple act of sitting down and doing nothing was close to impossible. Naruto didn't know how to answer his homeroom teacher. Placing a hand on his chin, he had to think about what to say next. Should he just lie to her face and say he was waiting for someone? Or simply tell her the truth and say that he avoided a day with helping his new roommates with their moving? On second thought, he should probably avoid telling her about his 3 new female roommates.
"I am just taking a small rest before I go to the nearest ramen stand."
Not a complete lie, as Naruto did want a ramen. And it had been about 3 hours since his last ramen break. Almost felt like 6 hours since his last ramen break.
"Oh, that sounds like fun. Mind if I join you?"
Chisa asked the blonde. Naruto didn't see a reason to turn her down. For the blonde, he always felt that it was better to have ramen with others than being alone. The blonde nodded his head.
As the two walked towards the nearest stand, Naruto took a second to glance over his homeroom teacher. Unlike how she normally appeared at school, there were some small, but noticeable difference. For one, while her hair was tied with a white hair tie this time, it was tied with an orange hair tie, blending with her hair. She kept her black high heels on, but didn't have her black stockings on. Lastly, her light blue shirt suit was gone. Instead, it was replaced with a casual light blue sundress that reached mid-thigh on her. If anything, she looked like a normal lady her age instead of a teacher. If she hadn't come to talk to him, he probably wouldn't have been able to recognize her. Heck, if they had walked past one another, he would have thought she was a beautiful lady walking by. Not to say he didn't think that she wasn't normally pretty. Just more on the lines, as his teacher, he didn't think of her anything past his teacher. But now,
"We're here,"
Chisa happily declared as they approached the ramen stand. Grinning to herself, she grabbed the arm of her student and playfully dragged him to the ramen stand. Chisa was just happy to have a friendly face on her day off, even if it was one of her students. The orange-haired beauty quickly sat down and padded to the seat next to her, waiting for her student to take a seat. Naruto didn't need to be told twice about taking a seat at a ramen stand.
"It's been so long since I had some ramen,"
Chisa off-mindlessly commented on, as she looked over the menu and wondered what she was in the mood for. Taking a glance over, she saw that Naruto didn't even bother to pick up the menu.
"Miso soup with extra pork."
The chef nodded his head as he started to prepare the meal for the prankster.
"That sounds good. Make it two."
Chisa gave the chef a smile as he nodded and went to prepare her meal for her. That left the two on their own, with nothing to talk about. That was partially due to the fact that besides being student and teacher, they didn't know one another. Chisa wasn't sure if she should be the one to start the conversation or not. Naruto, on the other hand, felt odd sitting with his teacher. Not that she was bad company, just they didn't know each other.
"I'm sure that it is weird seeing your teacher outside of the classroom."
Chisa felt that it was just easier being the one to break the ice than it would be for Naruto.
"No."
Naruto didn't feel that he knew Chisa well enough to tell her about Irika.
"You're just like anyone else. When you don't have to do your job, you just want to be a normal person. I'm more surprised that you wanted to hang out with a person like me." "Like you?" "Yeah. Just one of your students."
Naruto gave her a small laugh, while using one of his free hand to rub the back of his head. He was being honest about that. He was sure that she had better things to do than get lunch with one of her students. Maybe go out with her own friends. Or find a boyfriend. He really wasn't sure what she would be doing. But it had to better than being with him.
"I didn't see any reason why being one of my students would cause any problems."
Naruto focused his attention on her now.
"Just because you're one of my students doesn't mean that we can't be friends."
Naruto smiled at her kindness. She really was one of a kind.
"Yeah, I guess we can be friends after all. Friends it is."
Chisa grinned to the blonde. She even threw her fist into the air. She was excited that the prankster was slowly coming to trust her. That was good enough for her.
"Order up."
Nighttime. After his little lunch with Chisa, nothing had happened for the rest of the day. His new roommates were too busy with unpacking that nothing had happened when they returned to his house. Naruto didn't feel the need to tell the three that he spent his afternoon having lunch with Chisa. He didn't want them to get the wrong idea, nor spreading any rumors about Chisa to the other students at the school. The three didn't question the blonde on what he had done all day. They were just exhausted with all their packing to really question the blonde. Seeing that he had yet to take a shower, Naruto was heading back to his room. He needed to grab a change of clothes. Walking towards his room as quietly as he could, as to not disturb his slumbering roommates, Naruto was surprised that all three could pick out a room to call their own and not fight over which room they got. Then again, they were all about the same in size and in length. Naruto stopped walking when he heard soft footsteps coming towards his direction. Waiting to see who was walking around at this late hour, Naruto came face to face with Sonia, clad in her sleepwear, which consists of dark blue sleeping gown that reached to her knees. It did its job of protecting the young princess from wondering eyes. The blonde had to fight the blush from forming. But that did leave Naruto confused as to why she was walking around. This far in the house, there was nothing in his home, besides his room.
"Naruto-kun?"
The soft voice of Sonia Nevermind snapped the blonde from his thoughts as she walked towards the blonde.
"What are you doing up so late, Sonia?"
Naruto asked her, as she now stood in front of the blonde.
"Can we talk?"
A confused expression appeared on the prankster face, but he nodded nonetheless. Feeling that she didn't want to talk in the middle of the hallway, Naruto led the blonde princess outside towards the balcony. He was sure that the view of the garden would make it easier for them to talk. Both sat down as they gazed at the garden. Naruto waited for Sonia to start talking.
"I need to ask you a serious question. And please answer truthfully."
Naruto nodded his head, as he knew that she wouldn't be waiting to talk to him in the middle of the night if it wasn't important.
Are you really okay with all of us moving in with you?
Sonia had been bothered this all day long. Yesterday, she was okay with moving in without thinking of anyone else. But after a night of sleep, her senses came back to her. Naruto tapped his chin. That was an odd question. Did he have a problem with 3 ladies moving into his house without his permission? In a way, he did have a problem with it. But at the same, he didn't have a problem with it. It was just odd there was no clear way how he felt about what they did. Taking a second to glance over at the princess, he saw that her eyes were staring at the floor. A slight tremble in her hands. Naruto knew he needed to say something, anything.
I don't have a problem with you 3 moving in. But yesterday, you screamed to the sky about us moving in. That was just because I was surprised that all 3 of you wanted to move in.
Sonia turned her focus onto Naruto.
After having some time to think about it, I realized that it would be nice to have all 3 of you moved in. Can you please explain? I realized that it would be nice having people waiting for me when I get home. That I don't just come home to a lonely house. And that is a good enough reason to let all 3 of you stay.
Naruto was speaking from the heart. Being an orphan had always left Naruto with a strong feeling of loneliness. He even once told Irika about this. But now it was different. Maybe because these 3 girls were friends in their own special way. He just couldn't fully explain it.
Really?
Sonia was surprised. His reason was so simple, so pure.
Yeah.
Shrugging his shoulders, Naruto gave a small laugh.
Plus, if I really didn't want any of you here, I would have told you all to leave by now. Thank you, Naruto.
Standing up, Sonia dusted herself off.
Thank you for your kind words, Naruto. Now I can see well knowing that I am not a bother to you.
Sonia started to walk towards her room when she noticed something.
Are you going back to your room, Naruto?
Giving her a sleepish smile.
I still need to take a shower, Sonia. Plus, I can't stand up right now. My leg fell asleep.
Naruto laughed at himself. Sonia giggled to herself, but understood. Giving the blonde a short bow, she headed off to her room. Naruto watched as the princess left his view.
You can come out now,
Naruto calmly said, as he turned his gaze towards his garden. Within moments, the bushes around his garden started to move, and finally a figure emerged.
Uzumaki-san. How's it going, Pico-chan?
Naruto greeted the silvered-haired swordsman. She eyed the blonde standing in front of her. There was no way that he could have known that she was hiding in the bushes. She knew for a fact that she didn't make any noise when she was spying on the blonde. But with the fact that he knew she was out there hiding put the young lady on high alert. She could still remember the day when Chisa tried to play a prank on him. The murderous intent that came from him. Even though he was kind enough to find an animal to be brave enough to be.
How did you know I was here? Easy.
Giving himself a quick pat on his chest, Naruto stood up.
I am the ultimate prankster. If I allow anyone to sneak up on me, then I would disgrace my very title.
Naruto even struck a pose to show how serious he was. A anime-style sweat drop formed on the back of Pico's head. She had to think about this for a second. After a second of thinking about Naruto's words, she realized something. As a prankster, he had to sneak around to do said pranks. That meant he was an expert at sneaking. But did that really mean that anyone trying to sneak up on the blonde would have the same problem?
I see.
Pico took a quick glance around her, making sure that her surroundings were safe for her. Seeing that her surroundings had nothing for her to be suspicious of, she started to walk towards the blonde. Being part of the Yakuza meant she was always cautious of her surroundings, no matter how safe the area looked.
I see that Nevermind-san is here. I am not going to ask why she is here. But I did need to know if Lady Kazuri was also here.
While it might have sounded like a question, in reality, she knew that Natsumi was here. It was easy for her to know that Natsumi was here. She did use people from the Yakuza family to help her move. She was able to extract that information from those members that had helped her move. Even though Natsumi had moved here, her brother still hadn't been given any information as to where she had moved to, let alone as to why she had decided to move away. Even though Pico knew where Natsumi's location, she still hadn't given that information to Fuyuhiko yet. She had to make sure that Natsumi was safe first, before she did anything else.
Yeah, Natsumi is here. Do you want me to get her for you?
Naruto wasn't sure if the Kazuria family were having trouble back home or not. Then again, he was unaware of how Natsumi chose to leave her family.
Is she safe?
Naruto could see how her body stiffened, her hands slowly itching closer to her shurnai. He knew what those actions meant. She was preparing herself for a fight.
Does she think I kidnapped Natsumi?
Naruto thought to himself. He knew that his window to resolve this peacefully was closing, very quickly.
Natsumi is safe. Why is she here?
Naruto paused. He knew that was a good question. Why was Natsumi here in the first place? He didn't invite her to his home. He didn't even tell her where he lived to begin with. She just showed up and said she was going to be living here. Why was she here then?
I wish I knew.
Pico's gaze stayed on Naruto. He felt that she was glaring a hole into his skull. He knew that she wasn't satisfied with his answer.
She just showed up yesterday and told me she was going to be living from now. No. Is that all? As far as I know. If you're wondering if she was safe being here, I can safely tell you that she is. Plus here little intrusion seemed to be the invitation 2 other people needed to come live here.
Naruto muttered the last part to himself, but Pico heard him.
Master Fuyuhiko will not be pleased to hear about this. The fact that Lady Natsumi is now living with a boy, he will surely go on the warpath.
Pico knew that her master could be kind of a hothead at times. And being the overprotective brother that he was, he would want the head of Naruto.
She's not living here by herself, you.
Snapping out of her thoughts, she looked up to the blonde, wondering what he was going to say next.
Sonia and Ibuki are both living here now too.
He knew that telling by Pico about his 2 new roommates could be dangerous, but she had already seen Sonia. Maybe telling her that there was more people living here that Pico wouldn't feel the need to take any action. What is the harm of telling her that Sonia wasn't the only one living other than Natsumi? Even if it was 3 girls and 1 boy all living under one roof? For the silver-haired maiden, she had to think about her next course of action. If she acted rash, then someone would get hurt. Along with that, she might lose the trust of one of the Kazuria siblings. But she had a duty to protect them. Pico knew no matter what choice she was going to make, someone wasn't going to like her decision.
As long as you keep Lady Natsumi safe, then I am willing to make sure that Master Fuyuhiko does nothing to you.
Naruto nodded his head. A small grin broke out on the face of the blonde.
But I am warning you now, if anything should befall Lady Natsumi, then it will be your head. Don't worry, I don't plan for anything to happen to her while she stays here. That includes Sonia and Ibuki also.
Pico gave a quick nod of the head. Without saying another word, she walked away from the blonde. As soon as she was gone from my sight, Naruto let out a small sigh. He was not ready for this kind of talk so soon. Next day, before class started, Naruto rubbed the temples of his forehead. Even though his little late-night talk with Pico was still fresh on his mind, he just wasn't ready to deal with another day of school. Sonia and Ibuki were absent-mindedly talking to one another. They were unaware of Naruto's conversation with Pico last night. And Naruto wanted to keep it like that. He didn't want anyone to know about a late-night meeting with the silver-haired beauty, let alone his new roommates. As they were approaching their classroom, they noticed that Chisa was waiting outside her classroom.
Good morning, Yukizome-senpai.
The 2 girls said to their teacher, as Naruto just gave her a friendly wave of the hand.
Morning, you 3.
Chisa happily returned their greeting, even gave them a warm smile.
Uzumaki-san, can you please report the main office?
She stopped the blonde from entering her classroom. Did I do something?
Naruto asked calmly. While he might have acted calm on the outside, he was sweating bullets. Did the school find out about his new roommates? If so, was there rules against it? Would they be in trouble for him not putting his foot down? Many questions flood the mind of Naruto.
The other 2 girls standing next to him were no better. Their minds were panicking as much as his was.
Don't worry, you did nothing wrong. Kizakure-senpai just has a special assignment for you today. And he even told me that you would be out of class all day doing this project.
Chisa calmly told the blonde. She wasn't given the full details as to why Naruto was picked, nor why he would be out of class. All that she was given is that Naruto was the one he had picked. Knowing that there was no point of trying to fight with Chisa, since it was her boss that told her to tell him, he left. Sonia and Ibuki were confused as to why the blonde had to go to the office, but knew there was nothing they could do about it. It didn't take the blonde long to reach the office. Without missing a beat, he quickly knocked on the door to announce his arrival.
Come in!
Naruto heard the voice Koichi Kizakure call out from the other side. Taking a deep breath, Naruto walked into the office. Taking a second to look around for his true homeroom teacher, Naruto quickly spotted his teacher.
Oh, Uzumaki-san, just on time.
The elderly blonde greeted the other blonde. Naruto returned his greeting. Turning to face the young student, Koichi opened his mouth.
First thing, Uzumaki-san, you're not in trouble. Before I fully tell you why you're here, I need to explain some details about my job. Okay. Along with being your homeroom teacher, I am also in charge of scouting talent from all over world. And do what I can to make them come to Hope Peak Academy.
A quick nod of the head told Koichi that Naruto understood.
While Yukizome-san was busy teaching your class, I was hard at working at recruiting a young lady with tremendous talent. Okay. While the deal is almost finished, her last request before she agrees to come to our school is to be shown around the school. So, you're going to show her around the school?
Naruto didn't understand why he was called in here if Koichi was the one going to show the new girl around the school.
Normally I would, but she wanted someone from one of the classes to show her around. Not a old fat like me.
He muttered the last part to himself. That girl had said it to him in a much meaner way.
After some thought,
and picking a random name from my hat,
I decided that the great honor of showing her around would be you.
Naruto had to process the information. He was chosen to show the new girl around school. And he wasn't given any heads up about this little job. It just seemed odd to the blonde. There was no reason for him to be picked at all. But Naruto was still a little relief. They didn't call him into the office to talk about the 3 new roommates he now had. Naruto was snapped out of his thoughts when he heard the door open. Turning around, Naruto finally saw the young lady Koichi was talking about. Standing at the height of 5 feet 5 inches was a slim girl with pale skin. Her hair was tapped twin like drill pigtails. Her red eyes stared into the blonde blue eyes. Naruto took notice of 2 gold circular earrings, which have an image depicting the cross engraved into them with a red gem placed in the center of each ear. Her outfit is what caught Naruto by surprise. This young was dressed in the style Gothic Lolita, which consisting of a white blouse with a Peter Pan collar, a black jacket that includes white ribbon lacing down the sleeves, fastened by a simple white ribbon across her chest to reveal her red tie, consisting of a butterfly pattern layered on top of various spears with skulls attached to it, and the waist of her skirt, which is many-tiered and features white lace. Her legs had knee-high stockings trimmed in ladder lace, red Mary Janes, with a thick heel held on her feet by 3 gray buckles, a white lace mauve cap and a silver, gunmetal-plated ring layered in overlapping sections on her index finger. Looking at her index finger showed to Naruto that all of her fingers were all coated in black nail polish.
Uzumaki, Naruto, I would like to introduce you to Ludenberg Celestia.
Chapter 6, Prankster and Gambler. At this very moment, Class 77B were in a state of wonder. Their state of wonder was for one reason, and one reason only. They were all wondering what Naruto had done. Before class had started, Chisa Yukizome had told the blonde prankster that he had to report to the office. An hour had passed since the start of class, and no word on the blonde. They knew that the blonde could take care of himself, but as a class, they just wanted to make sure that Naruto was not in any serious trouble.
Sorry class, but I am going to be step out for a bit to check up on something,
Chisa announced to her class, as she placed a book down. Not saying another word, Chisa walked out of the classroom. The moment she had closed the door behind her, the class began talking.
You know the real reason Yukizome-senpai left the classroom, right?
Hyoko's voice cut through the classroom. Everyone stopped talking to see what the little dancer was going to say.
She is worried that her affair with Uzumaki-san has been revealed to her boss.
What? Everyone grasped in shock. Did she really just say that?
Hyoko, you know you were not supposed to say anything about yesterday.
Mahiro reprimanded the short dancer.
Wait, you said yesterday. Where did you see this?
Sonia almost slammed her hands on her desk and nearly shouted at the 2 girls. She wanted to know what these 2 saw. Maybe this was the reason the blonde didn't come with the girls to help them pack yesterday. They didn't need his help, but they would have still enjoyed his company nonetheless.
I think it was near the park. Maybe near the closest ramen stand.
Mahiro attempted to remember the details. Unlike her dancer friend, she had felt that the moment was meant to be a private moment. Not one needed to be shared. But Hyoko was a mischief type of person. As long as the gossip wasn't on her, she didn't care. Not one of her best traits, but Mahiro had none to say about.
That hussy!
Sonia angrily thought to herself. Everyone knew Naruto's love for ramen. It was the easiest way for him to do anything he wanted without him fighting back. While normally Sonia was a level-headed person, but with the thought that Chisa had lunch with a blonde, all rational thought flew out the window.
Ibuki doesn't think that happened at all.
Ibuki tried to defend her new roommate. At the same time, she didn't want to believe that those 2 had a lunch date.
Oh, what do you think those 2 actually did? Ibuki knows they were not having a ramen lunch date. They were planning something big for the class. Something that Ibuki knows that will be awesome.
The musician didn't know how to defend Naruto, but she could still deny Chisa outing.
But Ibuki, you can't deny that it's kind weird that Naruto and Chisa have both left the classroom. And if we saw it, that could mean other people from our school also saw it.
Mahiro tried to be reasonable to her fellow classmate. The redhead knew that Ibuki was one of the people closer to the blonde, but at the same time, she couldn't deny what she had saw.
Fools! The school has found out that none of my loyal animals would harm Naruto. They are trying to extract the information so that my loyal animals will not attack them.
Gunham voiced his own opinion on the matter. Everyone stared at the ultimate breeder, wondering if he truly believed his own statement. Seeing the serious expression on Gunham, everyone knew that he did.
All this talk about ramen is getting me hungry,
Akane muttered to herself as she plopped down on her desk. All this talk about food made the tan lady want to leave class and get a giant plate of food. Or maybe give Teruteru a quick glimpse of her bra strap, and he would do anything she wanted him to do.
I am sure that those two are secretly in a private room having a quick session with one another.
Hyoko snickered to herself. But no one heard her. Before the rest of the class could begin another debate on where their teacher and Prankster had vanished off into, the classroom door opened.
Sorry about that.
Chisa walked into the classroom.
I had to take care of an important matter. Here you go, milady. 1 royal milk tea.
Naruto gritted his teeth as he was forced to wait hand and foot on Celestia Lindenberg. Placing her tea down, Naruto waited for her next command. Being the butler of Celestia was not the way Naruto had envisioned his day. The little dark-haired lady even made Naruto dress in a butler outfit. She had a smirk on her face when she told Naruto to wear the butler suit. She had yet to accept the offer from the school. They had to do everything in their power to ensure that she said yes to coming to Hope Peak Academy. Taking a sip, Celestia let out a small hum of satisfaction. The way the flavors danced on her tongue, the sweet flavor as she sipped the tea down. Oh yes, her butler did a fine job on making her tea.
This tea is quite delicious. But I do need something else to go with this tea.
Naruto eyed twitch. He felt that her next order was going to be a pain in his butt.
I have not eaten all morning. Could you prepare a meal for me?
Naruto eyed twitch one again.
Yes, milady.
With a short bow, Naruto started walking towards the kitchen. Stay calm, were the words that Naruto had to chant to himself. He knew he was doing this for the school. He just had to suck it up. Quickly looking through the ingredients that were present in the kitchen, the blonde mentally thought of everything he could make. Walking to the gothic Lolita-dressed lady, Naruto opened his mouth.
Lady Lindenberg, after checking the kitchen, I have the ingredients to prepare gyoza.
Even though she tried to hide her surprised reaction, Naruto saw that her lip twitch.
That will be fine.
Taking a sip of her tea, she closed her eyes.
It has been some time since I had gyoza. It will suffice this time.
Taking that as his key, Naruto headed back to the kitchen to prepare her meal. Chiaki was bored. This boredom of hers was above her standard levels. Normally all she needed to do was play one of her games, and she could shave off the boredom, but this time, that was not the cure. Maybe because she was on her 6th playthrough on her current game. Or maybe because she also had other important matters on her mind. What were those other matters weighing on her mind? Simple. She was worrying about Hajime. For the past few days, Hajime was asking her odd questions. And all of them were strange questions. They ranged from did she enjoy being on the main campus, or did she ever wish she was just a normal girl, and even asked her if she felt any sort of freedom from having her title as the ultimate gamer. They were odd questions, and she tried to answer them to the best of her abilities. But the way Hajime replied to her answers made her feel that she didn't answer them the way he was hoping for. She just didn't know what to do. Taking a glance around, Chiaki saw that almost everyone was in class. The only one missing from her class was Naruto. Taking a second to think about as to why he was not in class, she slowly remembered that Naruto was asked to go to the office. She only remembered that because she was walking behind Naruto when Chisa told him to go to the office. But since then he has yet to return. As class rep, she should ask Chisa if there was any trouble going on with the blonde. Maybe even try to help him if he was in trouble. She also felt like it would give her a good chance to talk with the blonde about Hajime. She knew that the prankster had no issues with the reserve course students. She could see if the blonde could think of any reason why Hajime was acting weird.
The gyoza you had prepared was excellent.
Celestia wiped the side of her mouth with a tissue. She didn't want the blonde to know that gyoza was one of her favorite food in the world. But with her high-class teachings, she couldn't let anyone know about her guilty pleasure. That was one secret she was going to keep to herself.
Thank you, Lindenberg Dono.
Naruto gave her a fake smile, even a short bow. Hopefully that was the last of her demands, otherwise he might lose it. Naruto had a firm belief that everyone was equal. Being treated like a servant only annoyed and slightly angered the blonde prankster.
You are dismissed for now.
Celestia went back to drinking her tea. Closing her eyes, she enjoyed the blissful moment. She had everything she wanted for now. Now she just wanted a moment of peace and quiet while she enjoyed herself.
So you don't need me for now?
Naruto wanted to make sure that he could leave Celestia unsupervised for a brief moment. Cracking one eye open, Celestia looked at the blonde.
Is there something more important than doing your task?
Rubbing the back of his head, Naruto wasn't sure how to answer. He did what came naturally to him.
I had something planned for a person today. It must be a big deal if you can't postpone it. You can say that. Then be off.
Taking another sip of her tea, Celestia looked at the blonde.
But the moment I am finished with my tea and gyoza, I expected you here.
Naruto was surprised at the dark-haired girl action. but also knew that she wasn't doing this out of the kindness of her heart. She had nothing for him to do, and didn't want to seem cruel by making him stand around and do nothing. She just wanted to be kind for the moment. But he was willing to take the opportunity when he could. Giving her a quick wave, the blonde was out the door. Hyoko was feeling giddy. This day had been such a great day for the small dancer. First, Mikon had fallen down when she had walked into the classroom and hit a desk table. Even now, when she took a glance at Mikon, she could still see a small bump on her forehead. Second, Naruto was told to go to the office, and he had yet to reappear since then. She had nothing against the blonde, but with this one action, she was able to spring her plan into motion. Which lead to number 3 as to why she was having a great day. Third, she was able to tell her class about the student and teacher relationship. Since she brought it up, the class was still in a buzz. She did feel a small amount of remorse at throwing her teacher under the bus, but she felt that it was okay due to the fact that she wanted to cause mischief. She felt a small cold shiver go down her spine. Looking around, she saw that no one else was in the locker room with her. Then again, no one should be, since she had to leave P early so that she could have plenty of time to put her kimono back on. With her being one of the few students that didn't wear the school uniform due to the fact that her talent required her to wear a specific type of clothing. Sometimes it was a pain when it came to changing her clothes, but besides that, she had no problem walking around in her kimono. In fact, she had some pride in that fact. Taking a moment to listen to her surroundings, Hyoko heard no noise in the locker room. She looked around making sure that she was alone, and once again, she saw no one in the locker room. She felt that maybe due to the fact that she was in the middle of changing clothes, that cold shiver she felt came from being slightly undressed. Looking down, she saw that she had forgotten to grab her sandals. When she reached into her locker, she found a small bag of gummies resting by her sandals, along with a note. From your secret admirer. She wasn't surprised that she had a secret admirer. From all of her dancing across overseas, she had a large fan base. This wasn't anything new to her. Picking up her sandals and gummy bears from her locker, she noticed that the gummy bears were all of the sweet flavor. No sour ones mixed in. A large grin formed on her face. She was going to massacre these gummies like there was no tomorrow. Grabbing a couple of gummies, she quickly popped them into her mouth. She felt the blissful sensation. Her face started to pucker. She had odd flavors coursing through her mouth. One tasted like hot sauce, another tasted like sour lemon. A spicy sour flavor was going through her mouth, and she hated it. She tried to spit them out of her mouth, but quickly found out that her mouth was trapped shut. Struggling to open her mouth, she did everything she could think of to spit out the sour gummies. Panicking, she paced back and forth. But still nothing. Crash. She fell over her own obi and fell flat on her back. Her falling down did give her the ability to swallow the awful gummies. They were just as nasty in her mouth as they were going down her throat. Cracking an eye open, she saw a bag looming over her fallen form. Opening her mouth to let out a scream, but it was too late. The bag fall on her. A giant white cloud covered her entire body. Still staring into the ceiling, she felt 2 drips of liquid hit her face. Before she could question it, she felt something light hit her stomach. Grabbing said item, she wondered what hit her. She saw that it was a small envelope. Ripping it open, she found 2 items in the envelope. One was a small handheld mirror and a note. She decided to read the note before looking into the mirror. Payback. A small chibi 9-tailed fox was drawn on the note. Fuming at the note, she wondered who would play this prank on her. She brought the mirror to check herself out. She saw her reflection, and her reflection showed that she now looked like a mime. Naruto was laughing silently to himself. He just saw his prank on Hyoko go off without a hitch. Why did he prank the young dancer? Simple. It was payback for messing with the soup and lacing it with aphrodisiacs. He did not forget what she had done. All that had happened was that he was delayed on pranking her. If it wasn't for minor distractions, he would have gotten her sooner.
So, that's what was so important, you had to leave me.
Yeah. Naruto nodded his head. Seeing Hyoko looking like a mime was a good enough reason for him to agree with the person standing next to him. Wait a minute. Taking a step back, he turned his focus to his right, wondering who was near him. Celestia was the one standing next to him, with a giant smirk on her face. She was even tapping her index finger to her cheek. She had caught the blonde. The act alone was a hit on his pride as a prankster. A prankster should never allow himself to get caught before, during, and after a prank.
I wonder what the school will say if they found out about your prank on a fellow student. Or the fact that you left me alone while your task for the day was to convince me to join next year.
She taunted him, her smirk growing larger by the second. But Naruto was sweating bullets. He knew that the school wouldn't punish him severely, but she had dirt on him. What to do?
How about a bet?
This caught her attention.
What kind of bet?
A small shiver went down the spine of both of them. But the grin on her face never left her face. She had him in the palm of her hand now. Pulling out a deck of cards from his pocket, Naruto quickly shuffled the cards.
If I win, you don't say anything. And you have to agree to join the school. Agree. If I win, then you will be my servant.
Naruto nodded.
Highest hand wins.
Celestia nodded her head and quickly gained a serious expression on her face.
The rules for this game are simple. One hand to win. No do-overs.
Naruto nodded his head.
Let's make this quick. I have a plan to catch.
Without further ado, Naruto gave Celestia her 5 cards and took his 5 cards.
Straight flush.
Showing him her hand, she lined her cards down. From 5 through 9. Celestia grinned triumphantly. There was no way for her to lose. Nothing could beat her hand. Her luck outshine. A glance at the blonde, she showed the worry expression on the blonde face. She knew that expression. She had one.
Since I have one, you should dash. Royal flush.
In Naruto's hands was the only hand that could beat a straight flush. The one hand that was based off nothing more than pure luck.
That was close.
Letting out a breath of air, Naruto grabbed the cards and placed them in their deck. He didn't have to become a servant. And Koichi would get that student that he wanted.
Bullshit.
Grabbing Naruto by the collar of his suit, she shook him violently. All she saw was red. She was the best gambler in the world. No one could beat her luck.
How the fuck did you get the one hand that beat mine? I have never lost a match before. I have never lost a gambling match either.
Naruto said calmly, already feeling that Celestia's entire being was based off her gambling skills. The fact that she lost meant she didn't know how to deal with a lose. Celestia, remembering who she was, able to quickly recompose herself. She knew that she had lost her cool facade. But this was her first lose. She was supposed to be the ultimate gambler. That was the title she was being given to her.
I am sorry for my little outburst.
Celestia tried to regain her cool facade in front of the blonde prankster.
But I will concede in my defeat. And will honor my end of the bet. Koichi is going to be happy you're joining our class.
Naruto was more amazed at how she tried to play off her little outburst. He never seen someone go from angry to calm in such a short amount of time.
I will inform him.
Celestia slowly walked towards the exit.
Where are you going? I have a plane to catch. While I did agree to join the school, I will be joining this school at the start of the next school year.
Turning around, she pointed a finger at the blonde.
But know this. I will not take this defeat lying down. I will make sure this was the only time I will lose.
And with that, she walked away from the blonde. Naruto had only one thought going through his head. He needed ramen. Chapter 7. Let's hope. If there was one word that Naruto would use to describe his day so far, it would be difficult. Plain and simple, it was difficult. From the moment he was told that he had to be Celestia's guide, he knew that his day was going to be difficult. And he can safely say he was proven right. From her making him dress as a servant, to her making him cook her meals, and finally to her gambling match, she did not make his day easy. Now that she was gone, Naruto knew that was the perfect chance for him to get some rest. He knew that maybe he should have gone back to class, but seeing that he was given a free pass for the day, he decided against it. After a short walk, Naruto saw his home was in view. He could already feel his soft mattress resting below him. Hurrying his pace, he quickly opens the door to his home. Now all there was left was for him to reach his room and get some form of rest before the rest of his roommates arrived and took that away from the young blonde. Oh, the bed was calling to him. Just a few feet away, and he will be gone from the world of reality and into the world of slumber. Opening his house door, Naruto quickly shut the door behind him. A happy grin forming on the blonde face.
Oh, Naruto! You're back early!
A voice called from the living room. Naruto stopped in his tracks and slowly turned to the source of the voice. Standing in his living room was none other than Natsume Kazuryu. She had a simple short sleeveless white blouse on, with a black skirt that ended just above her knees. But what caught the attention of Naruto was the fact that over her current clothes was a pink apron on.
Yeah.
He didn't know how to respond back to the young lady. He had several questions floating around in his head, but felt that he should start with an easy one.
Why are you not in class? Well, even though my suspension is now over, I felt that today was more of a me day than a school day.
Natsume waved off his question, not seeing what the issue was. Normal teenagers skipped classes all the time. Plus, she had a second reason as to skipping class today. Not something that Naruto needed to know. Naruto gave a slow nod of the head. He didn't want to further question the young Yakuza any further. Plus, the more he talked with her, the less time he had reaching his bed.
Okay.
Naruto let out a small yawn.
Oh, you're tired.
Natsume eyebrow rose. She had never seen the blonde yawn for the short amount of time she has known him.
Nothing that a quick nap won't fix. Do you want me to run you a shower before you go to bed?
Naruto sprung around and noticed a faint red tint to the cheeks of Natsumi.
It's the least I could do with you know everything that has happened so far.
The blonde was surprised by the kind offer from the blonde-haired lady. It seems off for the young lady to offer to run a bath. But at the same time, Naruto didn't want to force her from doing the task.
No, don't trouble yourself. I was planning to take a shower once I woke up from my nap. You sure?
Natsumi eyed the blonde. She was going out of her way to draw him a shower. The least he could do was take her up on the offer.
I am sure.
Naruto gave her a small grin, and then started to walk towards his bedroom. Natsumi watched as the blonde was walking away from her view, a small frown forming on her face. But she quickly brushed the frown off her face. There is still other things that she could do while the blonde napped. Giving the fellow female blonde a wave, Naruto started his journey towards his bedroom. Natsumi returned his friendly wave as she watched the blonde male walk away. It wasn't long before Natsumi went back to her actives. She had a grand plan, and it will not be long before she set off her plan. Crash, groaning, Naruto sat up. Something crashing onto the floor is what awoken the blonde prankster. Taking a quick glance over his bedroom, Naruto quickly realized that the noise came from outside his bedroom. Rubbing his eyes, the blonde slowly walked out of his room. The sight that Naruto was greeted with was one of a bookie drumming in the living room, Sonia holding her forehead, and lastly Natsumi holding a spatula in her hand.
Oh hey, you're awake.
Natsumi casually greeted the blonde as he walked into the living room, kitchen area. She eyed Sonia, wondering if she should do something to help the young princess. Naruto returned her greeting and eyed the three girls.
Ibuki is so happy that you're awake.
Ibuki tackled the blonde, a large grin on her face forming. Naruto quickly caught the young lady and gave a quick hug, but his focus was more on Sonia. He notices that a small red mark was forming on her forehead. Did she hurt herself?
How long was I asleep?
Naruto asked, as he felt that his nap wasn't long. He felt it was more like he closed his eyes and then heard something crashing.
3 hours. I started cooking dinner.
Natsumi answered him as she walked back into the kitchen. She still had to finish preparing the dinner for everyone. She didn't have time to help Sonia out.
What happened?
He still had to wonder why Ibuki was drumming in the living room and why Sonia had a red marking forming on her head.
Ibuki tried to help make dinner.
Natsumi let out a small laugh that went unnoticed by all but Naruto. But Ibuki continued with her explanation.
But when Ibuki tried helping prepare the chicken, Ibuki was told that she was not allowed to use her flamethrower to cook in the kitchen.
After they stopped Ibuki from using the flamethrower, I was told to play the music to help with them get in the mode to cook.
Ibuki's head had fallen by the end of her story, and she almost sounded defeated. Naruto gave her head a quick pat. The young lady mode quickly changed sad to happy.
Naruto now turned his attention to Sonia.
And what happened to you? Well.
Flashback.
Since Ibuki-san will no longer be bothering us, can you grab the pots off the top shelf?
Natsumi told the princess, as she went to grab the ingredients for their dinner. If the other ladies wanted to help with making dinner tonight, then she was going to make them help in some way. But she felt that neither girl was going to be much help in the kitchen. But she was doing everything that she could not to lash out towards the two ladies. That was the price she had to pay for trying to be a kinder person.
I will be happy to.
Sonia walked towards the shelf and attempted to reach for the pots. Standing on her tippy toes, her fingertips were mere inches away from touching the pot. Bam, bam, bam. Sonia nearly jumped out of her skin at the sudden loud banging. But because she was on the tip of her toes, she fell forward, banging her head on the kitchen counter and falling on her backside. A loud crashing sound went through the house as one of the pots fell and landed next to her. Standing on shaky legs, she rubbed her forehead and turned around. She quickly realizes the loud banging was coming from Ibuki as she set up a small drum set in the living room. She gave the young musician a light glare. Flashback end.
And that is what happened to me.
Sonia finished telling her story as she felt a small headache forming. She winces lightly whenever her hand touched her forehead, but felt that her rubbing her forehead would ease the bump. Naruto let out a silent chuckle. He found the whole ordeal to be a funny event that seemed only could happen around his home. After taking a second to regain his composure, Naruto felt that there was still something he could do to help with the situation.
Natsumi, are you okay with finishing the dinner by yourself?
Natsumi gave him a quick nod of the head. Even if she grew up with people waiting hand and foot on her, she felt that she still had to learn some skills. One of them happened to be cooking.
Ibuki, can you put your drum set back in your room?
Even though it sounded like a question, it was more of a command. Ibuki gave him a quick two-finger salute and went off to her drum set. She could assemble and disassemble drum sets in a matter of minutes. It was part of her talent. Something she was grateful to learn.
Sonia, can you come with me?
Naruto didn't wait for her answer, as he grabbed her hand and gently led her to the restroom. Letting go of her hand, he ran the water and grabbed a towel.
It's fine, Naruto.
She didn't Naruto to go out of his way to help her.
It's only a small bump. Nothing to worry about.
She gave him a light smile and tried to show that the bump was not affecting her anymore. But the moment she touched her forehead, she let out a small winch of pain.
Even if it's nothing to worry about, I would still rather make sure you're okay,
Naruto told her, as he places the towel under the water. Within moments, he felt the water had gotten cold enough. He took the towel and gently placed it on her forehead.
Naruto, please don't.
Sonia stopped mid-sentence, as she felt her headache slowly faded away. A small smile was forming on her face. She couldn't believe that her headache was going away from such a simple gesture. What she didn't notice was that Naruto's hand was glowing a light green. The pain slowly faded away. Sonia smiled at Naruto. The young princess was truly touched by the kindness from the blonde prankster. For a moment, just for a fleeting moment, Sonia felt her heart skipped a beat. She felt her cheeks slowly heating. But the young lady knew that she had to force those thoughts from her out of mind. Later that night.
Wait! We're having a school trip at the end of the week.
Naruto repeated the question, as he placed his plate in the sink. While he knew that missing a day of school would mean that he had a day of catching up to do, he didn't think that he would miss such a large announcement. Ibuki happily nodded her head as she was nearly bouncing out of her seat.
Yukizomi-senpai said we are going to a beach for our trip. Ibuki is so happy.
The young lady couldn't stay in her seat any longer. Jumping to her feet, Ibuki proudly stood in front of the three.
Ibuki is going to rock the entire beach.
Ibuki is going to rock the beach so hard that waves will cover the sun. Then after that Ibuki will. Everyone could only watch as the young lady kept listing everything that she was going to do at the beach. At some point through her little rumbling, the other three turned the attention back to the conversation at hand.
I am also thrilled,
Sonia told her fellow blondes. Clapping her hands together, little stars started to form in her eyes.
It will be the first time that I will ever visit a beach. There is so many swimsuits for me to buy, and so many activities that can only be experienced on the beach.
Sonia could already picture herself on the beach. She became so engrossed in her thoughts that she became lost from the outside world. Quick as lightning, Ibuki appeared in front of Sonia. Grabbing the hands of the young princess, Ibuki, with stars in her eyes.
Sonia, you will have the most rocking swimsuit on. And your swimsuit will match Ibuki's swimsuit. With our swimsuits combined, we will rock the beach like there's no tomorrow.
Ibuki declared. A determined grin was plastered on her face. She could already envision the day before her. Sonia, on the other hand, could only do one thing. She nodded her head agreeing with Ibuki's plan. For Sonia, it was the best thing she heard so far. She wanted to spend the day with her friends in a normal setting. Everything that she always wanted growing up. The two ladies quickly became lost in their own little world, chatting away about what they were going to do on their trip to the beach. They'd both forgotten that there were two other people in room with them. But maybe they just didn't care at the moment. Either way, they knew their trip was going to be a great day for them.
Are you going?
Naruto asked Natsumi, feeling that the two ultimates were not going to be rejoining them anytime soon. Naruto was not sure if that was a good thing or not. But at the same time, he didn't want Natsumi to feel left out.
I don't think so.
Natsumi saw from the corner of her eye that Naruto had a confused expression on his face.
It's not that I wouldn't like to come, but...
Natsumi trailed off, not sure how to word the next part.
But...
Naruto was waiting for the rest of her explanation.
But I think it's only meant for your class. It's not a trip for a student in the reserve course.
Natsumi mumbled the last part to herself. Naruto heard her, and due to her words, a frown found its way on his face, but only for a second.
That sucks.
Naruto let out a small whine.
It would have been nice if you can come along with us.
Naruto reassured her. Natsumi gave the blonde a small smile. She was grateful to hear that Naruto wanted her to come along. She knew that his words were not hollow. She knew that the blonde meant what he said. Natsumi's mind had a startling revelation. When she finally reaches her dream of reaching the super high school talent level, she would never be forced to miss events like these ever again. These were the events that she wanted to partake in. She wanted nothing but fond memories of her high school years. She wanted these memories to include her brother, Pico, Naruto, heck even these two girls were people she wanted to share those memories with.
Naruto.
The blonde focuses his attention on the small blonde.
Just please have enough fun for the both of us.
Naruto gave her a foxy smile and nodded his head. He would do just that. Days later, Class 77B had their bags in hand, as they awaited their chance to load the bus with their luggage. Everyone was told to bring 3 days worth of clothes on their trip to the beach resort. The beach resort was where Class 77B was going, while 77A were going to be off in another destination. Plus, Chisa felt that this was the best way for her class to grow closer together with one another. Everyone in Class 77B could hardly contain their excitement as they chatted with one another about the trip. Naruto took a glance around him. Nothing seemed odd so far, but for some odd reason the blonde felt an odd chill around him. Almost like an impending doom. But he couldn't figure out as to why he felt like that.
Everyone listen up!
Chisa shouted, catching everyone's attention. Everyone stopped their chatting and looked at the orange-haired teacher.
While I have trust in all of you, I also know that I can't keep my eyes on all of you. Because of that, some of the upperclassmen offered to chaperone on this trip.
Naruto felt the hair on the back of his neck stand up. Did she do what he think that she had done?
Can everyone please welcome Kimura, Seiko, and Ando, Ruruka?
Chisa announced as a pale young lady appeared next to the orange-haired teacher. She gave them a bow.
Please take care of me.
While everyone was returning her greeting, Naruto, on the other hand, was looking in every direction. Seiko was kind and polite. She was not the person Naruto was not looking for. She was not the person that Naruto was worrying about. Looking side to side, Naruto still hasn't seen a single trace of the ultimate confectioner.
Who are you looking for, Na-Ra-2?
The voice sounded sweet. But Naruto knew better. He knew that her tone meant that he was in a world of pain and suffering. Taking a big gulp, Naruto did the one action that entered his mind. He ran. Ruruka didn't hesitate and followed the blonde. Everyone else could only stare in shock. They couldn't make heads or tails of what was going on in front of them. But for some odd reason, they felt that it was normal occurrence for their class. At the same time, at the beach resort, click, 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 the sound of cameras clicking and flashing. A large group of men and women were taking photos of one young lady. Their focus was on a young lady posing for them. Her figure seems to be bursting out from her clothing. She was only dressed in a two-piece cream-colored bikini, was a young lady with long pale blonde hair that were tied in twin ponytails. She placed her slim finger on her lips, giving the digit a lick, with her coming to a stop at the end of her long red fingernail. While her bright blue eyes seemed to show nothing but joy, but she felt dulled on the inside. These fake smiles, along with these fake people, brought her nothing but despair. And she loved it. She was waiting for the day that her plans will finally commence, where these people would be filled with nothing but despair. She was waiting for that day. All these pathetic people were just faceless people in her mind.
That's all for now,
the producer shouted. That caused everyone to stop taking photos and walked away from the young.
You were great,
the producer told the young model.
Thank you for all of your hard work, Inashima, Junko.
Chapter 8, A Talk Before the Beginning. Class 77B were happily chatting with one another on the bus ride to the beach. After watching Naruto being chased around by Ruruka for a good amount of time, they were finally able to get on the bus and start their long drive to the beach. While many people would say that the super high school talents were different types of people and were not like normal people, many of them would be wrong. Just like anyone their age, they were discussing what they were going to do at the beach, what they were going to eat at the resort, and so much more. All they had to do was endure a long 4-hour trip to the beach.
Kimura-san.
The pale lady focuses her attention on the young lady sitting next to her. Everyone on the bus had chosen to sit with someone on their way to the resort.
What is it? Never mind, San.
Seiko responded to the young princess.
This might be rude for me to ask, but why is Naruto-san afraid of Ando-san?
Sonia was unsure if it was her business to get into the personal life of the blonde prankster. But she was also concerned about Naruto's weird reactions when he was around Ruruka. Seiko's face slowly changed into a puzzled expression. She had to repeat the question in her mind. Why is Naruto afraid of Ruruka? After several moments of silence passed by for the two, Seiko started to quietly laugh to herself.
Naruto is far from being afraid of Ruruka.
Sonia rose an eyebrow at pale lady, as a confused expression appeared on her features. Seiko saw the expression on the underclassmen and quickly realized that she had to explain.
It might seem like it, but Naruto and Ruruka is like that of a brother and sister.
Now Sonia was even more confused. The way those two interacted with one another seemed far from being a brother-sister relationship.
Ruruka cares for the well-being of Naruto.
She always wants to make sure that Naruto is eating well, sleeping well, and most importantly, she wants to make sure that Naruto is enjoying his time at Hope Peak Academy.
But it doesn't seem like Naruto returns that kindness to Ruruka?
Sonia responded back. As all the encounters she had seen with the two, she always saw Naruto running away from the upperclassmen.
I guess that's how it looks from your point of view,
Seiko said to Sonia.
Naruto does care for Ruruka. But from what I know of Naruto, he is not the type that likes the idea of others worrying for him. He's the type that would do everything in his power to make sure that happy and safe before he even thinks of his own well-being.
If anyone were to harm Ruruka or anyone close to him, then there will be nothing safe from the wrath of Naruto. I think he enjoys that Ruruka sees herself as sister, but doesn't want her to go out of her way for his well-being.
Seiko finished telling Sonia.
She felt that it was not the best explanation of their friendship, but it was the best way for her to describe their relationship. Sonia nodded her head. She felt that she got a little better understanding of the person that is known as Naruto Uzumaki. Glancing over at said blonde, she couldn't help but let out a light giggle as she watches Naruto moving his head away from Ruruka as she tried to share a drink with the blonde. This was proved to be unsuccessful. At the resort, Junko and Ashima couldn't help but feel giddy. She didn't know where the feeling was coming from, nor the reason as to why she would be feeling giddy, but she was. She had an odd feeling coursing through her body, as she felt something large was about to happen. She almost felt as though everything was going to change. A life-changing event was around the corner. And she knew no matter what this mystery event will be, she will do everything in her power to cause nothing but despair. Donning a large grin on her face, she stared outside her hotel window. She heard the waves crashing, and a bright sun beaming down on the beach, but it was nothing she felt anything towards. She knew that everyone would enjoy a place like this. In fact, she knew that anyone would do anything to visit a place like this. But it did nothing for her. She felt empty looking at the beach in front of her. Walking away from her hotel window, she took a second to think about what her next course of action would be. Her plan to cause nothing but despair around the world was the big plan. But how was she going to do so? Back with Class 77B, everyone in Class 77B were done with the hard part of the trip. Now they only had to do a few more actives before they would start enjoying the beach. The entire class stared in awe at the 4-story building in front of them. They were in awe at the 5-star hotel that they will be staying in for the next few days. First was unloading their luggage, then checking in, and about 1 or 2 more other things that must be done before they could truly start enjoying the school field trip.
I wonder if we're going to pick our own rooms,
Naruto thought to himself, as this was the first time he had a school field trip in his life. Missions that required him to rent a room from a hotel were not a school field trip. Those missions were paid using their own money, not through someone else's. The academy never took the kids in training out for anything. Then again, who would take a bench of kids ninja out of a village?
All right, listen up,
Chisa shouted to get all of her students' attention. Everyone stopped what they were doing and looked at the orange-haired teacher, wondering why she was shouting.
Before we check in, there is some grounds rules you all need to hear.
Taking a breather, Chisa, continue.
First and most important,
you all are representing Hope Peak Academy. Be on your best behavior. Next, since there are 16 students, you all will have a roommate to share a room with. Before anyone gets happy about that, I have a sign who will be roommates with who. There will not be any girl or boy sharing the same room. Everyone nodded their head.
I will now list who will be bunking with who. Since they're chaperoning Kimura, Seiko, and Ando, Ruruka will be sharing a room.
The 2 girls gave one another a smile. They were all right with that arrangement.
Nanami, Chiaki, and Owari, Akane.
The 2 girls glanced at one another and wonder how they were going to interacting with one another.
Saionji, Hyoko, and Koizumi Mahiru. Pikoyama, Piko, and Myota, Ibuki.
That had everyone wondering. How was the loudest girl in their class going to get along with the quietest girl in the class? Ibuki didn't notice the looks her classmates were giving her as she tackled the silver-haired lady. Ibuki was happy with anyone that she was going to be paired up with. And Piko, on the other hand, felt a small headache was forming. She would rather have the same room as her master than with Ibuki.
Sumiki, Mikon, and nevermind, Sonia.
Chisa listed off the final female pairing. Sonia smiled. She was more than grateful to be partnered up with the young nurse. Mikon, on the other hand, seemed to be nervous. A frightened expression was on her face as she thought of all the ways of to not upset the young princess.
Nekomaru, Nidai, and Mitarai, Ryota.
Ryota quickly became nervous. Thoughts of how Nidai was going to break his spirit were running through his head. Nidai, on the other hand, was just happy hearing who his roommate was.
Kamita, Nagito, and Kazuryu, Fuyuhiko.
The only comment made was one from Nagito. His comment was about how he was lucky to be paired up with such a bright talent. Fuyuhiko only shook his head. He knew it was going to be a rough few nights.
Tanaka, Gunham, and Teruteru, Hanamura. And finally, Soda, Kazuchi, and Uzumaki, Naruto.
Chisa listed off the final names off her list. That caught Naruto by surprise. He had nothing against rooming with the pink-haired mechanic, but then again, he was not that close with said mechanic. Plus, the blonde also knew that Kazuchi had a crush on Sonia. Almost everyone knew about his crush. Well, almost everyone. Sonia didn't seem to know how his crush. Or maybe she did, and just chose to ignore his advances. Either way, the blonde knew that it was going to be an awkward time. After hearing this assigned roommates, everyone grabbed their bags and began entering the hotel. As soon as Naruto grabbed his bags and turned around, but before he could even take a step forward, he felt a hand on his shoulder. Turning around, he came face to face with none other than Chisa Yukizome.
Hey Uzumaki-san, as soon as you put your bags into your room, can you come find me in the lobby? We have something to talk about.
Naruto nodded his head, but he was wondering what the orange-haired beauty needed him for. A short time later, after getting his room keys and placing his bags into the room, and giving a half-assed reason as to where he was going to Kazuchi, Naruto was on the elevator heading down to the lobby to see what Chisa wanted with him. Naruto went through everything that he has done recently, and knew there was nothing he had done lately to have his teacher need to talk with him. If it was the prank on Hyoko, then it felt like it was late to talk to him about it now. Days had already passed since that prank was unleashed. After pondering about the reason as to why Chisa wanted to talk with him, Naruto felt the elevator come to a stop. Snapping out of his thoughts, the blonde looked up and saw the doors up. Taking a few steps out, Naruto scanned the lobby wondering where Chisa was at. It didn't take him long to find his homeroom teacher sitting on a sofa. And by the looks of it, she was lost in thought.
Hi, Yukizome-senpai.
Naruto greeted his teacher as he walked up to her. She snapped out of whatever she was thinking about and turned her attention to the blonde. Giving the blonde a smile, she stood up.
Hiya, Uzumaki-san. Happy that you didn't take long on finding your room.
Chisa cheerfully told him, as she gave herself a light patting. She didn't want to look messy in front of her student.
What did you want to talk to me about? Oh, you just want to jump straight into it?
Chisa rose and eyebrowed him. Naruto knew there was no better time than the present. And at the same time, he felt that Chisa was teasing him a bit. Maybe it was the way she said jumping straight into it, or maybe she wanted to have a laugh at the expense of the blonde prankster. Naruto nodded his head.
Well, if you're so eager to jump straight into it, then we have to go somewhere private.
Chisa told Naruto, as she started to walk towards the rooms that were in the first floor. The rooms on the first floor were not for guests, they were meant for private conversations between people. Mainly for the staff for the hotel, but a guest can use the room. As long as they cleared it with the hotel staff before doing anything else. Along with them being private rooms, they also had no windows for people to see into. The ideal way for Chisa to chat with Naruto without anyone knowing what they were doing. The two walked towards a desk and sat down. Naruto sat across from the orange-haired lady, while Chisa gave him a friendly grin as she placed her hands on her lap.
I hope you know that this school field trip was planned before Rakant's events forced my hand.
Chisa began, making Naruto wonder what she was being forced to do.
The school wants to know why you didn't feel the need to notify them for the conflict between Sato and Natsumi.
Naruto didn't let any sort of reaction show itself in front of Chisa. But it did leave him wondering how he was going to get himself out of this. With Sonia and Mikon, Sonia smiled as she looked around the room. Her room had a nice comfy vibe to it. Almost like she could pick any spot in the room and just relax. Taking a second to make sure her belongings were in their proper place, she walked towards the window. The view she was given was breathtaking. A view of the calm blue ocean, as birds flew over the ocean. Sonia knew that oceans normally have a great view, but for the young princess, this was the first time ever visited the ocean. Crash! The sound of something crashing broke her out of her thoughts. Turning around, she came to the side of Mikon's fallen form. By the looks of it, Mikon somehow managed to trip over her own luggage and fall face first onto the floor. And her panties were now showing. Rushing to the young nurse's side, Sonia helped Mikon back to her feet.
Are you okay?
Nodding her head.
Hi. Don't worry, never mind, San. I am used to tripping over my own 2 feet.
Mikon reassured the princess, as she rubbed her forehead. No bruise formed, but she did feel a slight pain.
You are slightly clumsy,
Sonia bluntly said to the nurse. This was not Sonia trying to be rude towards Mikon. But from what Sonia had seen, since the school year started, she had seen Mikon trip over her feet at least 3 to 4 times a day. That amount just felt unnatural to Sonia. Plus, with the fact that most of her trips typically ended up with Mikon in some indecent poses. She just hopes that these clumsy incidents will not get so bad that she exposed herself.
Eep.
Mikon cowered a bit at Sonia's statement. She didn't want to be a burden to Sonia with her personal issues.
I am so sorry.
Mikon's timid voice made Sonia worry about the nurse.
You did nothing to worry Tsumaki-san.
Clapping her hands into her hands, Sonia gave Mikon a bright smile.
I am just worried about a friend of mine. You should not apologize.
Mikon could only nod her head. They were kind words to hear from the princess. They had little interactions with one another, and yet Sonia saw her as a friend. Those might be the kindest words that she had heard all day. Back with Naruto and Chisa.
After finding the bat in question, you felt that it was okay to not notify anyone on staff about the growing tension between these two ladies?
Chisa questioned the blonde, as she heard his side of the story about his actions. He had gotten to the part about finding a bat and the harm it could do, but he had yet to give an actual reason why he didn't report it.
I didn't want anything to happen to either one if I did report the bat,
Naruto calmly told his teacher. Chisa let out a sigh. She knew that it was going to be hard to gain a full explanation from the blonde. She gave a quick glance over at the blonde sitting in front of her, and she knew one thing from the way the blonde had himself poised. He was firm on his choice.
You have to understand, Uzumaki-san, that your actions did have a small form of ramification.
Chisa was trying to keep her cool, but this meeting was not going the way she was hoping.
What did I do wrong? To me you did nothing wrong, Uzumaki-san.
Naruto gave an annoyed look at his teacher.
But there are people that help fund the school that don't see it that way. To some of them, these actions should have been prevented by the school, not by a student. Who cares how the problem was fixed? It was fixed before anything happened. Isn't that what should matter?
Naruto was getting angry with the conversation. Not so much that he was having it, but by the fact that outside sources were meddling with he believed was a finished matter.
I understand that, Naruto. But the problem lies in that fact that a student attempted to murder another student, and a third student felt that it was unnecessary to get any form of authority involved. I don't see what the major issue is.
Naruto understands that the people pumping the money into the school felt he overstepped his boundaries, but Naruto saved a life. He felt that's what should matter the most.
The issue is that the people funding the school felt that issue might never come to light if Sato didn't confess to her actions.
Naruto was caught by surprise with her sentence. He felt that it was odd that Sato was expelled from the school after the incident. But now he knew why she was kicked out of the school.
Among the higher-ups, there is also concern that if something had been done to young Kazuri that some of the funding might have been pulled from the school. What does that have to do with anything?
Naruto felt rage building inside of him. He couldn't believe what he just heard. From what Chisa was telling him, the school was more worried about losing money than the actual incident.
Naruto, you and I both know that if anything should happen to Natsumi-san, there would be nothing stopping Fuyuhiko from getting his revenge. While I am happy that you prevented something like that from happening, the school is not. What do you want from me? Personally, Naruto, I hope this was a one-time deal and nothing like this ever happens again. But this is what the school wants me to tell you. In the future, do not get involved in those type of matters. Next time, get the proper authority involved.
Chisa felt slightly sick from what she just said. Taking a moment to look at the blonde, she saw that he had a similar reaction. Naruto didn't give her an answer. He just stood up and got out of his chair.
Sit back down, Naruto. There is still one matter the school wants me to address with you.
Chisa didn't flinch when she saw the glare she was being given by the prankster. She was ready for all this. She knew that Naruto was a headstrong person. And in some ways, she respected that about the blonde. But she felt dirty on what she had to do next.
The school wants me to address your current living arrangements with 3 other females.
Naruto could only stare at the orange-haired teacher. He opened his mouth, but nothing came out. At the same time with Piko and Ibuki. Piko, currently resting in her assigned room, only did the one thing that she felt was natural to her. She stared at the door waiting for something to happen. She was upset that she was not sharing a room with her master. She needed to protect her master from any possible danger. But no, Chisa gave her a room far away from her master, making her feel useless. Now she waited till her master needed her.
Piko!
Snapping out of her thoughts, she didn't have time to respond as she was tackled to her bed. Surprised by the sudden impact, Piko could only wait as her body hit her soft bed.
What is Mayota-san?
Piko annoyingly asked the multi-haired lady resting her head on her chest. Ibuki flashed her a bright grin and gave Piko a light poke on her cheek.
Ibuki was not happy that you were so quiet. Ibuki was worried that you lost the ability to talk. Ibuki did the only thing that she felt would make sure that you could still talk. By tackling me.
Ibuki happily nodded her head. She felt that was the best way to ever find out if someone lost their voice or not. When being tackled, most people would either scream at being attacked or let out a grunt of pain. Either way, she felt her plan was the best course of action.
Of course. Piko-chan,
Ibuki happily told the silver-haired beauty. Piko gave a light glare to the young lady that was on top of her. But Ibuki stuck her tongue out to her. Piko didn't want to say anything and pushed Ibuki off of her. Thump! Piko dusted herself off as Ibuki's body crashed onto the ground. She didn't care of her actions. She didn't need to be distracted while her master could be in danger. She didn't have time to deal with the odd musician.
Why are you being so mean to Piko-chan?
Ibuki whined as she laid on the floor. The lady in question stared blankly at Ibuki. She didn't feel the need to answer her.
Come on, Piko-chan. We should be having fun. Not sitting in our room doing nothing. Maota-san, if you feel the need to have fun, then go ahead. You don't need to include me just because we're roommates.
Piko finished saying as she sat down on her bed and waited for her master to call upon her.
But Ibuki wants to hang out with Piko-chan.
Piko turned her attention to Ibuki.
Ibuki wants to know all her classmates better. Piko-chan is, like, one of the coolest people Ibuki has ever seen. So Ibuki wants to become friends with Piko-chan before the end of this school trip.
Piko was caught by surprise with Ibuki's response. For as long as she knew, everyone only spoke to her when they had to. Never had she had someone say they wanted to become her friend. The only people she casually chatted with, and is friends with, are Natsumi and Fuyuhiko. She didn't know what to do.
What would you like to do, Ibuki?
Piko did the one thing that she felt was proper to do in this instance. Ibuki gave Piko a large grin. The moment Piko saw the grin on Ibuki's face, she felt a small shiver go down her spine. And the fear of doom crept on her. Back with Chisa and Naruto.
You have to see it from the school point of view. It's not proper for a male and female living together without adult supervision.
Chisa felt a small headache forming. This entire conversation was just a pain in her behind.
But I am 18. An adult by Japanese laws. Ibuki and Sonia are both 17 years old, while Natsumi is 16 going to 17. They're all close to being an adult and making their own choices.
Naruto defended himself.
But those three are still under adult age.
Rubbing her forehead, Chisa continued.
I understand that you will not do anything with them. But people who don't like you, who doesn't know the girls, might not.
And if they should find out that everyone in your home goes to Hope's Peak Academy, then the public opinion might be one that our school condone lewd acts. And we cannot allow that.
I am not going to force those three out of my home just because the school wants it.
Naruto was not happy that the school was sticking there, in what he felt was personal matters. But there was still one question Naruto had yet to ask.
Bigger question. Who even told the school they were living with me? We are not going to force them to move out, Uzumaki-san.
Chisa knew she had to carefully say her next words.
Before I give you the answer of what the school is going to do about them living with you, I will give you the answer to who told us. Okay.
Naruto did everything that he could do to keep himself calm. He already knew that he was not going to like anything that they might come up with. But he still had to hear them out.
The school found out because they had wanted to talk with you about the Sato incident. They had sent a representative to fetch you from. But when they had arrived, they noticed that Maota-san and Nevermind-san were leaving your home.
After seeing them leave your home, the representative contacted the school, and that person was given orders to watch over your home. Naruto's hands were clenching. His grip on the table was turning his knuckles white. He felt that his grip was going to break the part of the table he was gripping. The school was spying him. His anger was slowly creeping on him. It was taking all his willpower from storming out. But he knew that it wouldn't make the matter go away. But the only thing that was stopping him from leaving was his respect to Chisa.
They saw that the three girls in question were leaving your home in the morning along with you and returning with you in the evening. When they decided to check the dorms of Maota-san and Nevermind-san, they found the rooms were completely empty, leaving the school to believe that they were now living with you. So, they just assumed the three are living with me. Uzumaki-san, for a full week they saw them going to your home after school and leaving your home for school. Their dorm rooms are empty. With all this evidence, it's hard to deny that they're not. Just please stop denying that they are, and allow me to tell you what the school wants to do.
Naruto reluctantly nodded his head.
With the fact that there is non-adult supervision, and the fact that one of the ladies in question happens to be a princess, the school is willing to allow them to continue to live with you, as long as there is someone watching over all of you. If I say no, then they will be forced to step in and make the three ladies to leave and return to their homes.
Chisa didn't feel it was right. But in the end, she knew the school was only looking out for themselves. She agreed with the blonde that they were all close to being adults and should be allowed to make their own choices. But she had no room to fight them over this. Naruto, on the other hand, was conflicted. In one hand, he would get his home all to himself. But on the other hand, it didn't feel right of what they were doing. But Naruto knew they were trying to be kind. That didn't mean that he was going to like the fact that an unknown person might be coming to his home. But Naruto knew what he had to do.
All right. I want them to keep living with me. I don't want them to leave.
Naruto knew he was defeated, but still felt this was the best course of action. Chisa smiled at the blonde. She knew that it was hard for the blonde to accept this.
You did the right thing, Uzumaki-san.
Grasping both of his hands into her own.
I will talk to the school and make sure that nothing changes for all of you. That's my promise to you.
Naruto smiled at the warmth of her words. He knew that she meant what she was saying. But Naruto was not a naive person. He knew well that she meant her words. The school was a different story. He didn't have the same faith in his school. After a moment or two, Naruto broke their contact.
Arigato, Yukizome-sama.
Naruto stood up and gave a quick bow to his teacher. Now, he needed time to himself. Chisa returned the bow as she watched the blonde leave the room. As soon as the blonde was out the door, Chisa took her phone out and dialed the school. Now she had to tell them. Naruto, on the other hand, was angry. As soon as the door closed behind him, all his anger returned to him. He didn't know why it returned. But it just did. Something just brought out all his anger the moment he walked away from his homeroom teacher. Naruto knew that he had to stay away from people while his anger was getting the best of him. Quickly walking towards the elevator, Naruto wanted to get back to his room as soon as possible. Thump, not even 2 steps away from the meeting room, and the blonde crashed into someone. The impact didn't faze the blonde one bit, but by the sound of the thump the other didn't receive such a light hit. Taking a quick glance over on who he hit, he saw that it was a female he ran into. Her pigtails covered her face from his view. But Naruto knew he didn't have time to really see who he had run into. Quickly offering a hand, Naruto coached down to help the person back up.
I am sorry, miss. Let me help you out. Thank you.
She didn't hesitate on taking his hand. And within moments, she was back on her feet. Naruto was finally able to get a good look at the female he knocked over. And the prankster could honestly say she was pretty.
I am sorry about that, miss. I hope I didn't hurt you.
Naruto apologized to the beauty in front of him. She didn't say anything. She simply dusted herself off.
Don't worry about it.
She waved off the blonde.
I am tougher than I look. Plus, no one seriously got hurt. No harm done. Still, I am sorry. My name is Uzumaki, Naruto.
Naruto introduced himself. She turned her head toward his direction. And Naruto was surprised with the large grin she had on her face. But what really caught Naruto's attention was her eyes. Her bright blue eyes danced with mischief and joy. But the blonde felt there was something hidden behind her eyes.
My name is Inashima, Junko.
She stepped closer to the blonde and stared into his eyes.
And your eyes, they're filled with anger and something else. Something I think I like.
That's all for today. The next part will be uploaded once we hit 200 likes. So don't forget to subscribe and tap the bell icon to make sure you don't miss it. In the meantime, check out this story. Just click on it, and I'll see you there.